Okay, let's start.
At this point, we've solved every lingering mystery from Security Breach. We looked at this thing from top to bottom. Glamrock Freddy, Golden Freddy, the missing Bonnie, the infuriating Patient 46. We connected every detail. We called every child
I think
a robot.
FNAF now is a mess, but okay.
Leave it. FNAF dead and buried once more. Except for that time I talked about the potential
No, it's not, because we still have more 30 videos to watch.
It's reborn yet again, risen from the ashes. With the drop of a brand new DLC teaser a month ago and the start of a brand new book series literally this week, FNAF
Jesus, what's with the background music? What's the problem? What's the problem with the background music? I have always background music in my streams.
And cover the one thing that I was too scared to talk about when I was doing theories earlier this year. It's the one topic that very few have spoken about because it's just so darn confusing. I appreciate that probably doesn't narrow it down a whole bunch, because let's face it, most of this game's lore feels that way, but this was on a whole separate level. Fred boys and Mang girls, it's time to talk about the Blob.
The Blob? Jesus Christ, it's scary.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that's full of so much agony from analyzing FNAF, it could probably bring its own animatronic to life. Maybe then I'd finally get a vacation.
Jeez, that's scary.
So, you heard the cold open, there's a new FNAF book, there's a new FNAF teaser. But before I get to any of that, there's one topic that all of us left lingering.
Wait, maybe I can do something. I'm not gonna take out the music, I'm just gonna make it a little slower. Like this.
Animatronic parts and black tentacles, the Blob, or as I like to call
God,
them,
that's so
Freddy
scary.
Spaghetti. On that note, by the way,
okay,
I don't
that's
know
more
if you're
funny,
aware,
I
but
guess.
FNAF is in the process of becoming a real pizza place. Not real. Basically, they're doing the same ghost kitchen stuff that Mr. Beast did for his food company, where existing restaurants just make extra
I didn't notice
food
the
under a
background
different
music
brand.
before. Okay, it's okay, don't you worry.
Check it out after the video. It's actually really fascinating stuff and very relevant to the franchise now. Anyway, with a real-life Freddy's comes the need for some real-life food, and if Freddy's Spaghetti is not an item on that menu,
this is...
so help me, I will write
I'm confused, so it's a real one in the real world, or it's just real in the game lore?
At the time, the mystery that no one could crack.
Then you've got the Blob as well. The Blob's just on another level of complicated.
With the Blob, there are so many animatronic bodies there that have no reason to be there. I'm gonna take a stab in the dark. I think I put Henry in the Blob.
The Blob is just the catch-all, all loose ends.
Oh, I guess. It's so weird, the Blob. It's so scary.
Half a year. I'm done just throwing all our unanswered questions into this literal landfill of a character. Today we're getting some definitive answers as to what and who this thing might actually be. And those answers are gonna do two things for us. One, they'll absolutely help clarify how we talk about this franchise moving forward, and two, they'll certainly have severe implications for the Ruin DLC that's coming out early next year. So in the event that you repress this game, and specifically this character in your memory like I did, here's the quickest of reminders. In Security Breach, if you stay past 6 AM and defeat all the other animatronics, you're able to descend down into the basement of the Pizzaplex. It's there that you discover the remains of the FNAF 6 restaurant with a big ol' hole in the middle. Try to go down that hole on your own, and you're immediately jump scared by the face of Funtime Freddy attached to a big oily tentacle. But hop into Glamrock Freddy and he protects you, saying that his friends are here and that they're angry and confused. Then, during the Afton fight, those same oily tentacles pop in from the vents, trying to capture you, or anyone, to be honest. Burn Afton enough times and you get the final cutscene where the Blob returns to drag Afton enough times,
like it's a game to burn him, like
jeez. A handful of animated cutscenes in Security Breach, everyone assumes that this is the true canon ending of the game. So, figuring out what this thing is meant to be must be pretty darn important, right? So I guess it's time for me to stop stalling and
there's so many endings, which one is the canon
place to start is to understand what exactly this thing's made out of. Because really, it's a who's who of
burning
FNAF
Afton is very common. Yeah, I know, but like, you have to burn him enough like it's a game, it's kind of weird.
Chica. The shape of the head and the torso are a dead giveaway here. Peeking out is also FNAF 1's Bonnie. Notice the coloring of it and the lack of rosy cheeks. We also have a few random arms and legs popping out. These all match the style of FNAF 1 animatronics. Notice the 3 toes on the feet and the 3 fingers and thumb with no joints on the fingers and
visuals are so
That's
important on
about
this
all that you
franchise.
can
It's
make out from just looking
crazy.
at this thing in the game. But if you extract the in-game model and look at all the other sides, you find that there's a lot more hidden here. Mangle is hanging out directly opposite Freddy's face, and if you look closely, you can also find its rib cage, arm, and 2 of its feet hanging out elsewhere.
Ribcage?
Low on one side of the
Jesus.
blob is the puppet's mask, except it's missing one major detail. The iconic tears are gone. That is a huge clue that we're going to need to address. And finally, we have
I'm
Circus
sorry.
Baby's mask.
I'll wait, don't you worry. Just 1 minute of that and we'll be back. Oh. That's done. Okay, thank you.
The only one of the animatronics to not have her eyes lit up. Again, that is a huge detail that has to be important to this thing in some way. Baby's arm is also hanging around inside this thing. We know it's definitely Baby's and not Funtime Freddy's because Baby's hands have rounded silver tips on the fingers, just like we see here. Like I said, it is a real mishmash of animatronics. It's almost like Steel Wool wanted a one-stop shop for FNAF's greatest hits. And weird details like Baby's eyes being extinguished and the puppet's missing tears feel like the game trying to tell us something, but what? Well, after identifying each and every arm and leg sticking out of this thing, there was still one animatronic in the spaghetti that really got my Matt Pat tingle going. This guy right here. Hidden away at the very bottom of the mess is a naked endoskeleton consisting of a single animatronic head, 2 arms, and a missing eye, with a body position that looks like it's desperately trying to pull itself out. His position right at the bottom also felt like he was intentionally hidden, the kind of thing that you would overlook a few times, but clearly he's meant to be important. He's the only animatronic in this mess that's missing an eye, but his other eye is illuminated, which immediately puts him on the same level as the more iconic characters that we see absorbed in this bizarre amalgamation. So,
I think those are alive yet.
What is it? Just a random endoskeleton?
No,
couldn't be. But to know for sure, I had to look closer. My first instinct was that it must be Golden Freddy. I mean, looking at the roster of characters inside the blob,
isn't Golden Freddy
every major animatronic is represented in some way. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Puppet, Baby, all of them are here, but Golden Freddy is strangely absent. Plus, with the animatronic only having one eye, I thought that maybe it was discreetly hinting at the fact that while the crying child's spirit was released in the good ending of FNAF 3, another spirit remained trapped in metal. Cassidy, the vengeful spirit, still here and still angry. It felt very reminiscent of the 2 endings of FNAF 3. In case you don't recall, FNAF 3 was the first game in the series to introduce a good and bad ending. Finding all the secret minigames led you to Happiest Day, where the souls of the dead kids are put to rest and we're given a final image of unlit animatronic heads. But if you just finish the game normally, you instead get this, the bad ending. An image of those exact same masks, but each one with one eye lit up. A spirit remains in each body. Well, all of them except for Golden Freddy's mask in the background has 2 eyes lit. 2 eyes for 2 spirits, and in the intervening years, one has been released. However, despite lots of pieces thematically lining up, there was one glaring issue here. Golden Freddy doesn't have himself an endoskeleton. He's a streamlined suit. It's why Golden Freddy is always hunched over. He has no skeleton, no frame. So if Golden Freddy's now off the table, who else could it be? Well, obviously his defining feature is that one lit eye, but it's not only that one eye is lit, it's that he's physically missing the second eye. So I sat down and went through my mind's encyclopedia snap where I remembered what other characters only have one eye. Immediately I thought Foxy might make a good contender, except Foxy isn't actually missing an eye. He just has one covered up by an eye patch. Same thing for Withered Foxy. Maybe it could be Lefty, the strange black animatronic bear from FNAF 6 that was designed as a capture suit for the puppet. Nope, the eye that's missing is on the wrong side. You know what? Maybe it is just a random endoskeleton because why not? It's security breach. But you know what? It's not that either. You see, FNAF 1 endoskeletons are canonically more boxy and streamlined, not this guy. The body in the blob is actually closer to the Endo 02 models that we see used in FNAF 2. Those have thin spring-like coils around their main skeleton. But even then, what we see in the blob is different. Notice the thick round discs that are directly connected to the skeletal structure. You don't see that in Endo 02s. It's almost like these things' arms are actually its legs. But that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, or does it? Because there is one animatronic that actually has hands connecting to leg joints. One with an Endo 02 head that's missing its right eye. One with wires hanging out the side and with 4 rounded fingers at the end of each hand. It is the Mangle. Just, you know, it's Mangle's other head. That weird guy is just kind of hanging out over there on the body. It is a direct match. Okay, gotta be honest with you, I was excited to
jeez, I
identify
can
this
talk
mystery
you.
animatronic, but also, yeah,
My God, sorry.
disappointed. This weird animatronic that's trying to pull itself out of the bottom of the blob feels like it should mean something special, but Mangle being the answer just feels empty. Like, yeah,
Why?
we already know
It
Mangle's
makes sense,
in
it's the
this thing.
second
head
half,
is
then it's the
very
second
obvious
half.
on the body. So, like so much else inside of this game, it was a mystery that led to a dead end. But hey, now that we have the complete and definitive roster of who's
Hello,
inside
Shield
this
Gamer,
thing, we can
how
actually
are
start to
you?
figure out why they're inside this thing. Because these
What
are some weird
happened?
picks. When last we left everyone, we had Molten Freddy and Scrap Baby. So why do we now have older versions of these animatronics inside the blob? Also, how do we
don't
suddenly
know.
have FNAF 1 and 2 era animatronics mixed in when none of these older models were a
Don't
part of FNAF
worry,
6's
it's
fire?
everything is okay. Oh my God, the creator is talking to you so cute.
If at first you don't succeed, try again. But at a certain point, you just gotta like cut it off and be like, you know what? Maybe there's something else. Silver bullet, stake in the heart.
Hello,
garlic,
Shield
literally
Gamer.
anything.
Honestly, this was the
I'm
main reason
watching
I didn't want to
this
cover
still.
the blob. Just felt like one big continuity error. But
Have you
now that
saw
I've
the
come to
video
end
I
of my
sent
sanity
of the
trying to determine what
VR
animatronic a finger
Apple thing?
belongs to,
Yeah,
I think
that's
an answer has
amazing.
presented
It
itself
has
to me
physics
through
and
the
everything.
darkness.
I
And you
saw
know what?
that.
I was wrong. Dead wrong. So the opening area of Security Breach is Rockstar Row.
Probably too
and it's full of
expensive, but it's
memorabilia
cool.
from the past pizzerias. You got stuff like OG Foxy's torso and jaw
Ooh.
placed inside a display
Oh, it's a
case.
museum.
There's also Bonnie's guitar, Freddy's bow tie, Chica's cupcake, even random stuff like Chica's feet or animatronic leg pieces. But
So
it's
weird,
not the
lol.
items that
Also,
are there
are
that
you
are
going to do
interesting,
VR
it's the ones that
shots?
are missing. If you look closely at these display
we're not
cases,
playing
the
VR
majority of
shot
them have at
today,
least
we're gonna
one
play
missing
Make
item
Way.
with a small description plaque in front of the
And
empty
we can
space.
play VR shot
Unfortunately, you
without
can't
the
see what exactly is on the
glasses.
plaques, but if torsos and feet
No,
are
you don't
being
need
displayed,
VR
then
to
it
play
isn't too
VR
hard to imagine
shots.
that these could have been the
There's an
heads,
option on
masks,
Steam to
arms,
play
items
normally.
that have been collected and added to the blob. In fact, that would explain why it's Circus Baby and Funtime Freddy heads inside of the blob instead of Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy. It's not a continuity error like
Yeah,
all of us
it is.
assumed. It's just
You
a
can
really
try it.
obscure
It's-
lore point.
you could have played
Remember that
without the
FNAF sister location
sets.
ended with
It's
all
okay.
the animatronics teamed up to
Many
form
people
Enter,
ask
a
me
literal
that.
tangle of wires and eyeballs, and that was pretty much it. But once Ennard was puked up and Baby
Also,
got
what can
voted
Mario
out of
play
the
today?
team,
Make
that tangled
Way.
wires needed shape and form. This in turn gave rise to Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy, creatures
Today it's
created
Make
from
Way.
literal trash,
Yeah.
not official versions of the characters, for as much
Okay,
as
they're
they might
not
look like the
official.
original characters. As far as Fazbear Entertainment memorabilia is concerned, the Circus Baby mask and Funtime Freddy
How come
head,
did I have
they're
X1
versions of those characters.
controller?
They're put on display for
Sly, I
fans of the
guess.
series to see. Parts that this tangle of black goo could steal from the displays
Oh,
and
jeez.
absorb into its own being. Same with the
Oh,
OG
okay,
suits and
that's
Mangle
weird.
Body. Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy, meanwhile, they're unofficial characters. They were never
They're
created by
unofficial.
Fazbear Entertainment or displayed inside of a pizzeria. In short, I'm sorry, Steel Wool. I'm not sorry about a lot of the things I've said about some of the
We
lore
have to see how
decisions in this
you
game,
can
but
play with
this
us
individual case,
with
I'm
the
sorry that I
controller. Maybe
assumed
a
that
creator
this was
can
just a
help you with
sloppy
that, but we play
continuity
an
error,
Epic
when in
game, so Steam
actuality,
cosplay
it was a lot
doesn't
more
work.
thoughtful than I could have ever expected.
Unfortunately.
We just didn't give you enough benefit of the doubt here. So, like an overeager Funko Pop collector, there's
Ooh,
a tangle of black
so
wires
cute.
lurking in the Pizzaplex, hunting
I'm
for
sorry. Oh my
souvenirs
God,
from the
look at that
franchise.
face.
And believe it or
Adorable.
not, this actually
You're
lines
adorable.
up with a random detail from the story New Kid in the
Ooh.
third Fazbear Frights book. As a group of kids are exploring an abandoned Freddy's restaurant, we get this line, quote, "While they were in the bathroom, Devin was pretty sure he heard something slithering through the walls. He didn't say anything. From the way the other boys' faces paled, he knew they heard it too." That is the line, and it never pays
My God.
off. Not in this story, not in this book, not
How
in
about
the
when
entire
playing
book
Cult of the
series.
Lamb
whole
next
story
week?
actually winds up being a Golden Freddy story.
Next week,
strangely
because,
enough, but it
I
leaves
had last
Chekhov's
minute
tentacle
stuff
monster
this
just
week.
sitting there in the walls waiting to be used.
Tomorrow I have an
Probably because it was meant
appointment
to
and
pay
Friday I
off
have to help
Security
my mom. I'm
Breach, a
sorry.
game that was originally meant to release closer to that story's publication, but the repeated delays in
No,
Security
it's a
Breach
creator
threw all of
only.
that synergistic
Sorry.
programming off. All right, so we know why it physically looks the way it does, but really, what are these tentacles? Well, that's where the puppet
It's
mask
Shaq
missing
Kitty
tears comes
Patootie.
in. I think we're all familiar with this thing's story, right? In the aftermath of kids getting killed at Freddy's restaurants, the creator
Oh,
Henry
it is.
institutes a security program in
look,
the
a
form of the
present.
puppet. In
Ooh.
FNAF 6, we literally see this thing called a security puppet. Sadly, Henry's daughter Charlie is killed outside of the confines of the restaurant. The puppet finds her too late and
Gosh,
lies down
comes on
beside her in
Steam
the
and
rain,
literally
and the
every
two
game on
become
Epic.
one. And in FNAF
Yeah.
6, the last official time that we see this character, it comes complete with tears
I'm
in
sorry.
its eyes. In fact, in every iteration of the character, the puppet mask has tears. Or should I say almost every
Almost.
inspiration. Look at the security puppet minigame from before Charlie's death. The mask has no tears. It's only after Charlie dies and the thing is possessed that tears suddenly form on the mask. Tears mean that Charlie's soul is inside of this thing. But now, there are no tears left on the mask because Charlie's soul
someone put the sticker.
She's no longer inside security puppet. When Henry burned everything at the end of FNAF 6, it worked. Kinda. It freed all the souls that were trapped inside of the metal. This coincides with what we see on the blueprints for Remnant. Overheating might neutralize the effects permanently. However, it didn't work all the way. There's one thing that Henry's fire didn't account for. Something that it didn't purge: agony. You see, Remnant soul metal might be the focus of the games, but it isn't the only powerful force that drives this
I still don't understand this agony
is
thing.
actually found within the pages of the Fazbear
Bro, that's
Frights
not a soul, that's just a feeling.
Now, it's important to distinguish the difference between agony and remnant. I've seen a lot of places using the terms interchangeably, but in Fazbear Frights, they're explained to be distinctly different. Remnant is all about the soul. When an animatronic becomes possessed, that spirit literally becomes attached to the metal. That metal can then be melted down into a substance that Fazbear Frights describes as a boiling liquid mercury, aka remnant. If you inject that metal into other animatronics, it suddenly brings them to life using the power of the original souls. Compare that to agony. In the books, agony is studied by Dr. Phineas Taggart. He states that agony, quote, has a greater energetic radius and power than any other emotion. I've done numerous experiments to measure, capture, contain, and study the leftover emotion embedded into objects that were near a tragedy. The book even goes so far to explain that the items Phineas has collected weren't possessed by ghosts or spirits, but instead were energized by agony. So when someone feels agony, it doesn't just stay with them, it can infect inanimate objects around them and linger there. In other words, although the original animatronics no longer have spirits powering them, the agony they felt while being murdered remains attached to the suits. That's why the Blob's interested in collecting the suits. It's not collecting spirits, it's collecting agony. By combining them, it becomes more powerful. All the pain and suffering of the children from over the years brought together to create one giant monster. That's why the eyes are glowing red for all the animatronics and endoskeletons. It's also why the puppet and baby aren't glowing. The puppet has been put to rest by her father. She's no longer tormented.
My daughter, if you can hear me, it's time to rest. For you and for those you have carried in your arms.
And baby, well, yeah, she is certainly angry. She is jealous, but she's also eager to face her father even after death.
Now we can do what we were created to do and be complete. I will make you proud, Daddy.
She embraces the monster that she's become. She's not filled with agony, but everyone else, absolutely. Even in that finale speech, we hear Henry say it.
This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should.
Agony! Woo, woo, he did it! He said the word! So, there you have it, friends.
I guess I think it makes sense.
We finally solved the last mystery of Security Breach. The Blob isn't a giant continuity breaker, it's just a very cleverly composed amalgamation of animatronic parts slithering through the walls looking to accumulate agony. The tortured emotions coming from all the old animatronics on display throughout the pizza plex. And now that we've solved it, not convinced that we've seen the last of it. Despite the fact that the Afton ending's only worth 2 stars, when the highest is 3, the DLC poster does seem to indicate that the story is going to follow this particular ending. Notice the melted parts of Chica's face, the ruined pizzaplex, which directly follows the building collapse and Afton's ending. But look a little closer. There are mysterious red eyes up in the top left, as well as some suspicious looking cables down in the bottom right. Even if the Blob did finally kill Afton during the ending, the agony would still remain. It perseveres beyond death, and it isn't able to simply let go. In short, the Blob is still very much a threat, something that is more powerful than anything we've ever faced in the franchise. In fact, even my previous prediction about the Afton amalgamation could still come to pass. As I called out in a previous theory, in the book, Afton gets mixed up with a bunch of agony, which creates a giant monster trash rabbit. How can we fight that demon? Isn't that exactly what we're seeing in the ending of Security Breach? Afton mixed in with a bunch of agony parts. I suspect that Afton may be able to take control of this thing, overriding the Blob's directionless rage and focusing it in order to wreak havoc on Gregory and whoever this new character might be, just like he does during the Stitch Wraith stories from Fazbear Frights. The only issue is, I'm not sure how we'd be able to stop it. In Fazbear Frights, the solution is to see into people's memories and trap them inside those memories. It's a pretty random power, so it's hard to say how that might work in the games. Unless, of course, this new character is meant to be someone that could remind Afton or the Blob of good memories, bringing them back to reality and quelling the agony within. But that, my friends, is a theory.
But if it's made of agony, how can it be on the reality check?
Just a theory.
Just agony, I guess.
Theory. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, it is kind of scary. Well, I hope that thing isn't a boss fight, bro. Okay, let's proceed. Okay, the DLC is out.
It's over! It is finally over! The thing that's been
Oh my god,
haunting me
he's
for
getting
over 2
crazy.
years is finally dead and buried. The Fazbear Frights book series. 12 books, 36 stories, 2,912
Jeez. Okay.
pages. Yeah, you bet I counted each and every page of that thing. No more do I have to waste my nights reading page after page after page of tepid, warmed-over horror for the tiniest scrap of lore. No more will I be forced to
Well, there's
try
a new
and convince you that
series,
the
I
books
guess.
are important tools for solving the games, actually,
Oh.
guys. And no more will I have to write the words Fazgoo
Fazgoo.
in my notes. I get to go back to being a gaming channel again. Unless, of course, I
No,
want to read
lol.
the 7 Hello Neighbor books.
What? There's
Yeah,
there's
right. I guess all
Hello
I have to do now
Neighbor
is wait for
books
Security
now?
Breach DLC to roll out and,
My god.
no.
Depression.
No. Hello, Internet. Welcome to
Even the
Game
text
Theory,
got-
the show that's
the
basically
text
book
of the
theory
channel
in
got-
disguise, 'cause there's now
got
another
sad
Faz book
because
series
of
in
the book.
existence.
My
So
god.
It physically hurts me to say that, but Tales from the Pizzaplex.
Yeah,
is a
on the
thing
first
that
Hello Neighbor
apparently
book. Is
exists.
it
The
good?
first
Why
book
did
came out
they
a month
make
ago, and there
books
are now
even? Why?
3 more due before the
Oh
end of the
my
year.
god, look at those
How
covers.
is it possible to write so many books? Scott, my dude, I appreciate the hustle, but
My
just spend a
god.
little less time on your literature
Was
empire and a little
the
more
first
time making a
Hello
game with a
Neighbor
cohesive
book
narrative.
good? I don't know if I should buy
Just use the time
gaming
to release
books
more
like
psychoprops.
this
You know, all those
and read
essential
Hello Neighbor
characters
as
in the
lore.
franchise,
I know
like
it does, but
Radioactive
why
Glow
books?
Foxy.
I guess it's the same reason as FNAF, I
Regardless
guess.
of my feelings about the books, one thing I will say is that they've led to some of our most important theories to date. So, despite my better judgment, I read the new one so you guys at home don't have to. And I gotta say, no
Okay,
surprise,
what
this
says
thing is
the
a roller
book
coaster
then?
ride.
What
In this singular book, you have one emotional gut punch of a story that's probably the best in the entire FNAF series, one incredibly gruesome story where people are physically being ripped apart by Glamrock Bonnie, and one where the entire world dies of cancer because a girl wanted to play FNAF AR. That last one, by the way, is barely an exaggeration of the actual story. A girl goes to the Pizzaplex and hops into an augmented reality machine which causes everyone else in the entire world to develop cancer and also give birth to translucent goo babies that eventually swallow the girl whole. This is a product that really exists in the FNAF canon. It's likely that what's really happening in this story is that she's trapped in the AR machine and all of this is happening inside the prison of her own mind. But let me just say that the story leaves it very vague. Anyway, I just saved you 80 pages of reading stories about kids dying of cancer.
I guess.
You're welcome.
So
in the aftermath of all of this, I've rummaged back through the old box of theories to come up with 3 mini theories for you to chew on. 2 that clarify major points from Security Breach, and 1 that gives us an idea of where the game's DLC is going to take us next. To get there, we're going to be covering lore. So much lore. Game lore, book lore, real lore, Ballora. More lore than your brain has room for. So get ready there, Laura Croft. Today, we've got ourselves 3
oh my god, it's so funny.
Let's motivate this episode with a controlled shock. Theory number 1, Security Breach's animatronics aren't possessed, except for Freddy. Maybe some people already thought of this, maybe you've never really questioned it, but if I'm right, this would be a huge deal because it would be the first time in the series that the main animatronics don't have spirits inside of them. This was something that really
just
stuck with me after our last
walking
episode
around
Blob, and I
because
figured we should probably discuss it here, so let me take you through my thinking. First, consider this. Who would be possessing these animatronics at this point in the series? Security Breach takes place after the FNAF 6 fire, a fire that, as we spoke about last time, worked as Henry intended. As a quick reminder, Henry set the fire to purge all the remaining spirits out of Molten Freddy and Scrap Baby, and he was successful in his project. They're gone now. That's why the puppet mask inside the blob has no more tears, and why Baby's eyes are all extinguished. What Henry didn't account for, though, was agony. The way I see it,
I know, it was last video's
that lingers on inside the older models of suits and endoskeletons. The rage that remains even after the spirits pass on. So if I'm truly right about that, all those past victims have been laid to rest. They're gone. They're removed from the franchise, off the lore table. So if not them, then
that's good, I guess.
Would be inside the rock stars. Well, the only other option are the 9 missing kids that we see in the newspaper article during the game's bad ending, and honestly, that's just too many. We only get 6 new animatronics in this game. Freddy, Monty, Chica, Roxy, daycare attendant, and music
Zeke-Man.
It's been too long.
Slay.
I did this episode just so I had an excuse to do that. I suppose you could say that there were 7 if you count the 2 sides of the daycare attendant.
Maybe,
but still,
yeah.
That is 2 spirits short. But you don't have to take my word for it. The game
And
outright
Bonita
tells us this
instead,
itself.
I
About a month ago,
guess.
Reddit user Seriously Unserious posted a big research doc breaking down the opening cutscene of the game from the perspective of a computer expert. This was research that they were doing for a video on the Rye Toast channel, which,
Ooh,
shout out to a
Toast.
fellow FNAF theorist, love your cat by the way. If you've never heard of Rye
Yay,
Toast, go check
so
him out.
cute.
I mean, when you got thumbnails like this, you know that this is a channel coming from a great creator with some really smart stuff to say. Anyway, in his Reddit post, Seriously Unserious looks at the glitch trap virus for exactly what it is, a computer virus, going into the specific details of how viruses work and seeing how it affects Glamrock Freddy. You see, computer viruses don't live independently within a system. They have to be attached to something, usually a file or a program, and when said program runs, that triggers the virus and allows it to run. And believe it or not, but we actually watched this process happen at the very beginning of Security Breach. Notice how when we're looking through Glamrock Freddy's HUD, we get a glimpse that he's in show mode. There's an integrity bar, and we get a line that says test run. Also, you'll notice the command line interface here where the primary folder
Look at this command line,
32, which has always been associated with the 32-bit version of Windows. In other words,
they run
Freddy
on
and the other
Windows.
animatronics are PC master race, baby! But as we all know, very shortly into Freddy's performance, he stops dancing and begins to glitch out when he gets triggered by a child that's out in the audience. That's what we've covered in the past. But one thing that we've never done is look through these 5 seconds at a quarter speed to actually watch the cascade of events playing out that ultimately result in Freddy's crash. Inside the System 32 folder, Freddy runs a program named Git568. We also see this happen in the code when the command line Heat869 pops up, heat vision or thermal vision. So it would seem like the Git program is telling Freddy to scan the audience and look for a kid to potentially grab. Eventually, there's a second command line which loads in some other programs.
Okay, that's weird.
Tests. All of these tests come back with a negative result, except for the last one, which receives a Y. Yes, and that's when the program starts to crash. At the same time, Freddy supposedly finds Gregory in the crowd. This then prompts Freddy's program to define rule X. Looks like the code is searching for what it's supposed to do in a situation like this. We don't know what that rule is, but we do know that the next step is to return warning 79, which is when we see the word warning pop up in the HUD. Freddy then goes into overdrive and the whole thing aborts. It tries to init task, initialize a new task, but this is met with a void response, meaning that it's not getting
I don't understand anything, but okay.
The next line then tells us alloc overload, which shows the virus trying to reallocate resources in Freddy's memory, but there's an insufficient amount, which causes SW.failure and Freddy crashing to the ground. After that, he's booted up into safe mode, which is a way to boot up a system that uses only the bare essential programs.
Okay.
Get it? Bare. You'll notice that Glitch Trap isn't a problem for Freddy throughout the rest of the game, which tells us that the Glitch Trap virus is actually housed as a part of show mode. It's a non-essential program. This is why Freddy's clear for the remainder of the game, but the other animatronics are suddenly in Kill Gregory mode, because once the show's done, Glitch Trap activates. It's funny, but in a poetic twist, the Glitch Trap virus caused Freddy to glitch, crashed him out of show mode, which in turn rendered Glitch Trap unable to corrupt his system. It's only after the corrupted parts of the other animatronics are added to Freddy that we finally see Glitch Trap able to get a stronger hold over his system. But let's go back to that allocation overload that prompted Freddy's crash in the first place. Normally, this is caused by a lack of CPU or RAM, but why would it crash inside of Freddy and not any of the other animatronics? What else could have taken up the valuable disk space inside of Freddy? Well, how about the soul of Michelangelo? Why else would Freddy suddenly not have enough resources?
The soul takes CPU and memory. Oh my god.
He has something inside of him that they don't. The spirit of someone else. A spirit that starts to show activity once he sees Gregory out in the audience.
That's kind of weird,
dead kids,
but okay, I guess.
Gregory. Everyone's favorite robot kid was built using old parts of staff bots. I know the whole Gregory is a robot theory is already a bit controversial, but like it or not, robot kids have been an accepted thing inside this universe since Charlie had 4 versions of herself hidden behind closet doors in the initial novel trilogy. And where there's a robot kid, there also tends to be a box that they can pop out of. Again, case in point, Charlie. And wouldn't you know it, but the new Tales from the Pizzaplex book doubles down on both robot kids and boxes, with not just one story, but 2. In the second story, Lally's game, Selena's about to marry the love of her life, Cade. They move into a new house, and while unpacking, Selena sees an old trunk that belongs to Cade, a box that Cade insists is full of memorabilia. Surprise, surprise! surprise, it's not memorabilia at all, but rather yet another robot kid,
What?
Lally. Yeah, Lally is the robot child that's on the cover of this book, but that visual is actually misleading. Lally does have the childish facial features and is around 3 to 4 feet tall, but he isn't purple. Rather, he's meant to be white with black joints. Anyway, once again, we find ourselves with a robot child that's locked away inside of a box. One that is specifically mentioned to be related to the Pizzaplex. But it's another story, Frailty, where things get real interesting. In this one, we're given yet another robot girl, Jessica. But Jessica's
so now everyone is a robot. Oh my god.
Heart-shaped pendant that has healing properties. When she shaves off parts of that pendant, she's able to heal sick people around her. As the pendant gets smaller and smaller, rusty, oily metal junk begins to mysteriously appear around her until, once the pendant's gone, Jessica just becomes a pile of scrap. If that story sounds vaguely familiar to you, it should, because the exact same thing happened in the second ever Fazbear Fright story, To Be Beautiful. In that one, a girl named Sarah finds Eleanor. Fazbear
she has a necklace and
junkyard. As thanks for rescuing her, Eleanor grants Sarah a wish. Sarah wishes, as the title of the story suggests, to be beautiful. Each morning, Sarah wakes up to have yet another part of her fixed. The only stipulation is that Sarah keeps
she was already beautiful. What the hell? She could ask, like, I want toys or something. Why didn't she ask that?
She had been rebuilt piece by piece by Eleanor, looking and acting like a human, but held together by a pendant made of remnant. Until the pendant came off, the illusion was broken, and she turned back into trash. Jessica, in this new book, appears to be yet another victim of Baby's scheme. However, there's more to Frailty than just human-looking metal, because I don't think Jessica is just made out of any old junk. I think she's made out of very special junk. At the very start of the story, special line, quote, Jessica pushed the wet mop across the hospital floor, to and fro, to and fro. She remembered that saying from somewhere before, she just didn't remember from where, something from the past. Now alone, this wouldn't amount to all that much, but this forgotten memory of pushing a mop to and fro is repeated 3 other times throughout the story. It's one of those weird details that goes completely unexplained, has no actual bearing on the plot, but feels important because it's repeated so many times and is so oddly specific. We do eventually learn that Jessica's aware of her current state as a heap of junk held together by a magic pendant, and that it's all tied to a decision that she made.
Oh my god, Kim Tiny Face, so adorable.
A normal kid with a normal life, but this specific memory about a mop? Nothing. She has memories of her past, sure, but the compulsion to mop? Yeah, she has no idea where it's coming from, which is why I suspect
maybe it's a robot that cleans.
Instead, I think it's coming from the memory of these guys. The staff bots in Security Breach. We have a number of mopping staff bots throughout the facility, all programmed to move their mops to and fro, just like Jessica. Now, we know that Jessica's made out of junk. I'm not suggesting that she's just a staff bot in disguise.
Oh my god, like,
we also know that there's a lot of broken and discarded staff bots underneath the Pizzaplex, and the Pizzaplex is mentioned in the story Frailty. So what if Eleanor uses parts of these broken down staff bots as part of the junk to recreate Jessica, and the memory inside its metal has mixed with Jessica's
that's actually a good possibility.
The phrase, but not where it comes from.
The metalist memories, I guess.
A lot about Gregory's robotic origins. Now, that admittedly seems like a stretch, but stick with me. During our initial playthrough of Security Breach, I called out the strange presence of staff bots in 2 major secret rooms. First, staff bots are either mangled or fully dismantled in the secret daycare room.
Jeez, they're big.
Staff bots. I mean, this one's been beat up. Kind of like torn apart.
This is a room that we theorized could probably be Gregory's hideout, considering that we see t-shirts hanging up alongside the walls, kind of like
look at Plush, she's so cute.
As well as the pictures that label a small child as me also posted on the walls. You know, looking back on this room almost a year later, there's another picture in here, my fun day with a big old birthday cake.
So cute. That's
right
adorable.
Just saying, the connections between this kid and FNAF 4's failed birthday party keep stacking up. Anyway, lots of weird beat up staff bots exist in here in a way that they don't appear practically anywhere else in the game. The second place that we see beat up staff bots is in the most lore-heavy room in the game, the post-it room down in the sewers. At the time, I was focused on the messages.
Yeah, it has a lot of information. It's like it's developing how to talk and write.
Down the path of Gregory being a robot, and that the message was his first step into consciousness. But post-its aren't the only thing that are in that room. There are also hundreds of broken staff bot heads that are piled along the walls.
Well, maybe I forgot about that.
Specifically, staff bots. At the time, I proposed that Gregory might have just just been experimenting with the parts. It was just kind of a throwaway comment. But now, thanks to Jessica's connection to a mop bot, I feel like maybe the staff bots and Gregory might be more related than I initially thought. He's asking,
so cute.
why is I? Because his actual memories as the crying child are only just beginning to come back, clashing against the programming of the staff bot who was never truly alive in the first place. And it's why there are all these pieces of broken staff bots up in the daycare room. If he needs a repair, he can just use those parts because they're exactly what he's made from. Gregory has been pieced together with the parts of broken staff bots. All we need now to prove it is the heart-shaped pendant that lies underneath his striped
how
shirt,
does
which
that have even memories? Like,
security breach.
the other one remembers of mopping because of the robot she was based on, but the robot wasn't alive? Oh jeez.
Nope, not this time,
The robot
my friend.
wasn't
I feel
alive.
real confident about this one.
And the robot wasn't alive, so how could she get memories of something that doesn't have memories, you know? Let's wait till the ads are over. You know, FNAF is weird but cool at the same time, you know. I guess it's cool, never played it. Probably gonna get so scared. Okay, I guess it's over.
No? Well, it
Thank
all comes
you.
back to color. Color has always been hugely important.
Ooh, I
to the
like
franchise.
color.
Slightly confusing at times, but important nonetheless. So rather than looking at the poster for hidden eyes up in the corners or trying to figure out why Gregory might be on a computer monitor, I instead wanted to bring your attention to two specific color clues that have been given through this poster. First of all, the title. Take a look at that new logo we got. Security Breach Ruin. Security Breach, as you'd expect, is just the main game logo, but Ruin is purple. Well, this franchise is known for its use of bright colors, especially in the neon pizzaplex. Purple is always reserved for the Aftons. Obviously, both William and Michael are purple. In the Princess Quest ending, both Vanessa and Gregory are purple. Burntrap's room is purple, and so are his eyes. Purple is Afton's color. And so, with a purple logo and a room filled with purple lights, I have a feeling that what I predicted at the end of my last theory might come to pass. With Afton being absorbed by the blob, he's gonna take control of it, and it'll be up to us to put an end to him once and for all. But how? We've used fire 3 times at this point, and it's never once worked, so what else can we do? Well, we can use the girl on the poster. When I first looked at the poster, I knew that there was something fishy about her.
This is weird. Why'd you turn black and white? That's too suspicious. You don't color in one part of your asset and then leave the rest of it black and white.
First of all, let's take a look at the only color that we have to work with here. Those lights are pinky red, the same as the top of Elizabeth Afton, a little girl who happens to be close to Gregory's age.
Okay, this is kind of pushing, but okay.
No hair, which would imply that it's blonde rather than brunette. There are definitely some level of physical similarities here, but Elizabeth, just like every other kid in this franchise, is dead. She got herself scooped by babies, so it can't possibly be her, right? Or can it? I suspect that the black and white palette may be just more than hiding her identity, but also informing us to how she's gonna be here in the first place. In media, making something black and white usually implies that it's something from the past, maybe before color television, or just remembering something like Christopher Nolan's Memento. Elizabeth being in black and white while the rest of the image is fading color suggests that she is, in some way, a memory from the past. Now, I theorized last time that to beat
well, except in Oppenheimer, because Oppenheimer used black and white just for the trial.
Find the good memories
the rest was on color.
The good memories
but I guess it's something normal on the movie
happy memories to help the agony disappear. So if this is Elizabeth, well then that's probably why she's in black and white. She's a construct of when she was alive in Afton's memories. In the end, we might not be exploring the real ruins of the Pizzaplex in the DLC, but rather the ruins of Afton's own mind. A jumbled mix of rage and sadness, pizzerias spread across time and space, a life that has fallen to ruin.
Okay,
I'm
how
right,
do-
the DLC could be an
how is that
exploration
gonna
of every
happen?
other key point in the timeline of these games.
Like,
As
are we gonna
the
control
memory of
him?
Elizabeth, try to put our father to rest once and for all. And honestly, it makes sense for the narrative at this point. Afton was absorbed by the Blob. The Blob is the collection of anger from all of his past victims. For the first time, the two are truly interacting, fusing together. It's the narrative excuse to bring Killer and Killed together to explore the memories of those moments and finally give everyone peace. Or revenge.
Finally.
So
Oh,
there you have
okay.
it, Steel Wool.
I
wrote
prefer
your ending
peace,
for
though.
you. You forced Afton upon us in Security Breach when we all thought he was gone. So
Purple.
we might as well do him some justice and give him the ending he deserves. This is the end of Burn Trap and the Blob, closing the book on the Afton saga for good, allowing for a fresh start in the next project, because it's finally time to give the fans what they really want, an AR game that curses the world into a debilitating
No,
illness and
bro,
turns
no one-
babies into
no one
fans
wants
too.
that.
On second thought, maybe we just don't adapt that story for the games. But
Yeah,
hey,
please, thank
that's
you.
just a theory. 3 game theories.
Three
Thanks
game
for watching.
theories. You know, this is getting crazy. I just I don't understand anymore. But okay. Okay, it's almost done. Okay, next one. Golden Freddy never
What if I
existed,
told
bro.
you that
What is
everything
this?
we thought we knew about FNAF was a lie? That Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and
Bro,
Foxy
every
were never
theory here
possessed.
is crazy.
The bite
Now
of
it doesn't
87
exist.
Never happened.
After
Heck,
all
the
these
bite of
years.
83 never happened. What if I told you that William Afton didn't die
Everything
because
is
some
a
spirits
dream.
harassed him in a back room, but because he got
Everything
careless?
is a dream.
Right. What if I told you that Golden Freddy never existed?
It's all a
think that
dream,
I was
don't you tell
crazy,
me.
Right? That after 60 episodes covering this series that I'd finally lost it, or gotten so desperate that I needed you to throw it all away and start again for content. But I assure you, I'm still here, totally sane, or
Bro, I don't
as
think
sane
so.
as I've ever been, and totally suspecting that some, maybe even all of the statements that I just made are 100% true. So open your ears
Okay,
and
it's all
listen to
dream
what I
then.
have to say.
I'm
because once
joking.
I'm done, none of us.
Because this dream
franchise
theory
the
already
same
was
way again.
made like some videos ago.
Hello,
But maybe it's
Internet.
not a dream, maybe
Welcome
it's
to
other
Game
stuff. Let's see.
Theory, where am I the only one that hears that weird humming sound? I think it's coming from the subscribe button. Can you help me smash it?
Ay, Jesus.
my goodness, that was driving me insane.
Okay, I
What's
guess.
the small disc that fell out? Yep, probably not important. Today is a big day as far as FNAF theory goes. Usually I'm here picking apart details from the newest book, or trying to solve one very specific part of the franchise's history, or reminding
Okay.
you that robot kids do in fact exist and Gregory
Yes.
is one of them. But this episode has a wider scope. It's bigger. It touches literally everything released in the franchise thus far. I don't know if I agree with today's theory or not. I don't even know if I like today's theory or not. Scratch that, I do know.
I don't
hate
know.
it and what
Also,
it means for the
let's see.
franchise. But regardless of whether you agree or disagree, love it or hate it, I am
That's so
asking
cute,
you
tiny
to keep an
face.
open mind about it, because this one feels important. And the implications of it, if true, would certainly result in the biggest shakeup for the series since the conclusion of FNAF 6. Today, I'm asking you to take everything that you thought you knew about FNAF 1, 2, 3, and 4. Possessed animatronics, the
I only
crying
know
child, the missing
everything
children's
about
incident,
that.
the
I don't know
entire
everything. I
existence of
remember
Golden
some
Freddy.
such
Take
because
all
of you,
that
so
and
yeah.
burn it to the ground.
Yeah, I
Maybe
just
not
know
burn
what
it.
you
You've
told
seen
me.
that tends not
So
to work.
yeah.
Take it all and put it through a paper shredder or something, will ya? Because none of it matters. None of it. It's all wrong. Or maybe it isn't. But before I explain why, I have to tell you that brand new
I
Holiday
guess.
Theory Wear is available right now. And while I might not be the hugest fan of the implications of today's theory, I am
not
the
Florey
hugest
Spain, I
fan
guess.
of the merch that we've got lined up for you.
Okay,
Starting off
let's
with
see
the
what it
newest
is.
addition to my
Ooh, I like
rainbow
the
jackets,
jacket.
turquoise. You
That's-
guys know at
that
this
one
point
is
that I love me
cool.
some bright, colorful jackets, right?
yellow
we also
one
know
is
that a couple
cool
years
too.
ago I partnered with Creator Inc. to make my own ideal jacket. Vegan leather, zips on the pockets to keep them secure, a special interior pocket that's a little bit larger to fit a tablet or a Nintendo Switch, and overall
Bro,
a
but
stylish,
who would bring that
well-fitting,
outside?
brightly colored jacket. And I gotta say, we hit it out of
Sorry.
the park. It is indeed my favorite jacket. The
It's so
only
cute.
thing that I don't like about it is that it's only one color, and I want to be able to wear any color I want at any
Ooh,
time I
RGB
want.
jacket.
So this time we remade the jacket.
I know,
in
that
a
one is
beautiful,
good. I
vibrant
like that
turquoise.
color.
It's a color that I always wanted in jacket form, but could never find in a store. So you know what? We just went out and chose it ourselves. So add this one to your your collection, my friends. Gotta catch 'em all. Map
Oh my god, Pokemon Color, true lol.
Or, you know, maybe you prefer your jackets with a bit more lore. Well, if you need a jacket
maybe, I don't know.
I love puzzle solving, get ready. We've got the next installment of our puzzle jacket line as well. The Quest Jacket
space.
Volume 3.
I like space.
Not just a jacket, it's an experience. Basically, this thing is an escape room that you can wear. Complete the puzzle that's
Escape
built into
room
the
you
various
can
parts
wear.
of this jacket, and you win yourself a special prize. The Quest Jacket is something that was created by us. We are the only people crazy enough to make a wearable item that is also a series of puzzles and lore. In fact, we reached out to a couple of factories and they outright told us, no, we will not make this jacket for you because we are asking them to print things in places where you don't normally print. It is just very complicated to make these jackets. There's a reason we're the only people to do them, and I think you're gonna have a blast with this one because there's
imagine they have their own factory
and a much more fashionable design, making this one more wearable than Quest number 1. So, are you ready to uncover the mystery and save the galaxy? Good luck, Space Ace. Believe it or not, though, we also have things that aren't jackets, like our 4-channel candle set. Ever wonder what the channels smell like? Probably haven't because, well, why would you? But dear
they look
viewer,
like cups, by the way, but okay.
A thing with these candles themed around each of our 4 channels. We've carefully constructed 4 signature scents that we think really help encapsulate each of the channels perfectly. Screen Fiend, which smells like red plum and cinnamon, witty banter with hints of jasmine and mint.
I don't know what that smells like.
Very familiar with that one, but it smells of beautiful sandalwood and
I
my
don't know
personal
what
favorite,
those smells
fresh
are.
lore, giving it the clean aroma of linen. These candles
I don't
are made
know
of soy,
what that smells like, but okay.
Clean, and they also last for up to 40 hours.
Jeez.
So if your gamer cave is starting to smell a bit too much like Doritos and Mountain Dew, these candles may just be your perfect get. Or if you want another way to set some mood lighting, check out our Game Theory Plasma.
I like that.
That's harnessed the power of lightning and mixed in some game theory to turn it into our signature green. When you touch it,
that one is cool. I like it.
Superpowered mad scientist, and this is a big boy. Lots of the online plasma orbs tend to be small, but nope, we went with the jumbo size here, so you are harnessing a lot of lightning on your desk. Anyway, these are just a few of the items that we got going on. There's an awesome blanket, lounge pants, a t-shirt, hoodie. There's
some stuff are really good. Yeah, some stuff are cool, bro. Look at this.
I said yes to too many merch ideas, but gotta be honest with you, I love them all so much. Oh,
bro,
also,
I like
there's
them
some
too.
Film Theory merch in there too. It's kind of cool, I guess. But all of it is waiting for you down in the description below, and you better do it quick before I decide to retcon it all out of existence.
Hey, it's okay, I like it, but I'm not gonna buy it. Manzanita Gamer Juice when? When do you want that? We can plan that. You have to make a list of what stuff we wanna do for our merch store, bro.
By introducing a new villain.
You have to make a list. You don't want Gamer Juice, okay? I will do Gamer Juice. Manzanita merch. It's cookies only. I'm joking. It's gonna be more stuff, but calm down, please. Thank you. I still have to get everything ready.
From the old story of a serial killer in a haunted pizzeria to the new stories it had yet to tell about the killer living on through technology. But buried in the game were some lines that made everyone stop and go, huh? Right at the top, we got this moment.
We know that Fazbear Entertainment has developed
Manzanita cookies kinda perfect. Yeah, would they be like shaped like Cutie Rexy friends? And Chibi, Manzanita and Chibi a creator, what do you think? It would be cool, right?
With the lunatic shown on screen being, of course, a picture of Scott Cawthon himself.
And then when it's Christmas version. When it's Valentine's version and stuff like that.
To double down. In one of the game's hidden lore tapes, we learned
more
about
this
lunatic spreading lies about the Fazbear restaurants.
They lied to all of us.
One day we'll have that, but we have to be calm. We have to be patient. We'll be doing that, but be patient, please. Thank you.
Fazbear Entertainment hired the game developer. Those indie games were designed to conceal and make light of what happened.
Plushies too and stuff like that, yeah. Plushies, of course, there's gonna be.
Actively throwing into question everything we thought we knew about the franchise's lore. At the time, I went on the record to say this: if FNAF VR's tapes are to be believed, pretty much everything we know could all be thrown out as complete fabrications. The long story short here is that
imagine everything is fake, bro.
Scott part of the Fazbear cover-up is the
well, sus fight. I like that. Freddy Fazbear was like with the what that face like.
That's largely where the community left it. It was a bit of a weird call for the series to disregard everything that had come before, but honestly, it would have been fine. Here's the old original story arc with the first 6 games, and here's the new one moving forward. 2 separate story arcs told within the same universe. Fine. Until Security Breach came out. Suddenly, Springtrap was a key player again, and we were exploring the burned remains of the FNAF FNAF 6 location.
Sometimes I think that this game doesn't have actually a good lore. Like, the lore is good, but what I'm trying to say is it gets to a point of it's just confusion, I guess. Music, man, I guess, lol.
Status quo for the past year, but then
like, it's just a mess, but it's not doesn't mean it's not good. I think it's interesting.
I said the B word.
And good, but it's just, for me, I can't understand much stuff because there's new stuff that contradicts other stuff, you know? It's got, you know, but doesn't mean it's bad, you know? It happens.
The story of a rogue indie developer hired by Fazbear Entertainment to create a series of games covering up the company's shady past. And if there was any lingering doubt as to how this story fit into the game, the title was none other than Help Wanted. I'm about to summarize what exactly happens in the story, but the TLDR of it is exactly what we predicted back in 2019.
What is TLDR?
That everything you thought you knew about the franchise is dead. Just not exactly in the way that we thought. And it suddenly changes everything about how we should be
might be a way to have people join in Epic Games using Parsec.
We follow a character named Steve.
What is Parsec?
Stuck in a dead-end job while working on a, quote, fetch quest-based game featuring cartoony chipmunks. Now, what could that be a reference to, Scott? Just like we hear about in FNAF VR, Steve is contacted by Fazbear Entertainment to create a series of games in order to help rebrand
which is basically a program that works like Simcashco, but for anything.
Take no for an answer. Fazbear then sets up an elaborate plot
they should add that.
Steve into a date with the woman of his dreams. During the date, he passes out, only to wake up and find that suddenly he's married to the woman and suffering from severe memory loss. This happens a few more times, waking up to discover that he now has children, or that the house he lives in is being foreclosed. Suddenly, in desperate need of money, he contacts Fazbear Entertainment and starts making games for him. 4 games, to be specific. All the while, a constant ringing is happening in his ears. Bit by bit, he becomes more sleep-deprived and paranoid, which then feeds into his games. At night, he's haunted by night terrors, horrific monsters that keep popping out of the walls, which only pushes him to work harder. And throughout it all, the ringing continues to build, rotting his brain. Eventually, Steve discovers what's going on. The high-pitched sound that he keeps hearing has been creating illusions used to gaslight him. His house, just a series of blank rooms. The night terrors, amusement park jump scares coming out of the walls. His beautiful family, robots with plastic faces and wheels. Their physical description actually sounds a lot like the staff bots. Steve is then given a choice of going back to the miserable real world or returning to the happiness that he felt inside the illusion. He chooses the illusion, giving his robot wife a hug, who then stabs him to death. Oh, also there's a DJ on the radio called DJ
Really?
Dan.
Oh my god.
Music
man. Bro, that's depressing. The guy. Oh my god, I want to the illusion. Bro, you get that cheese.
From the Pizzaplex, considering the place isn't mentioned once. But more than anything else, it's a story that confirms some of our greatest fears about the franchise. First and foremost, illusion discs are now officially a thing in the games. If you don't know what illusion discs are, then good for you. You clearly avoided reading the novel.
That's on Sister Location or something.
High-pitched noises to trick the human mind into creating intensely real illusions of things that aren't really there. A robot appears exactly like a human. A pizzeria is more decorated than it actually is. Characters turn practically invisible on camera. These are all ways that they've been used in the books, but up until this point, we've never had a reason to believe that they were in the game universe. The only time that I've suspected that they might be a thing in the games is this scene from Sister Location.
Yeah, Sister Location.
A random flashing disc from Funtime Freddy's chest. It was just speculation at the time, but now, going back, listen to that scene.
The chest cavity should now be open. Remove the power module from the chest cavity. Great work.
You hear it? The buzzing? That humming is only present in scenes where we're directly interacting with an animatronic in close proximity.
That's kinda weird, but okay. The sound is weird for my ears, but I'm fine, don't you worry.
Just saying, there might have been more evidence to suggest that these things were actually in the games earlier than we thought. But hindsight's 2020. With this new story, we know it's valid.
So everything is an illusion then.
Huge implications for things that we see throughout Security Breach. Like when we hear high-pitched ringing and have distorted vision anytime Vanny runs past us.
Ooh.
Why Glamrock Freddy apparently can't see Vanny until he gets Roxy's eyes. It's all much more likely now because she's using illusion discs. It may also play the mystery of who Patient 46 is.
But how was that made to work? Like, it's magic? Kinda weird.
Footage that recorded you in the Pizzaplex. That's you, isn't it? I know this image is distorted, but I think it looks like you. You're talking to someone. or something. They almost look like rabbit ears.
One of the consistent features of the
okay.
illusion discs is that they distort or blur any images that appear on camera. We see this all throughout the fourth
Slay, I
closet, so
guess.
the fact that the still image and the distortion are directly being called out here in the CDs indicate that Patient 46 may also be hiding behind an illusion disc. Who knows? If my guess was
it's
right,
not real.
Gregory is meant to be Patient 46. That could be why he's appearing all blurry here in the camera shots from the DLC poster. Admittedly, that opens up its own can of worms and contradictions that would merit their own discussion. Like, why would he be clearing all these other pictures? I'm just tossing it out as something for us to chew on.
Yeah, let's
Much
be
more
calm
importantly,
down.
though, the
Let's calm down and
story
just
confirms
go
that
with the
FNAF
flow
1,
of these
3, and 4
video, I
are
guess.
canonically video games within Freddy's fictional universe. They were created by a hired gun. A hired gun who, in the story, is confirmed to not be familiar with the events that happened at Freddy's. Quote from the story: "It took a few seconds for the name Fazbear to ring a bell, but then Steve remembered the kids' pizza places that once had been wildly popular, but had suffered a downfall after a variety of criminal allegations. There had been talk of murders, though Steve didn't remember how many. There was weirder stuff too, stories about paranormal events and that kind of nonsense. Steve doesn't actually know the stories and events that took place. He doesn't remember how many kids died. He doesn't believe in paranormal activity. He is an unreliable narrator, which therefore puts everything in those first 4 games into question. He knew rumors of paranormal activity, so he created possessed animatronics. He knew about murders, so he put in minigames.
Wasn't that gonna damage the company?
As for facts, though, he cannot be trusted. And the story tries to make it crystal clear that FNAF 4 was largely of his own creation, born out of the torture that Fazbear was subjecting him to. As his hallucinations get more nightmarish, Steve starts seeing monsters literally appear out of the walls. One of them is described as follows, quote, "It was the head of something. It was small but bulbous and vain. Its large eyes almond-shaped with cat-like pupils. It lunged forward from the hole in the wall.
I chat that it's
jaws
scary.
to reveal a mouthful of sharp-looking teeth. Its pointed tongue darted out like a snake's when it sniffed the air." This moment isn't just to show us Steve's torture, it's to show us the influence that it has on the games that he's making. Look at the description. Does it remind you of anything? A character with cat-like eyes, a long pointed tongue, sharp teeth, who likes to pop out unexpectedly? It's Nightmare Foxy from FNAF 4.
That isn't cat-like eyes, bro.
Leading up into the game, especially
those are eyes, just
tongue. Who else pops out from the closet, from under the bed, from behind a TV in that game? Foxy. The book is spelling out for us why that game is so different, why it's no longer a game about Fazbear
look
Pizzeria.
like
The torture
cat
became
eyes.
so much that the story had shifted from being a Fazbear story to being a Steve story. 4 games, 1 story. It's the clue that Scott gave us a long time ago during a live stream after the release of FNAF 4. At first, I suspected the line was all about dream theory, that all of it was happening in the nightmares of a child, and I think that one was right. Then it shifted to the 4 games being about one family, the Aftons, as their kids grappled with the sins of their father, and I think that was also right. But now it's changed once again. It's now 4 games about one new story, Steve's story, the story of a game designer that was being
then
gaslit
what
by
do we do with the Aftons?
You know,
What?
I gotta hand it to Scott.
Bro,
It's
this
actually
is so
impressive
weird.
how many times he's
Don't
made
we
to make
forget
that single
everything
phrase
else?
describe the same set of 4 games. It also means that Scott gets to have his cake and eat it too. He gets to make those first 4 games the equivalent of dream theory without it actually being a dream. Oh, was the puppet referred to as a he in FNAF 2? Steve didn't know. Were there 5 victims? 10? 15 in that first set of pizzerias? Don't know. Steve's just making his best guess. But most importantly of all, it means that anything that doesn't physically appear in or after Sister Location and beyond is suddenly cast into doubt. And when you think about it, that includes some major parts of the lore. For instance, we know that Michael Afton is in fact a security guard for Fazbear Entertainment at some point thanks to the security logbook. Plus, with Sister
the
Location
Aftons are not real, then everything is a lie?
dying in a fire. Sister Location also proves the existence of Elizabeth Afton and how she got scooped by
Okay,
Dave.
they're
But
real,
the
I
third
guess.
Afton kid, Crying Child, he's never been mentioned in any other game other than FNAF 4. I've made theories suggesting that he's the other spirit communicating with Cassidy in the survival logbook, but you know, that's just speculation because I assume that he existed. In FNAF 6's Midnight Motorist, there's reason to believe that he's the one who broke out of the house, considering that Mike in the chair says he's had a hard night, but again, that is pretty weak evidence. Honestly, the closest we get to having physical evidence of his existence is in Security Breach's post-it room, where there's a dinner scene made up of 5 staff bots that appear to be simulating the Afton family, and one of those 5 is missing its head, which we've assumed represents the Crying Child getting chomped. But all of that evidence only stands because the Crying Child was thought to exist thanks to the first 4 games. Maybe that's why we've never actually gotten a name for him, because he was never meant to exist in the first place, and so Scott purposefully hid the name in order to allow the 5th Afton child's identity to remain anonymous. Ready for a big plot twist that turns out that he has another child, maybe a daughter, maybe called
It's my dog.
It's speculative as all heck, I'm just throwing it it out there as a consideration. Henry and Charlie are definitely in this universe. We see Charlie's death and possession of the puppet thanks to the minigames in FNAF 6, so that's all confirmed. But the missing children's incident where 5 kids were murdered at the FNAF 1 location? Unclear. It's likely that it happened, considering that in FNAF 6's Lorekeeper ending, we see 5 gravestones with 1 on a hill, 5 missing
and
children,
then it's a 6th one there.
Charlie, the 6th
Rex is my dog.
It's the same thing with Princess Quest. To move forward in the Princess Quest minigame, you have to light 6 gravestones. So it seems like those 5 murders happened, but
don't worry, it's fine, I guess. It was just
that we see appearing throughout
you just wanted to lay on the sofa, I guess.
That the pizzeria is getting closed down in the tapes. Even less clear. FNAF VR's main ending proves that William Afton is still the main killer in this universe, and that he definitely stuffed kids into the animatronics. However, whether those kids go on to possess the animatronics is up for debate. Without the first 4 games being officially canon, we don't really have any evidence for their possession. But perhaps the biggest ripple effect of them all, this new understanding of the canonicity heavily suggests that
Golden Freddy doesn't exist.
Never have existed. That's right, my favorite clickbait yellow boy may not actually be a thing in this franchise at all. Consider this, Golden Freddy, while seemingly this super important piece of the lore to the franchise, hasn't shown up in a major way in any recent titles. He's only ever shown up in titles with questionable canonicity, like FNAF World, which is definitely not canon, Custom Night, which is Afton's personal hell, and FNAF AR, which isn't really canon. And if you think it is, then both Shamrock Freddy and Chocolate Bonnie are canon. And I refuse to believe that could possibly be true. But in the main games, nothing. In Sister Location, his name is used in a Custom Night challenge. In FNAF 6, completely absent. And in Security Breach, sure, there's a golden Glamrock Freddy that you can collect, but there's a golden toy of every character that you can collect. In fact, I think Security Breach was outright trying to tell us that Golden Freddy has never been a thing. Of the
it's an illusion now, I guess.
You can find throughout the game, plushies, figurines, keychains, sweaters, 4 of them actually seemed important. 3 posters from Fredbear's Family Diner, and an even older one from Fredbear's Singin' Show. The Singin' Show is, I don't know, man, it makes it look like the next game is going to be a crossover with Bendy and the Ink Machine. But the Fredbear's Family Diner ones are the ones
because theory FNAF doesn't exist. We all incinerated it. Bro, don't you tell me, that's like basically those theories about coma. You know, like everything is on coma. You know those theories.
We've been under the impression
everything is a dream. Everything.
Family Diner,
My God.
Bonnie and Golden Freddy. In FNAF 3, we see a Golden Bonnie and Golden Freddy performing together on stage. Similarly, in FNAF 4, we see Golden Bonnie and Golden Freddy again. It was always those 2 together, with other characters like Foxy and Chica not showing up until later. So why then in Security Breach would they show us regular Freddy as the one on the Fredbear posters, unless he is Fredbear? It's everything that we've been talking about today. Our evidence for Golden Freddy is all found.
He's just the same color, don't you tell me?
Or just made by a guy whose brain was slowly turning to mush. But when you actually stop and look for the physical evidence of who Fredbear was in the games that are still considered to be canon, all we get is a brown bear.
That's so cute,
Freddy
so
was
adorable.
Never real. He never existed. I know, it seems wild, but it actually helps answer a lot of questions that we've had about Golden Freddy throughout this franchise. First off, he's wildly inconsistent
what can I say?
In both FNAF 1 and 2, he appears gold with a black hat and bow tie. But in the FNAF 2 minigame showing Charlie being killed outside Fredbear's Family Diner, the Freddy we play as is brown with a black hat, more similar to the Fredbear that we see in the posters for Security Breach. In the FNAF 3 minigame that apparently shows us Fredbear's Family Diner, he goes back to being gold with a black hat. But then in FNAF 4's minigame, he's shown to be gold with a purple hat and bow tie.
So much inconsistency or something like that.
Which could make sense if these are games being made by a guy who's under extreme duress. If Golden Freddy isn't around, then who could have done the bite of 83? Well, it could be that that never happened. We've never seen a gravestone for Crying Child after all.
Okay, never happened. Never happened.
Well, again, we still don't have any proof that the original missing children actually possessed any animatronics. All their souls may have just moved on or been immediately converted into remnants. Cassidy only really appears in Ultimate Custom Night, so either their spirit is attached to Afton's like Andrew's is in the Fazbear Fright series, or it's just William torturing himself over the memory of this one child that he murdered in cold blood. Long story short, I still haven't fully worked out the ramifications of all this, and I'd love your help working through it, because this revelation about the first 4 games being games demands a whole new way of looking at
games
the
being
ripple
games.
effects of this revelation are huge, and it casts even more doubt into stuff that we
it's so confusing now.
The games. I mean, with all the new books and games and revelations that we've had since the release of Security Breach, I've been meaning to do a state of the lore video for a while, just to make sure that we're all operating on the same page of what is true and what isn't true. Because at this point, it's hard for even me to keep track of what we've proved.
FNAF lore expert, oh my god.
Like today,
probably
sort of
one day that will be a real degree or something. Look at this.
Weeks, which means that I'm back to researching FNAF from square one. And I thought we were done with the scary season. But hey, at least while I'm pulling my hair out, I can look good doing it thanks to my new game theory merch.
Slay, that merch is actually slay. I like the jacket, that leather jacket, and the
hoodie, one of the other jackets,
the balls. Yeah, that one is cool.
Hoodies, one of the other jackets.
That one is cool.
Got a lot of jackets and hoodies right now. Anyway, grab
a creator jacket, I guess.
Those items before they're all gone.
Because a creator is blue.
I gotta go hide under my new game theory blanket. Just the thought
blankets.
Of
blankets are so good. They're so comfy.
Sweats. I guess I'll see you all next week, unless I decide to stay under here forever. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. And hey, if you want to go back to a time when we thought we knew the ins and outs of this franchise, click here to watch our previous timeline on the series. Ah, yes, the days before Phasgoo. Or if you're in the mood for game lore that hasn't been
Phasgoo, what is still that? I don't know.
Where I predict the story of Poppy Playtime Chapter 3. And with that, as always, I'll see you next week.
Okay, next one.
You're watching a toothbrush play Billie Eilish. But
Mike. Oh, look at those tiny stuff in the shelves. So cute.
You're not gonna like this
one,
sorry. But I think we're right.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that started so many flame wars.
My God.
We were a pizzaplex. So right now I'm in the middle of re-examining every piece of FNAF lore the series has ever produced in order to construct a definitive timeline for the series.
Sorry. Let's wait till the ads are over. Let me just relax. Oh, sorry. Okay, let's wait till the ads are over. It's like, I think, some seconds and we'll be back. Okay, sorry, it's the ad is still running. Wait. I'm sorry for this. Okay, it's done. Let's go.
As definitive as possible for the series, considering, you know, it's FNAF. That means that me and Tom and head editor Dan are combing over every misleading teaser, every line of hidden website source code, every page of the novels and their accompanying graphic novels, and every questionable skin from FNAF AR from Big Chungus Springtrap to Statue of Liberty. Nothing says America quite like rebranding a national monument with a giant total murder chicken chilling for pizza and our forefathers' weapons. Anyway, since this is an absolutely massive quest, we broke the timeline down into 3 core chunks. Foundation of Freddy's, the Afton era, and post-Purple Guy. Basically everything that happens post-Springtrap getting torched in FNAF 6. And while that timeline theory is still in the works, we've already made some discoveries. Some big, and some small. And it's one of the bigger ones that brings us here today. You see, as we were rewatching all the cutscenes from FNAF 6, we heard this line from the completion ending of the game.
Thank you for your participation. There is no need for you to return to work next week, as Fazbear Entertainment is no longer a corporate entity.
Oh sure, everyone remembers the whole don't keep the devil waiting bit during that ending, but all of us tend to forget what comes after the fire. An acknowledgement that Fazbear Entertainment is no longer a corporate entity.
What does that mean?
When Henry dies in that fire, the game makes it clear that the company dies with him. But that doesn't make any sense knowing what we know now. In FNAF VR, AR, and Security Breach, Fazbear Entertainment is alive and still very much
Someone
running.
bought
In fact,
the company or something.
Stronger than ever, building a a giant mega pizzaplex that towers over anything the company's ever done before. So what gives? A dissolved company
Someone
can't
bought
be
it,
going around
bro.
making new games, and they certainly aren't building new 80s-inspired animatronics, are they? All of it seems to imply that someone restarted the company between FNAF 6 and FNAF VR. And it was that single, simple observation, my friends, that led us down a rabbit hole I believe may have solved another core part of Security Breach's endlessly frustrating story. First, we wanted to prove to ourselves that this corporate restart was a real thing. Throughout the core gameplay of FNAF 6, if you buy and display animatronics with a high liability rating, you get a chance to experience a fun little mechanic known as being sued. You go through these lawsuits and decide whether to pay a lawyer to fight for you or just pay the listed amount to settle the case. It's a fun, quirky gameplay mechanic that fits with the humor of the franchise. However, there's a detail within these lawsuits that's important. If you take a look at the names at the top of each lawsuit, you'll see that the defendant is listed as Fazbear Entertainment, Inc. Those last three letters are important. That I and C there means that Fazbear is an incorporated company.
Okay, but what does that mean? I don't know.
As shareholders, people that own stocks within the company. There are also two different types of corporations, S Corps, which tend to be smaller, and C Corps, which tend to be bigger. Trust me, you don't really want to know any of that, nor do you need to know any of it for this theory. I just bring it up because it's knowledge that Steph and I have accumulated over the last decade of doing this work as business owners, and I just wanted it to be validated at some point in my life. Anyway, useless business information aside, as we hear at the end of FNAF 6, Fazbear Entertainment, Inc. has been dissolved.
Fazbear Entertainment is no longer a corporate entity.
We can assume that Henry, in his final act before sacrificing his life, dissolved any and all ownership remaining in the company so it would die with him, which is why it's so weird that suddenly it's back. And not just back, but back in a completely
I think someone bought it, bro.
In Security Breach, if you check out the Balloon Boy arcade cabinet above the daycare, on the title screen you'll find that the copyright is now owned by a brand new company,
LLC,
Fazbear Entertainment, LLC. Again, those last three letters there are important. They stand for Limited Liability Company. Basically, it means that the owners of the business aren't shareholders, but rather one or a small group of individuals that can't be held responsible for the debts of the business. For instance, if the Fazbear business took out a small loan of $1 million but couldn't get it back, the banks couldn't then approach Henry or William's personal money demanding
LLC,
LLC members also aren't usually responsible for the co-owner's negligence or wrongdoing. Which again, knowing the history of
so
this
they
company,
can get as much money as they want.
Most importantly of all, though, LLCs tend to be smaller, held by one or a few individuals rather than a collection of shareholders. And this actually explains a lot. If you go for the Afton ending of Security Breach, you go down the elevator only to discover the FNAF 6 pizzeria underneath the whole thing. Try explaining that decision to your shareholders. We're just gonna build our new mall on top of that old burnt down pizzeria. That'll rake in the big bucks. How about the fact that we get messages on the Faz Watch from building contractors concerned about building a giant mall over the equivalent of a sinkhole? Again, this doesn't feel like something you'd be able to do if the company had shareholders, but if the business is owned by a single individual, they could essentially do whatever they wanted. They don't have to answer to anyone. In short, there is strong evidence to suggest that someone has restarted the
but who is the owner then?
This new corporate entity. But who would do that? Why
you can collect as much money if you want, and you don't even need to give it back.
I wasn't the only one.
Wanna know how? Yes, please. That looks like stealing. Sinkhole is giant hole that opens up. Okay, thank you, Shiny Pikachu. I didn't know that. Thank you so much.
Scott Cawthon, and only Scott Cawthon. This thing is robust. It contains every
I'm not gonna do that, thank you.
Every game mechanic, a summary of every Fazbear flight, and a description for practically every one of the nearly 150 characters introduced into the franchise.
I understand. If you die, you don't need to give it back. Okay. Okay, I understand. I understand now.
Well, it's probably going to be worth a look. And wouldn't you know it, but in the FNAF AR description of the Glitch Trap virus, we get this quote. The cease work order from the Fazbear Entertainment Office of Legal Affairs seems to indicate that the company at some point becomes aware of the problem and tries to stop it. That leaves one question. Just who is running the company?
Yeah, who is running the company?
I knew that I was onto something. The fact that the ultimate guide felt
I think hole is a depression or hole in the ground caused by the collapse of the surface layer.
The clues
My God.
for us. It was now time for
Thank
us
you
to
for
put
telling
all that
me.
together. So let's
Well, you can
figure
live
out
a
who's
life
running
so
the
happy
show
in
over at the new
Dominican.
improved Fazbear Entertainment LLC, shall we? Well, let's consider what exactly that person is
bro,
doing. First and foremost, they're building a brand new location
there are
over
more
the remains
stuff
of the
more
old
important
FNAF
than
6
money,
location.
so yeah.
That right there is a huge red flag. Why not just bulldoze the whole thing and build a new one? Unless, of course, they know what's down there.
Want to see an image? If you wanna send on Discord, I will watch it after the stream, don't worry.
New location on top of his literal gravesite. The head of this new Fazbear Entertainment LLC
gravesite,
wants
don't you?
access to him. And as
Bro,
we see
they
at the end of the game,
just
it
built
seems like their
something
goal is to
above a
bring him
grave.
back
That's
to his
kinda
former
bad.
glory. But just having access to Afton's body isn't enough. This person wants more. We know that the head of Fazbear Entertainment LLC has been actively taking an interest in Vanessa becoming head of security, despite her having no qualifications for the position. We know this based on in-game messages. Quote, interview notes. As requested, here are my notes on today's Chief Security Officer interview. While Vanessa seemed eager and bright, she doesn't appear to have any relevant background experience. I realize the recommendation came from the top, but we need someone who's run security for a facility of this scale. I do
Bro,
not
the guy that owns the company now, it's just doing just random choices, I guess.
But note that it's marked for deletion. Someone wanted to hide the poor interview performance. Someone at the top. In yet another email, we see this. Quote again, new hire summary, head security guard, no prior qualifications, internal reference, name withheld. The person putting Vanessa forward for the job is trying to stay anonymous. But hold on, why would someone want to hire Vanessa despite her limited experience? Well, the only really special thing about her is that she's possessed by
do they know that?
So if someone's trying to bring Afton back, preserving his body underneath the Pizzaplex, it makes sense to get someone into the Pizzaplex who houses the only other part of Afton that remains, his consciousness in the form of
okay, so that person knows that.
Who would possibly want to bring a serial killer back to life? I mean, think about what this person has done.
Random person, I guess.
Entire company. They've hired third parties to scan old circuit boards. They've rebranded the franchise, built a mall, and then doctored emails to hire someone, all in an effort to resurrect
Maybe it's
Afton. Who would do that? Who would go to that level of extreme? Can't
the
be Vanessa,
father or the mother? I don't know.
Can't be Michael. He's always trying to get rid of Afton. Can't be Henry. He dissolved the company in the first place. Can't be Gregory because he's trying to destroy the animatronics. But there is someone it can be.
I will make you proud, Daddy.
Oh my god, no way, baby.
To bring Afton back to life. The one person
baby is now a CEO, bro. That's going up on life, bro.
That's right, ladies
baby
and gentlemen. I
CEO.
submit to you that Elizabeth Afton is the one in control of the new Fazbear Entertainment
so cute.
LLC.
Oh my god.
I guess you could call her the boss baby.
Boss baby, bro. Let's go.
Your collective groans, frustrations, and general vitriol down in the comments.
I
While you're
guess.
doing that, let me quickly remind you that right above
weird,
that fiery
but I guess it
section is our
goes.
merch
It's
shelf.
funny.
It's your last chance to pre-order our new ARG jacket, the puzzle that you wear. Once that thing's gone, it is gone forever. So get your orders in this weekend. But you know what? If you don't want the hassle of solving your clothes and you just want to be snugly and warm this holiday
so
season, might I suggest some of our other holiday
curiously,
items that
there
we
is
have in
also
stock right
shouts you
now,
in Team
including
Fortress
the
3.
Dreamweave
No,
blanket and the
why?
Pixel Player lounge pant and hoodie.
It's
They're
another
snuggly,
boss,
they're
baby.
warm, but they make it look like you just stepped out of an 8-bit minigame. Place your orders now so that way you get them in time for Christmas. All right, you done venting in the comments? Told you this one would make you mad. Let's see what you wrote. And yes, I'm doing this from the past.
Do they even make good choices for the company?
Out in the blob. She died
Like,
in FNAF 6. Yep, all of
it's
those
so
are
random.
perfectly valid. I know it sounds insane. Believe me. No one recognizes that more than me. But I ask you, when has any character that's meant to be dead in this franchise ever stayed dead? Let's just look at the facts, shall we? Our second ever theory on this game drew attention to all the similarities between Elizabeth Afton and Vanessa. They both like flowers.
She's
they both
wild
have
and
an abusive
crazy.
and manipulative father named William
What?
A. And of
Baby.
course, there's the blonde hair and green eyes.
Yeah,
However, we've never been
maybe
able to
yes,
actually
I don't
figure out
know.
how these two characters are connected beyond them just being similar. Could it just be another instance of this franchise doing what I like to call pulling a Jeremy? That's using the same detail multiple times just to confuse us. But you see, there's a bit more that's
Olivia,
suspicious
man.
about Vanessa. There's one thing that me
From
and
Team
every
Fortress
other
2.
Fear Stalker has been scared to tackle in this game.
Okay.
This security breaches
Why though?
fire escape ending. In it,
Why?
Ramrock Freddy yeets Vanny off the top of a burning pizzaplex, sending both of them to their death. Gregory pulls off the Vanny mask to reveal that it was Vanessa the whole time.
Depression.
And surprised literally
She looks
no
so
one.
sad.
Except after the credits, we pan up to the roof to see security guard Vanessa looking down as the building burns around her. Excuse me, what? Two Vanessas? Everyone just kind of collectively hand waved this away. It must be a hallucination. Maybe it's her spirit still trapped in the pizzaplex. Or maybe, just maybe, Vanny and Vanessa have always been two separate individuals. Two twin sisters.
Bro, what?
In Security Breach Fury's Rage, we get VR sisters. That's one of the bosses in Fury's Rage. And I think it could be possible that one of the sisters, maybe Vanessa, went to go save her other sister after being taken over by Glitch Trap.
Recently, a new theorist
No
has
way.
entered the ring with some pretty
That's so
interesting
weird.
things to say about security breach. John from the YouTube channel FNAF. And while I was busy coining
FNAF.
the catchphrase Music
Zik
Man, he was
Man.
busy in his corner preaching the gospel of the VR sisters. Remember that? Of
Ooh,
course you don't, right, would
slay.
you? So let me refresh your
Those
memory.
look
In case you've
slay.
forgotten, security breach got delayed a lot. I mean, a lot. And at one point, Scott Cawthon, worried that the fan base would be upset about the repeated delays, decided to release a short little meme game to tide us all over. A beat-em-up title called Fury's Rage.
That game looks slay too.
Find out that I have to delay the game again? They're gonna kill me. What am I gonna do? I know. I'll make a game for them.
4 straightforward levels with a secret boss at the end, punching through waves of the franchise's most forgettable enemies. Freddy Frostbear, Clown,
Freddy
Springtrap,
Frostbear.
Radioactive Foxy, El-Chip. And the rest of the enemies are just
El-Chip.
variations of Chica, the Puppet, Mangle, Baby. As for the bosses, most of them are jokes. Sure, you've got Vanny, but there's also Mega Brow, which is just Brow Boy from FNAF World. There's
Ooh,
Soul
that is
Brawler, which is a
real?
reference to one of Scott's earlier
I guess,
characters,
lol.
Soul Dozer. And the secret final boss of the game, Dreamgeist, basically a giant troll about fan theories. And yet, in this game full of memes and tongue-in-cheek references, there's one set of characters that don't quite fit. The first level's boss, the VR sisters. They're the only truly original characters for this game. Literally everyone else you can point to and understand what the reference is. Now that is weird. Why would Scott put the time and effort into designing them, coming up with a name, and purposely putting them in there for us to look at if they weren't important in some way? With Vanessa being taken over by the Glitch Trap virus in FNAF VR, makes sense for this to be in relation to her in some way. She's a VR sister. And then
VR
her having a
sister.
twin sister would explain why there could be a second Vanessa at the top of a burning building during the ending. What is it that John's been saying lately in his theory vids?
Need more proof?
Maybe.
Yeah, I do. You probably do too. Luckily, I have it for you. Once you get to level 4 of Fury's Rage, you find yourself in some
Wasn't
sort of
this game not
surrounded by
canon?
conveyor belts and
Well,
magnets
guess it's
holding
now
up humanoid
canon.
robot torsos. In the end, you fight Vanny and the game ends. But wait, before you get to the boss battle, there's one very crucial detail in the level that everyone
Oh, there's
overlooked.
someone
An
there.
orange pod with a female figure sitting inside. I've seen enough sci-fi to know that that right there is a birthing pod, and the figure inside looks an awful lot like Baby from the Fourth Closet graphic novel. That's right, friendos, it's time once again for everyone's favorite segment. MatPat uses the lore of multiple FNAF books to explain parts of the game that make no sense. In the Fourth Closet,
I guess
Baby's
they make
origins
sense
take
now.
a
I don't know,
turn.
bro.
She's
That's a
actually
mess.
a
I'm like,
robot
this
built
is
by
a
Henry
mess.
to help replace his daughter Charlie after her death. You see, Henry creates a robot for each stage of his daughter's life: toddler, child, teenager, and finally adult. In his mind, this would allow her to grow up with everyone else around her. And this gave us our first confirmed instance of robot kids being a thing inside of the series. Robots that are capable of bleeding, eating, feeling cold. And here's the weirdest twist of them all. Baby is the final adult form of Charlie.
This is beyond
Good job.
mess.
This guy
Don't
has
you
some
tell
strong
me.
feelings about.
People hate
This
when I
is
talk about books, because
crazy.
books tell you the rough guidelines or rough rules of the universe. When you look at the books and there's this repeated thing of creators building robot kids, okay, well, apparently that's fair game. And then to take it one insane logical step further and say, not only are they building robotic versions of kids, but multiple versions of robotic kids at different ages, I would say you are insane. That's so stupid. It is a weird thing for them to do, and it challenges realism to such an absurd degree.
I guess FNAF isn't based on real life, though.
This person that they're interacting with and that bleeds, again, because they bleed in the books, that bleeds, no one is noticing that this person doesn't age, but is still also eating in order to survive, but is also like perfectly passable as a human in every other way, shape, and form. That's crazy.
Why
And
do
then
they
the
need to
books
eat,
later on,
bro?
And it's also Baby, who is a robot clown. And you're like, that's so stupid. I feel like no wonder people think that the theories that we produce are insane, because it is, but we're just telling you what the books say.
Welcome to the books, I guess. What's also interesting is that in the books, it's clear that previous versions of the robot humans don't have to stop working or die in order for newer, more grown-up models to activate. Both teenage Charlie and adult Charlie, aka Baby, are walking around, totally sentient with their own goals and motivations. One wanting to live a normal life, completely unaware that she's a robot, and the other looking to kill children in service of William Afton, bitter because she's a robot.
Why?
So, a lot like the relationship between a certain young security
serve after
Now, while we have
these.
no evidence to really support Charlie being rebuilt in the game lore like she was in the books, it does seem like Elizabeth may have multiple sisters of herself running around. In the words of John, who first proposed this one a year ago,
It could be very well possible that once Elizabeth died, William Afton not too soon after rebuilt her and built different ages of her throughout the years, just like we see in the books, in robot form. So that could be VR sisters, two different versions of the same person.
You know what? I think he's right. At the time, we didn't have the evidence, but now I think he was ahead of his time. Move over, Gregory. There's a new robot human in town, and her name is Elizabeth Afton, and Vanessa, and Vanny, and probably the head of Fazbear Entertainment LLC too. All iterations of the same person from different life stages. All Elizabeth Afton. Some aware of who they really are, and some not. And one of those versions is Ruined DLC Girl. In some of Security Breach's cut dialogue, there are laugh lines that are definitely feminine, but also some that clearly mix in a young girlish tone.
Yeah, they're different.
Hear that last one? Clearly, there's a childish girl laugh with a bit of a British accent mixed in there. Exactly
British.
like the voice of Elizabeth
British.
from
Sorry.
Sites like the Cutting Room Floor attribute these as cut Vanny lines, which makes sense considering that there aren't many human females in the game, but that laugh seems awfully young for Vanessa, or Vanny. And that's not all. Going back to Fury's Rage, notice the shoes on the VR sisters, specifically the cool purple sneakers. I could have sworn that they had matched the design of the blonde girl's light-up sneakers in the Ruined DLC poster. And upon closer inspection, yeah, it was close, but not strong enough of a match for me to call it out in a theory. Dead end, right? No. Notice the two colors on those shoes, red and purple. Very specific shades of red and purple. And what's the coloring of our two VR sisters? Red and purple. Seems that maybe, just maybe,
that makes sense.
Also part of the Elizabeth sisters. So that would actually give us our 4 closets. Baby, the original, young girl Elizabeth in the Ruined DLC, Vanessa, the 23-year-old security guard according to the FNAF AR emails, and Vanny, who, you know, just might be slightly older. Her being a robot would also explain how she survived a massive fall from the top of a pizzaplex without being totally disfigured. Personally, I think this would actually be a pretty cool idea, having all the versions of Elizabeth come together. This child, Vanny, Vanessa, maybe even the original baby would show up to complete the tribe of robot Elizabeths. But doesn't all of this disprove my initial theory? If Vanny is the adult version of Elizabeth, then doesn't that mean we're out of Elizabeths to run Fazbear Entertainment LLC?
Maybe not, they made more.
Of our closets. Well, not quite, because when you get to the very end of that final book, Charlie's love interest John stands by Charlie's grave after all the other known versions of her have died. He looks up and sees none other than yet another slightly older version of Charlie standing in front of him.
That's kind of creepy.
I just wrote this off initially as a cute ending, but in the wake of what we've been talking about this whole time, it reveals that there were never just 4 closets. There were never just 4 versions of Charlie. There were more. Potentially an infinite number of them, which makes sense. Can't have a 20-something-year-old Charlie looking 20 forever. She too would need to age up to look like a woman in her 30s, her 40s, her 50s. This idea is also shown in Fury's Rage. While the VR sisters are the first bosses, after you defeat them, they become regular enemies during the 3rd level. There are dozens of them that come out to attack you, one after the other after the other. New ones being built to achieve their purpose. Other bosses don't do that in the game. And in stage 4, those humanoid robot torsos hanging from the ceiling, they look a little bit more on the feminine side to me. Robot women being built by the boatload, ready to replace the ones that we destroy, be they VR sisters or security guards or murderous rabbits. And at the top of the food chain is an older, wiser, more vengeful version of Elizabeth pulling the strings.
Just Elizabeth's everywhere. How many videos are left? We'll see that. Wait.
I suppose you could say that that makes the Pizzaplex the true sister location.
Sister location.
Say all you want about Elizabeth's business practices, you gotta admit, she knows how to dress up a joint. I've always loved how the Pizzaplex looks. That
it looks amazing.
Just hits the nostalgia button hard for me. Fortunately, the metal posters from our sponsor Displate are here to scratch that very itch. Now I'm able to have all those bright neon colors fill in the office even when we're not focusing on FNAF's ridiculous lore. No joke, we actually had a bunch of our team come over to our home base in Raleigh recently and quickly realized that we hadn't decorated the place. So we headed on over to Displate to add some much needed style to our blank walls. Now our team isn't just walking into a blank office, they're heading into the gaming zone. And what's great about Displate posters is that they're super durable. They're made out of a high-quality metal, which means that they're not going to tear, they're not going to rip, they do not fade ever. I've gotten so many posters from Displate over the years, and despite a cross-country move and several redecorating sessions, these things look just as good and just as vibrant as they did when I first got them. And thanks to Displate's huge library of metal posters, whatever your preferred aesthetic is, you are bound to find a number of designs that really speak to who you are. Maybe you prefer some posters of flowers, or ice cream, or, you know, anything that doesn't constantly remind you of killer animatronics that destroyed your family. And then when you change your mind and you want to switch
Look
up your
at
aesthetic?
those.
Great. Displate's signature magnet hanging technology means there's no need to get out the tool belt to start punching more holes in your wall. You simply take off the old poster and put the new one up. It is as simple as swapping out a refrigerator magnet. If only following this franchise were so simple. Using Displate posters to decorate your space is easy, it's straightforward, they look great, and it saves you so much time, so there's always room for just one more game. And I haven't even told you the best news, friends. Displate is now offering you theorists their biggest discount ever. If you want to buy 1 to 2 posters, you're about to get yourself 35% off, which is pretty darn impressive. If you get 3 to 4 posters, that's 39% off your order. Normally, that's where our deal would end, but just like with FNAF, it keeps going. Because if you're like me and you just ordered 5 or more posters, well, my friends, you are going to get 44% off that order.
I guess that's good, I don't know.
Plenty of money left over in your pockets to rebuild any failing pizza chain restaurants that you want, or, you know, just afford a couple more extra presents this holiday season. Just head on down to the description and click the link there to get that special discount only available to you theorists, which will then be automatically applied to your cart at checkout. But you better be quick, it's only for a limited time, so jump on that deal like an animatronic jumping at your face. Once again, head on down to the
like 31 videos left.
And start building your dream space today. And as always, my friends, remember, it's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks.
Okay, let's go this one.
I've done it. I've solved FNAF. And the clue that brings it all together is this.
Don't you hate getting killed by obscure secondary characters?
My god.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, where today I'm just gonna get straight to the point. This episode was supposed to be our final timeline, but you know what? It's not quite there yet. I think we're gonna have it ready for next week. There's just a few wrinkles that we need to iron out about Elizabeth's death specifically, but otherwise, I feel really good about everything we've pieced together so far. That said, I wanted to put this episode up first regardless because it dives into a section of the timeline that's likely gonna be controversial, which is also a bad thing because it's the beginning of the timeline.
Okay.
Nothing like starting off on the wrong foot, you know? So in order to head that one off at the pass, let's just start talking about it now, shall we? Last episode, I brought up how the team and I have been tackling this whole timeline project. Basically, that we've broken down everything into 3 key sections. The foundation of Freddy's, the Afton era, and post-Purple Guy. In that episode, we dug hard into the last chunk, trying to figure out the recent history with things like FNAF VR and Security Breach. But even trickier is the first chunk, the foundation of Freddy's. You see, at this point, we all have a general basic knowledge of the games, right? Kids die, animatronics get possessed, all that good stuff. But here, that foundational stuff right at the beginning, that's the murkiest because honestly, there's not a lot that's immediately clear that we can go off of. Sure, there's a couple of lines from Phone Guy, maybe a sentence or 2 from the novels, but otherwise, it seems to be about it. How did William Afton and Henry Emily start working together? Were they rivals? Why did Afton start killing in the first place?
Yeah, because he's crazy, I guess.
Diner truly the first location? These are questions that seem important for us to answer, and honestly, if you're looking at where the timeline of Five Nights at Freddy's really begins, it's with those sorts of questions. The only problem is that the answers just might not exist anywhere in the canon yet. Or so I initially thought, which brings us to today's episode. I suspect that there may be a way to answer some, if not all of those questions using a mix of evidence from the games, the books, and real-life lore. In the process, I think it'll help us get a better understanding of William Afton's motives, while also outlining a rough sequence of events
that's simple.
And other things when I tackle the
maybe
whole timeline
maybe
of the
there's other stuff, but I just assuming it's crazy.
It hinges on one thing, a set of obscure secondary characters named the Mediocre Melodies. Orville Elephant, Ned Bear, Pig Patch, Happy Frog, and of course, Mr. Hippo.
Sometimes a story is just a story.
So
you try
philosophical.
to read into every little thing and find meaning in everything anyone says, you'll just drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, I know, Mr. Hippo, I get it. It's been leveled at me more times than I can count. But I think in this case, we actually didn't read into you enough. You see, when the Mediocres were first introduced in Pizzeria Simulator, we, as the community, largely dismissed them. And why wouldn't we? This is a game where you're pulling animatronics out of a dumpster. Trash and the gang are literally made of garbage. Why would we think that some random barnyard-themed characters would get our attention when there was already so much established lore inside of the thing? We beat the game, game, we solved the lore, we moved on. Then Ultimate Custom Night released, and there they were again. It was strange
Maybe
to
they're
see them
important.
fill so many slots, but I don't know, there was also Trash in the gang, and
Music Man.
Other random pulls from the character deep cuts, so maybe it was just Scott trying to fill out the roster. But then something unexpected happened. Well, they were mostly treated as a joke. If you died to them, every once in a while they'd give voice to the most important character and mystery from the game. The one you shouldn't have killed, Cassidy.
We've only just begun. I will never let you leave. I will never let you rest.
It was a huge revelation.
My God.
The lines that they spoke ultimately helped us to determine that Custom Night was William Afton's endless torment at the hands of the spirits inside the Golden Freddy suit. But again, none of us
What's
ever
a Golden
stopped to consider
Freddy?
why them? Why
Does it
these
exist?
characters? Why were they the ones that Cassidy was choosing?
Golden
to speak to?
Freddy
Why
is an
are
illusion,
they
right?
here? Well, after doing a lot of research for the grand overall timeline, now I think I know. The mediocre melodies were Henry's creation from a time before he and William started working together. When the two men merged their ideas together to form one company, the mediocres became temporary characters at Fredbear's Family Diner before eventually being retired and largely forgotten. Oh yeah, that is a lot of big swings that I'm making with some massive assumptions. So let's just rewind and take it one step at a time, shall we? First, how do we know that the mediocre melodies belong to Henry? Well, let's just look at their design. It's very simple. They're similar to the Endo 01 designs from the FNAF 1 animatronics, but even more rudimentary, with less flexible joints and less complex wiring. But the important point here is that for each one, the upper jaw and the lower jaw are entirely separate, operating using a very basic hinge towards the back of the head, or two metal bars that slide up and down along the side. And you see, that right there is what tells us they belong to Henry. Well, there are plenty of animatronics that fall into
Oh my God, Space, so amazing.
them. There are a few pieces of tech that we can definitely trace back to their original creator. The Funtime animatronics, for instance,
It's good, like you can trace
not
who
only
made
were they
them.
designed with the intent of luring and capturing children, something that just doesn't jive with Henry, but the blueprints outright have Afton Robotics written in the corner. Not much you can do to deny that one. Sound illusion discs? Another Afton creation, considering the backs of them are stamped with his company name as we see in the graphic novels. But the one I'm most interested in today is Lefty, the animatronic designed by Henry used to capture his daughter the puppet during FNAF 6. That was clearly not an Afton project. This was purely Henry's doing in secret. So, knowing that, did you happen to notice the two straight metal rods in the schematics with the jaw fully detached from the top of the head? It's an exact match for the design of Happy Frog. It's a Henry signature. But why does that matter? Well, the designs of the mediocres also perfectly match up to the first generation of Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica. We know that the Wizards were the earliest form of our core 4 animatronics. These were the ones that had children stuffed inside of them and got possessed. They outright tell us this fact in Ultimate Custom Night.
That looks so scary.
But have you ever stopped to look at how the Wizards were constructed?
Man, if one day I play these games, I'm gonna get so scared.
They have a full separation between the tops of their head and their jaws. Withered Freddy and Foxy both have the hinge opening in the back like we see with Pig Patch, and Withered Chica follows the Happy Frog and Lefty model with bars in
Imagine
the jaw
analyzing all of this.
Think this is just a coincidence? Look at Chica in other games. Chica in FNAF 1, a fundamentally different design. Funtime Chica, definitely not. Toy Chica, nope. The only other time we see this sort of fully separated head design for animatronics is with the FNAF 6 Rockstar animatronics.
And
Ones that,
sorry.
again, we know.
Let's wait. Oh my God, a parrot's so cute. That's so adorable. Also, these designs are weird. Never saw these before. Where are they from? My God. I prefer the toy versions. They're adorable. Why does the parrot have like something in the eye? It's just to be a pirate parrot, I guess. It's kind of random, but okay. Also, they all have stars except Chica. Okay, I guess Pirate parrots?
Were built by Henry as part of his
What do you mean pirate parrots?
Pizzeria trap. In short, the animatronic design seems to be giving us a timeline of events. The Mediocres and Wizards were built by Henry early in the timeline of the games. Eventually, Afton starts to influence the designs more and more until Henry comes back to design the robots that were used for his pizzeria trap. But again, I ask, why does any of this matter? Isn't this just a minor detail? Me looking for connections where they don't really matter? No. Knowing that the Wizards and the Mediocres share a design seems like it might help explain another part of the lore, Happiest Day. In FNAF 3's Happiest Day, we walk past children wearing masks that match the coloring and rough shape of the Mediocres. Pink pig, green frog, purple hippo, orange elephant, blue... okay, not all of them match. But here's the thing, I'm not the one pointing that detail out. This is actually coming from
Pirate parrots.
In the 5 Nights at Freddy's
cutie patootie, now I understand, lol, so cute.
Mediocre Melody calls this out as something worth noting. Quote, it's unconfirmed, but a child in the FNAF 3 Happiest Day minigame appears to be wearing a Happy Frog mask, Orville mask, Mr. Hippo mask. Every single entry mentions this specific detail.
Okay, like makes sense, I guess, then.
So much attention to. And remember, Happiest Day is an exact recreation of the FNAF 4 pizzeria. We enter at the stage where Crying Child's bitten, we pass 3 tables, there's a bit of a gap, and then the final birthday table for the cake that's gonna set Crying Child's soul free. It seems to suggest that at some point, the Mediocre Melodies existed in one version of the restaurant right alongside Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica. But how could all that be? Well, it's easier than you might think. In the story The Puppet Carver, we read about the Pizza Playground, a restaurant that seems to predate or be a competitor to Freddy's. And in it, we see that the franchise uses very rudimentary animatronics that break down a lot. There's a banjo, an off-brand bear named Baron Von Bear, and an unknown bird animatronic. It's the Mediocre Melodies, guys. Pig Patch, Ned Bear, and hold on, there's no bird in the Mediocre Melodies. Unless, of course, we're talking about Chica. What this story seems to heavily suggest is that Chica started at a different pizza franchise and eventually crossed over into Freddy's, becoming popular enough to eventually join interesting. The core 4. Also working at that pizza playground is a talented creator named Porter, someone who seems to have the ability to make wood-based animatronics come to life. In short, it's the book's stand-in for Henry. Henry may not be the most technologically advanced creator out there, but whatever he creates contains this certain X factor about it, a spark of life. It's how he's able to create endoskeletons out of nothing but wood. No power, no nothing, just wood and a childlike imagination. This, I think, starts to give us an important piece in the puzzle. Afton was the business guy, a tech bro who was smart and could build machines able to mimic voices and transform and launch giant claws out of their stomachs for no apparent reason. But it was Henry who had the pure love of his craft, that intangible thing that just couldn't be replicated, and it drove Afton crazy. In the Silverhouse novel, we read a bit about Afton's old journals, that they were, quote, full of raving paranoia. Passages about Henry that ranged from wild jealousy to near worship, which now gets us moving towards a motive.
Okay, I guess.
What kept getting stuck on in the building of a timeline was the question of why. Why does Afton
kill?
And
why?
out of everyone, why does he kill Henry's daughter, Charlie, specifically?
Jealously, I guess.
The first victim of the entire series. So why does Afton do it? Just because he's evil? Just because he's drunk from the bar at Junior's?
Maybe.
No. I think Afton both loved and hated his business partner. He admired him and his magic, but also despised him for his success. This contradiction starts to point us to Afton's motive for murder. It also finally helps give us a framework for the early parts of their story. Loyal theorists, let me now point us to the most obvious place that we should have been looking for lore this entire time: the history of the Chuck E. Cheese franchise.
Chuck E. Cheese,
because in a game all about animatronic pizza restaurants, why would we not look to see what creative inspiration Scott might have gotten from the real-life franchise that started it all? I am so dumb. It took me researching an episode over on food theory to finally realize that I should have at least considered this at some point during the last 7 years of solving FNAF.
7 years, jeez.
Anyway, I did exactly that, and what I learned was enlightening, to say the least. You see, what we now know of as Chuck E. Cheese actually started as the product of a feud between 2 rival animatronic pizza restaurants, Pizza Time Theater and Showbiz Biz Pizza Place. Pizza Time was founded by a smart businessman who wanted to recreate Disneyland's Country Bear Jamboree. In the end, their onstage show wound up soulless and had no solid theme. Showbiz Pizza, meanwhile, had a creator who built better robotic attractions that were full of life. They also had a solid theme where everyone had southern accents and a lot of charm. I mean, just watch the clips and the difference is immediately clear.
Like, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, you get it?
See, we're all up here on the stage.
Ooh, those ones are cool. Look at that.
Go around a big circle together. See, like this, our feet aren't screwed to the floor or bolted down. We can move. We got more moves than a can of worms. And then that old 1-2 Billy Bob can come up there and stick his old ugly mug in your face.
To me, the battle between these two real-life pizza places, these two men, sounds a lot like the battle between William
the other one doesn't have a
smart
face, bro.
businessman who wanted to riff off Disney's Bear Show versus a talented artist that was building animatronics with actual life and good southern accents.
I was just waiting for you to drop your guard.
Even small details
My
of the
God.
story
Okay, I guess it makes sense.
Like the fact that these pizza places had small cabaret stages off to the side for extra acts to get added later, just like how Foxy stands alone in Pirate Cove. A separate act that we see was the last one added to the core group of 4. In real life, Pizza Time Theater, the one I most associate with William Afton, went heavily into debt and was forced to merge with Showbiz Pizza. That meant that, at least for a while, all the animatronics existed under one roof, but because the characters from Pizza Time were stronger for branding, specifically Chuck E. Cheese, that's the ones that they ultimately moved forward with. I suspect that something similar happened in the games.
Don't you tell me it's based on real life story, okay.
His rival Henry and the two merged their restaurants
except the murder, I guess. But
Chica,
the rest...
Mediocre Melody, officially joins Fredbear's cast of friends, and the rest are slowly phased out to obscurity. And William, angry and bitter, never truly lives down the humiliation of his failure, prompting him to lash out in a drunken rage against Charlie one night behind the pizzeria. This feels right to me, to set up William as more than just an evil purple guy. This flow of events actually gives him a reason to want to kill, a motive. It also aligns with a lot of
and he wants to get the robots that look like they have life, so they use souls. Okay, I guess.
It is for your horror villain to be an actual, fully fleshed out, tragic character.
Try not to set out to make a cool-looking villain, you know? Go make a monster.
Look, that doll back there is kind of creepy.
Like
You're seeing that doll there?
Doing something really, really bad.
That's kind of creepy, bro.
Something happens,
but okay.
Often ironically, that then comes back to bite them. A creature is created, a situation is created, and then they're judged and they get.
I can't stop looking at that doll, bro.
You know, horror icon. It essentially fits that structure in a way. Why is Freddy Krueger popular? Well, it's a revenge story, isn't it? Miss Voorhees, it's a revenge story. These aren't just like these supernatural forces that came out of nowhere to just hurt people and punish people. There were results of other wrongdoing.
William Afton, if I'm right, follows this exact pattern. His jealousy over Henry's skill causes him to lash out, which in turn dominoes to him building the very robots that'll eventually take Elizabeth and his crying child son away from him. The other
craziness,
thing
I guess.
Melody timing issue may help explain is Cassidy's death. In the Fazbear Frights books, there's Andrew, who's basically the book stand-in for Cassidy. I know we're always supposed to take things in the books with a grain of salt, but Andrew here is an angry spirit that keeps William's soul tethered to a hellish purgatory so it can be punished again and again and again. He's also known to have had his body stuffed inside of Golden Freddy.
But Golden Freddy wasn't a thing, or is it now? I'm so confused.
Two unusual details about him. First, he wears an alligator mask. Second, and even more strangely, it's repeatedly made clear that his soul is attached not to an animatronic or an endoskeleton or anything like that, but to a battery pack of all things.
Bro, that's so weird.
Unusual. He's stuffed
kind of funny, but weird.
His soul is in a battery pack. Where in this franchise do we see animatronics using battery packs, let alone off-branded animals using battery packs? Oh wait, it's the Mediocre Melodies. Could they possibly have been around during the missing children's incident? Yes. Given what we already talked about with the Generation 1 Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica matching the designs of the Mediocre Melodies, it's certainly possible. We also see that the Golden Freddy suit has the same Henry style of design. In both the Fazbear Frights illustrations as well as FNAF 4's minigames, we see that Golden Freddy has the separated jaw controlled by 2 straight bars, just like Lefty and just like Happy Fall.
Everything in FNAF is confusing. Yeah, I'm seeing that.
Back around to the point that I started this whole episode with.
This is so confusing, bro.
Through them, of all characters. Not through Golden Freddy, not through Fredbear, through the Mediocre Melodies. The animatronics with a battery pack. Just a
battery pack.
Series of connections. So anyway, those were some stray observations that I've been kicking around about the mediocres. What do you think? Do they have greater lore importance to the story than we initially thought, or are they just meant to be a joke? Am I just falling victim to everything that Mr. Hippo warned me against? Let me know down in the comments below now, because this is your last chance for them to affect the final FNAF timeline for 2022. Our interpretation
2022, yeah, we're at 2026 now. Is there a new timeline now?
In the next week or two. I swear, I am not putting it off anymore. We are gonna plow through this thing to the very end.
Also, no one FNAF timeline is the same.
We've gotta finish it. You're so close. Just do it. So make sure
okay, there's no same timeline. They're all different.
Stay hydrated. I appreciate that today's theory might be a lot to swallow. Fortunately, you can wash it down with help from today's sponsor, Air Up. In the FNAF world,
what is this?
Air Up. It's the kind of thing that you
okay, I guess.
For. But Air Up is using smell for good, and the science behind this thing is fascinating. Confession time,
me see what
I do
is
not
that.
drink enough water, mostly because I just want my drinks to taste like something, not just water stuff. Hence why I'm addicted to soda and Diet Coke. But Air Up has actually invented an incredible way to help people like me kick their soda habit by making water taste good, without aspartame, without artificial sweeteners, without sugary
even good. I don't know.
Instead, nothing.
Yeah, there's a lot of FNAF families on YouTube, but none are identical.
Onto the top of the bottle.
So then let's just think there's no timeline then. There's no timeline.
That is what Air Up is taking advantage of. These pods are full of flavorful smells like apple, peach, wild berry, which is my personal favorite, and by having the pods in front of your nose as you drink, it makes your brain think
that's kind of weird to drink, but okay, I guess.
Good old H2O with no additives, no preservatives, no nothing. And just like I'm sure some of you were skeptical of this theory, I too was skeptical about whether this would actually work. But then I tried my first pod, the watermelon flavor, and I was blown away. It was subtle, not overpowering. It took me back to eating watermelon with my family.
There's a timeline, but there's different ways to interpret it. Okay.
The great thing is, if you want to break from the scent and you just want to
think
switch
that
over
makes
to good
sense, I guess.
water every once in a while, you can drop the scent ring down away from your nose and you're back to drinking out of a regular water bottle. I gotta say, the first time I used this, I was hooked. I immediately ran to them and said, hey, please sponsor us, because that is how strongly I felt about this product. I've been using this
I guess.
especially during our long brainstorming sessions up in the FNAF attic.
They haven't confirmed the true timeline yet. Do you see if FNAF is ending? I don't know if it's ending or not. Probably they're gonna confirm it. Depends on when it's gonna end.
Awesome deals, so get them while you still can. I'm personally a fan of some of the strange flavor combos like raspberry, lemon, and mango passion fruit that you get as part of their naughty list bundle. Honestly, those would probably be a great
naughty list.
I'm certain that he's on the naughty list every year. Plus, not only are there great bundles, Air Up is offering you theorists 10% off when you use the code GameTheorists at checkout. That's GameTheorists to get 10% off your order. So head on down to the description to check them out and see how crazy awesome science can be when it comes to making your drinks healthier. As always,
I guess.
my friends, remember, it's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.
Okay, next one, the ultimate timeline.
And the torment. 19 books, 11 games,
19 books.
Whole years, all leading to this moment. The ultimate FNAF timeline is finally complete. The pieces are in place for us. Now all we have to do is put this story of tragedy, jealousy, and loss back together. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that feels like a kid revealing the class project that he's been working on all year. Except here, it's a class project that I've been working on for the past decade of my life.
Poor guy,
this
bro.
one is big, my friends, and I gotta admit, kinda nervous. I haven't attempted a timeline video on this franchise since 2018. Back in the days when Mike was the crying child, Afton coming back was actually a surprise, and Fazgoo wasn't a phrase I'd ever thought I'd have to utter. But since the last time I did something like this, we've had 3 more massive
complete. Yeah, if they release new stuff, makes sense.
Shake a staff bot at. It is exhausting trying to keep track of this whole franchise, which honestly is why I'm here today. The lore at this point.
Let's see if I can understand this one.
It is full of speculation and theory. So to hopefully make it a little easier for everyone and to give us all a baseline to talk about this franchise moving forward into the future, it's time to reveal my current working FNAF timeline. But just before I do, I just want to explain a couple of things.
I hope this one is
massive.
I hope I can understand this. Let's hope it is. Let's hope it's good.
We have ever done on the channel. But when you look at the totality of this franchise, the story of FNAF really boils down to the story of one man, William Afton. His successes, his failures, his rise to becoming co-owner of one of the most successful restaurant franchises in the world, and his eventual fall to the monsters he helped to create, only to then be reborn in a new digital
as a virus or something.
Split this timeline into 3 main chunks: the foundation of Freddy's, how the business started and how it came into being; the Afton era, William's decades-long murder spree; and post-purple guy.
That made me so funny. Post-purple guy.
Fire. And because there are lots of new big revelations in this thing that seemingly come out of nowhere, as well as just points I want to talk about further, I decided to dedicate 1 episode to each chunk.
Okay, makes sense.
One seamless, continuous video, but it just felt incomplete without some sort of explanation at the end of each one. Once this whole thing's done,
an hour of animation, true, bro, that's a lot.
Video, so you can just skip my explanations. But for now, this just felt like the best, most satisfying, most complete way to do this. That being said, this is still about the story, the broad strokes of the franchise. So in order to make sure that you guys know that I'm not just pulling answers out of thin air, not only am I discussing some of the more controversial bits at the end of each chunk, we're also putting in a handy little graphic in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, which will show thumbnails, video titles, books, and any other citations that we need throughout the video. So if you wish to understand that specific statement
that's going to be easier to understand.
Exactly where we've taken it from. That way you can look into those details for yourself. So
Matt gave birth to spring
or your pitchforks if you're the type to get upset when I say something controversial, and make sure that you subscribe, since this is going to be a video that you're going to want to come back to a few times in order to fully dissect. Without any more waiting, I present to you the story of a loving, obsessive father who slowly descended into madness, and along the way discovered the secret to eternal life.
Virus, I guess. Yeah, they source the evidence. Yes, I like that. That's important. It's easier for us to understand. It's just not just random stuff.
It was the throes of the Great Depression, and people were in desperate need of cheap entertainment, especially in Utah, one of the states hit the hardest, 4th highest unemployment in the nation, and full of transients. People looking for work in Salt Lake, finding none, and ultimately moving on to find their fortunes out in California. People were tired and they were hungry, but as they traveled, there was one thing that could lift their spirits: a simple roadside attraction called Fredbear's Singin' Show. The ads were plastered all over town, featuring an animated bear drawn in the popular pie-eyed cartoon style for characters at the time. He resembled cartoons like Mickey Mouse, Felix the Cat, Betty Boop. It immediately said that this, Fredbear's, was a place where you could bring the family. And the price, honestly, couldn't be beat. For 50 cents, you could get food and entertainment.
Oh my god, Slay, I want that.
Real-life dancing bear perform on stage.
Oh, it's a real-life bear.
Bears at large traveling circuses like Barnum and Bailey, where the tickets would go for about $1. That's $1 without food. But this was a smaller show, like the type from the Vaughn brothers or the Robbins brothers, where tickets would sell for just a mere 50 cents. Watching that bear do tricks on stage brought a glimmer of joy at a time when so much was wrong with the world. The simple show would go on for
I
years,
hope the bear didn't suffer.
Hundreds of travelers passing through looking for a quick meal, but it left a permanent impression on one little boy, capturing his imagination in a way that nothing else had. One little boy named Billy.
My god, so
that was his nickname at least, but his parents liked to call
Billy.
him William.
So adorable.
The bear could dance, could sing. For decades, William dreamed of recreating that moment of bringing a musical bear to life, but how? William was smart, without a doubt, and he had a keen mind for business, but he wasn't the most creative. How do you make a singing, dancing bear come to life? The best he could do was using rudimentary costumes. William was inspired by the work of Walt Disney, who throughout the 50s and 60s was pioneering the use of mascot suits throughout his theme park. The big innovation? Suits with 5 fingers. This allowed the performers wearing the suits to use their natural
5
arms and hands to interact with the guests, as
I'm
opposed
sure.
to older models where the arms would just hang limply by their sides. Finally, with a simple mascot suit, he would be able to realize his childhood dream. He would be able to bring Fredbear to life. To appeal to the kids, and for copyright reasons, he changed Fredbear from a realistic brown animal to a cartoonish yellow bear with a purple hat and bow tie. But feeling like one character wasn't enough, he added another friend, a yellow rabbit with a purple vest and matching tie named Bonnie the Bunny. While Fredbear was certainly his first love, Bonnie was extra special because that was his. It was an original character that he had created from scratch. And I do mean scratch. William's hand-sewn costumes were rough, with seams and stitches visibly showing, but it was the best that he could do. And you know what? It was just enough. Bonnie and Fredbear would perform on stage to small but enthusiastic crowds. Finally, he was able to deliver fantasy and fun to all the kids, delighting and inspiring them in the exact way that he had been delighted and inspired so many years ago. And things could have ended there. That could have been the end to his story. It could have been perfect had it not been for one thing. Other people saw the success of his idea and they wanted in. Enter Chica's Party World, a rival restaurant starring performing animal characters. His idea, except they did it better. William may have been the first, but obviously he wasn't the best. It hurt the prideful William Afton to admit it, but this restaurant was able to do the thing that he always wanted to do, make the animals actually come to life. All of the performers in this restaurant were robots, simple metal skeletons that were powered by battery packs, but all of them able to freely turn and talk and dance on their own, no human required. It was like magic that came from the mind of a brilliant creator named Henry Emily. This Henry, in some small way, had been able to harness the power of life itself. Afton admired him. He was jealous, to be sure, but he also looked upon this man with awe. Off to one side of Chica's Party World was a small cabaret stage featuring an elephant magician. On the other, a hippo known to ramble on and on. That one was more of a joke for the parents, but it was the main stage that was for the kids. A rocking band of characters featuring a yellow chicken thing with a southern drawl named Chica, backed by a band of other country-themed characters, including a pig with a banjo, an upbeat frog from the local swimming hole, and a brown bear with a...
You know, the story in the beginning was really kind of wholesome.
Bears were his animals. Why not a cow or a horse? Something to fit the country theme a bit better. Why did it have to be a bear?
Okay, the story's getting sad now.
To injury, they had the nerve to call this thing Ned Bear, a direct copy of his own Fred Bear.
Whoops, that's gonna leave a mark.
No, that was not okay. Afton's jealous admiration turned to hardened bitterness. A bitterness that would only grow over the next couple of years as families continued to choose Chica's Party World over Fred Bear's. William just couldn't compete with the appeal of the robots. Eventually, his restaurant would go bankrupt, only to get bailed out by, of course, Henry Emily. Another insult, another humiliation that William wouldn't soon forget. 1979. Despite being bitter, Afton couldn't deny that what came next was a period of massive success and expansion. With the two franchises now merged into one, it was the best of both worlds. Afton's ideas with Henry's robotic expertise. The two decided to launch under a new name, Fredbear's Family Diner, a pizza chain that would eventually come to feature a mix of humans in performing suits as well as on-stage animatronics. They decided to stick with Fredbear as the headliner, considering the yellow bear was easily identifiable as a brand and because he was the original performing animal mascot. Afton appreciated that. This new restaurant would also see a mix of characters as the two franchises merged into one, with Pig Patch and Happy Frog performing right alongside Fredbear and Bonnie. And as part of this one big Fredbear family, they even got themselves official merch that were released, ranging from masks to magnets.
Slay. Mr. Hippo fridge magnet?
That said, not all the characters were winners. The reception to some characters was just mediocre, so they faded away into the dumpster, storage units, and retro budget tech stores of lost nostalgia.
Okay, before proceeding, let's just have cookie time, okay? Cookie time, please.
Waiting for their chance to step back into the limelight if and when a headliner went out of commission. Others, though, would fare much better, like a new Pirate Fox, as well as a blue guitar-playing variant of the yellow Bonnie Bunny. Ultimately, the franchise would get so big, it would spawn its own cartoon show, Fredbear and Friends. Business was booming. In the end, Fredbear and Bonnie's popularity would be so strong that they would be able to support the Fredbear's Family Diner franchise all on their own, while also spinning off a new sister location dedicated to their friends. In 1983, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza launched, giving a dedicated home to all this new supporting cast of characters. Chica the Chicken, Bonnie the Blue Bunny, Foxy the Pirate, and of course the headliner, a brown Freddy Fazbear. Business was good, and Afton was happy, mostly. It did bother him that the one original character that he created, the one that he himself played, Golden Bonnie, got passed over for inclusion in that cartoon show. The only character in the roster of regulars to get ignored for the show, but other than that, things were going smoothly. He had himself a wife, 2 sons, a daughter. He had a thriving business. And best of all, he was able to learn the craft of robotics from the man that he both loved and hated, Henry. Together, they were constantly pushing the limits of what these characters could do. Because it was quick and easy, new characters introduced into the roster would be given a simple hand-sewn suit with 5 fingers that any performer could wear. Eventually, Henry would design one of his signature animatronics for that character, utilizing a divided mouth with either a hinged or sliding jaw design. This was the first generation of animatronics.
Okay.
Why stop there? Afton had big ideas. What if the animatronics weren't just locked to the stage, but could freely roam the restaurant and interact
From
with the
Arizona
kids?
to
What if his
mine,
mascot
between the
suits could
snowstorm
become animatronics?
that we got
What
on
if you could use
Sunday,
more
January
than just
25 at
rigid
more than
metallic
40
skeletons? Why not
states?
experiment with tubes
Jesus.
and wires that would give
Are
the
you
animatronics
okay?
fluidity and flexibility while still
I hope
providing
you're
structure?
okay.
The possibilities for this technology
Oh,
were
now I'm
endless.
worried.
Afton fell in love with robotics. He had started with a dream of bringing
Everything
one
is
simple
okay
singing
there?
bear
Is
to
there
life,
much
but with
snow
robots, he had
yet,
stumbled
or
across the tools that gave him the
or is
ability
it
to
better
control
now?
life itself. And thanks to Henry, he was practically speedrunning his way to an engineering degree. And while William wouldn't admit it out loud, one other thing that kept pushing him forward was the desire to beat his former rival, to prove himself smarter and more
I'm
capable,
with
to
stupid
surpass the
what?
man who
That's so
everyone else
sad.
considered to be a
Oh my God, so
visionary
cute.
genius. But pride cometh before the fall, and tragedy was about to strike. Okay, so that brings us to the end of part one.
It also got 80 deaths. The snow still hasn't melted. Jesus! Oh my God, that's bad!
Doesn't give me much of a chance to justify
I'm so sorry for that.
And admittedly, there are some large
Hope it
leaps
gets
in here.
better,
Let's just start
please.
off with
Thank
Fredbear's
you.
Sing and Show, shall we? We know,
Please be
based on the
careful,
retro
okay?
poster that was hidden in Security Breach, that at least at one point, Fredbear was an actual bear. And like I called out in that narrative segment, dancing bear shows were a real form of entertainment. The only problem is that, timing-wise, none of our main characters would be the people in charge of that business in the 30s
Yeah.
and a series of pizza restaurants in the 80s without them just being extremely old. Best case
Lol.
scenario, if Afton's running the singing show when he's 18, that still puts
The
him at
storm
nearly
started on
70
January
when the first
23.
pizzeria
Did it
opens
stop or
and
is
his
just
murder
still...
spree begins. That just doesn't make
It's
a
still
lot
on.
of logical sense because he doesn't become immortal.
You know,
until his
since
first
like
death
a
in
month
spring
we have
break.
been
That's
having
why
so
I
much
suspect
storms
that
here in my
Fredbear's
country. It's
Sing
kind
Show
of
was either
crazy
a family
too.
business that Afton
But
then
not
carried
as
on to
bad
a
as
new
yours, of
generation,
course.
or something that he saw
Hit
as a
New
kid
York
and
on
just wanted to
25.
recreate when he grew up. The
Oh my
Fredbear Sing and
God.
Show thing also starts laying the groundwork for some of the core elements of the story.
But
that Freddy
the
was a
storm
place
is
of
still...
fantasy
I
and
stopped,
fun, and that
thankfully. Oh
Afton,
my
despite
God.
eventually falling to become the heartless serial killer and mad scientist that we know him as, began as
Okay,
someone
now
with
it's
good
waiting
intentions
that
and a
everything
love
gets
of entertaining
better.
kids. He wanted
Please be
to bring
careful,
things
okay?
to life from the very beginning, a theme that recurs a lot for him throughout the rest of the franchise. Next up, let's talk about those mascot costumes. One thing
Okay.
that I keep going back to is the design of Glitch Trap.
Don't
The
you tell me
handcrafted
that
suit, you
suit
can
is
see
the original
seams in
one.
everything. It even has 5 fingers for the performer's hands. It is very
Slay.
much not a Springtrap suit. This is something
Okay.
much more rudimentary. It came at a time before animatronics were a part of the story. That's why I suspect that it was actually the first, predating
Ooh.
literally everything. It's also a suit that is very personal to Afton. He put his digital consciousness in that form. It's his personal
How?
avatar. It's the way that he sees himself. There's also a whole separate discussion to be had here about the habits and rituals of serial killers. So the fact that he's choosing to lure kids and kill them in this particular suit
It will
actually
start
says
since
a
Sunday
lot
25.
about
Okay,
his
that's
emotional
good.
attachment to it. So, while
But it's
Fredbear
weird
seems
that
to have
the
started
snow
as someone
didn't
else's
melt
creation,
yet,
Golden
you
Body
know?
was uniquely
It's just
William's,
like almost a
giving him
week without
personal
melting.
connection. And that's not all. In this
Or
whole
more.
franchise, only one set of characters have themselves 5 fingers, the Nightmares. Even Golden Freddy, Fredbear, was a 5-fingered wearable suit at one point in the
Okay.
story, as we see in this shot from the graphic novel, before he, like everyone else, was turned into an animatronic. This seems to imply that all of the main characters had similar wearable mascot outfits at least at one point in time. And that whoever
Okay.
is having the FNAF 4 nightmares, if they even are nightmares, something that we'll touch on in part 2, saw those
Okay,
mascots.
ads. Let's just wait till the ads stop, okay? Okay, so that one is like the original first animatronic, is not really animatronic, okay? Then there's the other ones, and that's basically that. I thought that that character was just only for that Help Wanted game, didn't know it was based on the first animatronic, that it's not an animatronic. Or is it an animatronic? It's a suite, I guess. Look, not a spring lock suite, but a suite. You know? Okay, so we're still all waiting that the ads are over. It's taking a while, sorry. I guess it's good.
suits specifically. Lastly, we have to talk about the elephant in the
Okay,
room.
Sly.
The literal elephant, Orville Elephant, as well as the rest
The
of the mediocre
elephants.
melodies. For a while now, I've suspected that the mediocre melodies played a much more important role in the story than just being a bunch more animatronics to fill out the roster. Especially Ned Bear, which is just so suspiciously close to Fred Bear. And yet, there are two key details that we're gonna have to justify with any mediocre melodies mention. One, they're very rudimentary with external battery packs, implying that they come very early in the timeline. And two, we know that at minimum, Mr. Hippo does eventually become an official member of the extended Freddyverse. But if these things are supposed to be cheap, generic rip-offs, why would you be trying to rip off yourself? You wouldn't. You would be stealing someone else's ideas. So if Afton created
it's kind of
Fred Bear,
weird.
there would have to be some rival franchise. The only other person who would likely be ripping him off, Henry. We've talked extensively about how the mediocre
Henry
melodies
was
are
ripping
clearly
him off
Henry's
and
design
won.
aesthetic. So it just has to be him. I don't think Henry's doing this maliciously. He doesn't strike me as the type. He was likely building the robots at the orders of someone else that was running a rival restaurant franchise.
Oh yeah,
so
that makes
enough
sense.
motivation to start Afton down a path of jealous rivalry, but also begrudging admiration. As the Freddy Files Ultimate Edition says, it's important to revisit the beginning of Henry and William's relationship, so here you go. I think this is where it begins. Also, this is future Matt Pat here coming back to add this one in. Seems like the recently released character encyclopedia has backed up all of this speculation.
Sly, I
I've had
guess.
this timeline written for about a month
There's
now, but I've also been holding
encyclopedias
off
of this game. It is crazy big. This franchise, my god.
It seems like we might actually have nailed it. They actively call out the suspicious similarities to the main Fredbear crew. Quote from one of the pages: Ned Bear looks like an imitation, altered just enough to avoid copyright
issues.
I don't know about you, but that seems to imply that we were right on the money. Knowing all of this, at one point the franchises had to have merged. That's really the only way that you get Mr. Hippo from the rival franchise as part of the Fazbear crew. This also mirrors a lot of what happened in the real-life history of Chuck E. Cheese, with two rival restaurants, each with their own casts of characters, merging to become one unified brand. Again, we've gone into that in detail with other videos, just wanted to remind you all of that here. But why would I call out the rival restaurant as being named Chica's Party World? Few things, actually. First, we know for a fact that a location named Chica's Party
because
World
of the sister location. Yes.
So it is out there somewhere and doesn't fit cleanly anywhere. Second, in the story of the Puppet Carver, Chica is very explicitly looped in with the book versions of Pig Patch and Ned Bear, implying that she started as a mediocre melody. Thirdly, her design just fits better with a theme of down-home country animals
till
with
make
southern
way,
accents,
yes,
playing the banjo
no,
and eating
2
with
hours.
And with her being the headliner of the show with her name on the restaurant, it would make sense then that when the restaurants merged, she was the one that was added to the main cast of characters, while all the other mediocres faded away. It's also why when Freddy's closes after William's killing spree, she's the one to branch back off into her old franchise and is therefore missing in Sister Location, a detail that's bothered me for years at this point. It might also explain why William decided to stuff his first dead kid into Chica. That one was Henry's creation, not his. Is all of this a big leap? Yeah. Is it connecting a lot of dots that are very spread out across the franchise that I've been holding on in the back of my mind for years? Absolutely. But I think it makes sense. It also serves as a clean answer to a lot of the random threads that Scott's been leaving dangling for years. So with all of that in mind, my friends, we can close the book on the foundation of Freddy.
Okay.
Don't worry, next week I'll be back to give you arguably one of the most confusing parts of this entire timeline situation. Part 2, the Afton era. I promise it will actually be next week this time. No more waiting around. I am just as eager to get this one out the door as you are to watch it. I promise. You know what else I promise? I promise that we'll actually get to talking about the games. I would have liked to have talked about them in this episode, but there just isn't that much in the games that helps us depict anything pre-Family Diner. Although, let's be honest, this franchise has never been just about the games anyway. Even back in the early days of FNAF, we were decoding images and source code that Scott fed us through the website. The modern day books and the clues that we get
but those illustrations are so cool.
All of it is
Look
crucial
at that.
to understanding this franchise and its lore. Unless, of course, Steel Wolf finally gets around to making that Fredbear's Family Diner game they want to make so badly.
I've always would love to do is get kind of back to, I have no clue if we'll ever be able to do this, but getting back to kind of like the origin of like Fazbear Entertainment or the origin of
Look at so many stuff he has back
But in
there.
the meantime, while we wait for that inevitably cryptic game, I hope that this start to the timeline helps to fill in some of those gaps. I'm excited to share part 2 with you next week. If you haven't subscribed and rang the bell, make sure you do it now so you're notified when that part drops. I cannot wait to see your thoughts down in the comments below. And as always, I remind you, it's all just a theory.
A game theory.
Go easy on me. Tried my best. Hello Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, and officially page 7 of the FNAF timeline script. Last time we covered the origins of Freddy's. We talked about William Afton's childhood dream project of making a singing bear come to life, and the infuriating moment that his dream is copied by a rival restaurant franchise looking to steal away his success. The merger of the two franchises results in William meeting Henry, a brilliant designer with a knack for robotics. Working together, they make Fredbear's flourish, spawning popular Saturday morning cartoon shows, toy lines, and spin-off restaurants under the Fazbear name. When last we left him, Afton was thriving, the world of robotics opening his eyes to new and exciting ways of bringing characters to life.
The FNAF story with this timeline looks like something that began as wholesome and then started to get really dark and sad. What's kinda bad, you know?
Life, there is inevitably death. Something that Afton would become intimately familiar with. But before
thank you.
I want you to take some time to acquaint yourself with our newest channel. Guys,
la bellezza infiora e la fuchevolora sinebria voluta liviamne dolti fremiti che suscita l'amore poiché che io fio al coro onniposente valiviamo. Amore fra I calici
Thank you for the stickers, thank you for the text to speech, thank you so much.
Style theory, where we're looking at the science, math, psychology, history, and mystery of the way you look, your clothing, fashion trends, hygiene, and makeup. Now, I know that theorizing about style might sound weird at first, but hear me out. I grew up not understanding style or fashion. Admittedly,
I just wear what I FNAF Ultimate Timeline. Oh wait, stretch.
That other people treat you. So understanding those rules and being able to take some control over all of that is
okay, it's good
valuable.
now.
It's an
more
education.
Okay.
What do we do on these channels? We like to educate you while entertaining you, which honestly is why I think
go. That's
so
what.
For us to launch.
Already you drinking it. My God.
In the fashion industry that there needs to be someone out there to say, hey, this is right, this is wrong, and this is what science says. Also, you know we're gonna have a lot of fun because talking about fashion is weird. Like this channel has already given me the excuse to bludgeon a ballistic head to death using a high heel.
Son. My God.
It's also the channel where we're gonna physically be testing the viability of female armor, or how many t-shirts it takes to stop
Jesus,
a bullet.
okay,
There's also
son.
practical everyday stuff too on this channel. Do
My
school
God.
uniforms actually benefit the students? Does it make a difference whether or not
Jesus
you wash your
Christ,
legs
so
in the
much
shower?
water.
That's the sort of stuff that you can find on this new channel. In fact, there are 5 new episodes that you
You
can
are
check
going
out
to
right
turn
after
our
you
stomach
finish
into a
this
pool
beast
of
to
water
I
for
personally
the
recommend starting with the
swim.
Killer Steel episode.
Oh my God,
because
that's kind of
episode's all about the
funny.
birth of a killer. And while you're over
I
there,
only eaten
consider
cookies
subscribing.
today, so
It'll do
yeah,
all of
there's
us over
nothing
here
else
a
in my
huge
stomach.
favor, because if we manage to get 1 million subscribers by the end of the month, it'll put us as a top
Goo,
fashion
yeah,
channel
now I'm a
on YouTube.
fish.
Show the world that looking smart can be even better than looking cool. So go ahead, enjoy your all-day theory marathon. And now with our logo complete, it's time to complete our other massive ongoing project, this timeline. Onward to part 2, where things are about to get dark in a hurry.
Let me just sneeze.
1983, business was booming with 2 whole restaurant franchises running. Fredbear's Family Diner and the
we have 2 restaurants.
Pizza. Together, William and Henry had been able to take the hybrid suit idea and make it into a reality. They called their new invention the Springlock suit. And fittingly enough, it was symbolic of the partnership between these 2 men. A human suit as designed by William that could become a freestanding
stream almost crashed.
robot. But because it was still detailed with kinks to work out, the rollout was limited. Restricted only to the Fredbear's Family Diner location. All of this meant that William was busier than ever. He didn't have time to be a full-time parent, so he designed a nanny cam system where cameras
Thank you for the sticker
throughout the neighborhood, as well as in his youngest son's favorite toy.
Thank you for the stickers.
I mean, plushy Fredbear. But since
yeah, I drink so much
cheese.
He
also left childcare duties to his eldest son, Michael. There was just one problem with that. Michael
Thank you
was
for the
far from the best
stickers.
babysitter. He tormented his younger brother by jump scaring him with a foxy mask and constantly left him behind. William watched
so many
all of it from his
stickers.
cameras. Kids would be kids. Tomorrow was another day, after all. Except Michael's torment didn't stop. Bitter, angry thoughts would run through Michael's mind. Why did he have to be the one to take care of this whining crybaby all the time? It just wasn't fair.
guess.
It was time that he got even with his brother by playing the ultimate prank. A prank that just so happened to be on this crying child's birthday.
That's
he and his friends would take his
depressing.
scared little brother and make him do the one thing that he was terrified of doing, getting close to the animatronics. That would be embarrassing for the kid that was such an embarrassment to him. His brother squirmed, screamed, kicked, and fought, but just as they were putting that small, squirming boy up to Fredbear's lips, the mouth snapped shut. The sensitive spring locks inside the body had been triggered by the boy's movements. They immediately clamped down. The
They're
wiggling
so
stopped.
cute and adorable. I love that.
It was meant to be funny. The boy was taken to the hospital and
yeah, it was a prank
given
and
an
you
IV,
actually
flowers,
killed
and pills
someone.
filled the
That's not a
nightstand
prank,
next to his
that's
hospital
sad.
bed. But the damage was too severe. He couldn't recover. As the younger brother's consciousness began to fade, he could hear Michael's last words, a small and flimsy apology. But his father, Williams, through the voice of the Fredbear plush, were a firm and committed promise to a dying son. You're broken. I will put you back together. This would not be the end. No matter what, Williams' son would live again.
I love emos, they're so
Time that
adorable.
Right now, he just didn't have. His young
We only
son's
get
heart
more
flattened.
emos when I get more channel points, but don't worry. Until then, we have our stickers and our emotes, okay? Don't worry too much. And then we have the ones on Discord.
Outside without parental permission. Any kid who approached the exit without permission would have to answer to the security puppet, a marionette on strings that could fly around on rails across the restaurant to stop kids in their tracks. It was William's idea, inspired by Michael constantly leaving the restaurant without his brother. In the wake of Fredbear's spring lock failure, all the hybrid suits were getting retired, locked away at the nearby Freddy Fazbear location. It was yet another tough pill to swallow after all the hard work that he and Henry had put into them. William would eventually bury the boys' small
Oh my god,
body
more
in a
cute
remote
tiny
location
emotes,
out in the
thank
woods
you!
right
Is that
alongside
the
his
can?
drive into and out of work every day. The
What
death
is
of
that?
this little boy sent the family spiraling.
Oh
His
no,
wife,
no!
crippled
Oh
with
my god,
grief, was
that's so
distraught
good!
that all she could do was sit and watch TV. But his son,
Bro,
Michael,
that's so good,
was
thank
far
you.
worse. Complaining of seeing hallucinations
What dog
of a
are
golden
doing?
bear standing outside
My
his
dog
window.
is on
boy was
the
so
sofa
racked with
sleeping.
guilt that he was convinced that he was being haunted by the ghost of his brother stuck inside the suit that took his life. The suit's three-toed feet
He's
digging into
sleeping.
the wet earth. The words,
One day I'll
"It's
show you a
me,"
picture
ringing
of him
through
in the
Michael's
Discord
ears.
channel.
Some nights, Michael would even go so far as to break out of his room to check the gravesite and ensure that his brother was still there. As for William himself, he disappeared
He's the
into his
yellow
work
guy.
and his drink.
Yes.
Junior's, the local bar, wasn't far from his son's gravesite. He found himself going there more and more frequently, spending longer and longer amounts of time there. The bar
You
gave
on
him a
sofa
place
too? No, I'm on a
think,
share.
to remember, to reflect, and
On my
stew
desk.
on how Henry had stolen his idea for an
I just
animal-themed
can see him
restaurant.
from
How they
him.
cut his character
See
out of the
it from
cartoon
here.
when everyone else
Because
was
the sofa
there.
is
How Henry
kinda
had
close
humiliated
here.
him by buying him out of bankruptcy, and now,
Bro, he got
now it was
drunk.
his son. Henry had taken his son from him. The robotic part was the part that failed after all. William ordered one more drink, but it was one too many. The bar turned him out and told him to go home. But William didn't go home. Drunk and angry,
Oh my
William
God.
raced back to the restaurant to give Henry a piece of his mind, only to find someone else waiting. Henry's daughter, Charlie, locked outside of the building, bullies laughing at her through the window.
Aww.
Some other problem to fix. But then Afton got an idea. A beautifully awful idea. This was his chance to get back at the man that
Bro,
had
this is
humiliated
depressing.
him all those years ago. Henry had killed his business, and now Henry's robotic suit had killed his son. It was time for William to do some killing of his own. Let Henry feel what it's like to have something you love get ripped away. While parties continued inside the walls of the pizzeria, William attacked Charlie in the back alley. It felt good. He felt
Bro.
free. Years of resentment and bitterness trapped in his heart finally released in a moment of
Bro,
pure
the guy got
unapologetic
crazy.
evil.
It's
Make
canon,
Henry
he
hurt
crazy.
like he hurts.
My god, craziness.
And in that moment, William became a killer. He dropped Charlie's lifeless body and drove home, forced
My
to confront
God.
his family problems later that night, appalled, but also a little excited by what he had just done. Charlie's death would remain on the books as a random act of violence. And though Henry
Random
had
act?
suspicions about
I
William,
guess
there was
not.
no physical evidence, nothing that could link him back to the crime. In the weeks that followed, Fredbear's family diner would close for good. Two high-profile deaths around the restaurant with two grieving owners in such a short period of time was just too much bad press to handle. Besides,
Yeah, I
Freddy
guess.
Fazbear's was still open, and it was the newer restaurant anyway. All the equipment from the diner, including the old yellow suits and security puppet, would get retired
Security
to that location,
puppets.
and there they would sit for 2 uneventful years. The rest of 1983 and 1984 were spent quietly grieving. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and the new cast of characters were a hit. Tragic memories of their yellow predecessors quickly faded. Afton kept a low profile and buried himself in work and research, quickly reaching
he's doing
Henry's level
more.
of engineering and even surpassing him. And while Henry slowed down to grieve, Afton kept going, even starting his own company, Afton Robotics, for all those
Sly,
pet
I
projects
guess.
that were
No,
a little too
no, this is
experimental
not
for the
Sly, got
regular
crazy.
operations of the pizzeria. The first of these experimental projects was a secret workshop under his house, a veritable bunker, which
Sister
allowed him to work
location.
while still monitoring his kids via hidden security cameras. 1984. 3. A passcode that served as a constant reminder of why the cameras were so important, why he was down there in the first place. This was all to fulfill the promise that he had made to his son, right? I will put you back together. This was for him. All for him, right? But cameras weren't enough. He needed to solve
not
the runaway
much,
Michael
because
problem.
he also
to
had
keep
some
him in the
personal
house. He
envy.
couldn't have another one of his kids wind up dead inside of an animatronic suit. So why not run a little experiment on Michael? You see, all this work with Henry had gotten after him to start
the
learning
guy
more about life.
is gonna
robots,
experiment in his own kids.
and
So,
what a fallible
my
machine
God.
we as humans were. Our reality is so easy to
Nah, bro,
manipulate
the
with
guy
a few
got crazy.
sensory
Ah,
perceptions-
Jesus, it's
perceptions
creepy.
like sound. With just a few sounds, he had discovered that he could alter a person's vision. He could transform blank, smooth plastic robots into lumbering, twisted nightmares. Nightmares far scarier than he could create with actual materials. They would appear organic, rotting, putrid, terrifying. These would be his means of keeping his son Michael in the house where he belonged. Was it extreme? Maybe. But then again, this was the boy who had killed his son. He would make him sorry. And so Michael would grow up not only dealing with the memories of his own guilt, the hospital room, the pills, the flowers, the death of his brother, but also facing literal nightmares, illusions created by sound. Michael would never forget these either. Years later, as a security guard, he would still draw pictures of them inside of his logbook. But all of his extra
and he
projects
draws
meant that his
well,
home life
actually.
suffered even more.
That's actually
He was an
really
absent
well
father
drawn.
and a non-existent husband, leaving his wife cold and alone.
Why do you hide inside your walls when there is music in my halls? All I see
Yeah, we
is
still need to see what happened to the mom.
no more joy, an empty tomb.
And despite her repeated demands that he leave his office and engage with the family, he refused time and time again, leaving her no choice but to leave.
Okay.
You call that a house? It was like a morgue in there. You need
My
to
God.
your son.
The baby isn't mine.
Well, how's this? I'm keeping the diamond ring.
And through it all, there was
My
one
God.
lingering feeling. William wasn't
Drama.
done. He had gotten a taste of what it felt like to be unleashed, what it felt like to be free. Charlie's murder had unlocked something in him, and he wanted more. June 26th, 1985. Putting on the golden Bonnie suit, he lured children one by one to the back room of the pizzeria when no one was looking. At first, he was cautious. He would lure them with promises of cake and cookies. He told them that their dog had died. He would ask for help with homework. Susie was the first. You never truly forget your first.
I was the first. I have seen everything.
But where to hide the bodies? He couldn't sneak out. Someone would see him. He had to hide them in a place where they'd never be found and where they'd never leave the building. They had to be stuffed inside of the suits. No one maintained those things anyway except for him. And so Susie would go into Chica. Fritz, Jeremy, and Gabriel would come next. But it was easy. It was too easy. And with each little life he snuffed out, his lies got bigger. Their house was burning. They're just being kidnapped. Until the last one where all pretense was off. He let himself get violent. Too violent.
I'll just wait for him after school, throw a bag over his head, hit him with a shovel, and drag him into the back of my car.
The body of Cassidy was far more bloody and broken than any of the others. He'd let himself go too far. That one he should kill. With no more active animatronics left, he shoved the body into the one suit that remained backstage. The long-forgotten yellow Fredbear, now broken and discolored with age. Broken, like Cassidy was broken, like his son was broken.
My God, this
Newspapers
is so
reported on
sad.
this disappearance, naming the whole thing the missing children's incident. Police would even charge William with the crimes after finding security footage of the golden mascot suit luring
my
kids
God,
to the
no
back,
way.
But they couldn't convict him. They had no bodies, and his face had been hidden behind the mascot suit the entire time. What they had was circumstantial at best.
Kinda creepy.
He walked away a free man. But Henry knew the truth. In these murders, he saw his daughter Charlie all over again. So he threw Afton out of the company and shuttered the doors to the old pizzeria.
Sly, I
Henry
guess.
would keep the franchise quiet.
Tiny flying cube, thank you. That's so
happen
adorable.
again. This could not happen again. How could
Look at
he
that, so
protect the
adorable.
kids?
Flying
Finally,
cube.
He developed a solution. He would implement an even more extreme security system in the form of new animatronics. Toy animatronics, inspired by the toys that they had been selling years ago. But these guys, these were special. They were a new breed of robot with facial recognition.
Oh my God, technology.
They're all tied into some kind of criminal database so they can detect a predator a mile away.
Let's go. That's
Now
good.
withered with age, were moved to the new location. With a plan in place, it was time to try once more. The year was 1987, and the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was making headlines in local newspapers. Headlines that just so happened to catch the attention of William Afton. Freddy's was back. Without him? That was his idea. His character.
My god, he
Henry
got
was,
even
again,
mad.
trying to cut him out of the
Madder.
picture.
I don't know
No,
if that's
as long as these
how you
restaurants
spend
stayed open,
mad in a
William would
verb.
always come back. Then he noticed the phone
He's
number to
more
apply at
mad
the bottom of the
than-
article.
I'm sorry.
$100 a week to apply call. Afton would go back.
$100 a week? That's like $400 a month. That's kind of bad. Okay.
There it was.
Oh my god, Kitty, thank you for the emote. So adorable. Oh my god, horses! Oh my god, it's a horse! So cute!
Mixed in with
Sorry,
the old
I love
Wizard
horses. They're so
golden
cute.
rabbits. With the yellow security badge still on his chest, he used his crank to pull open the spring locks. It was time for Bonnie to give an encore performance.
Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right. From what I understand, the building is on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out, you know.
Okay, some bad stuff happened. Horse, yeah, horse. Horse is amazing. Horses are so adorable. They're so cute.
1987.
I don't know why, but you know, dogs are, cats are too, birds. I don't know, I love animals. They're so adorable.
Henry the next morning. He didn't even try to hide his crime this time, just meant more blood on Henry's hands. He'd failed to protect the kids again. The restaurant had only been open for a few weeks, but William was sure that this would get it to close. Good, if he couldn't have Freddy's, no one would. Whenever a new pizzeria opened, he would be there. But as he sat in his
Bro,
bunker,
that's just
something else
so
started to linger in William's mind.
revengeful.
He had seen something strange. The old withered animatronics, they had been wandering around the building, spurred on by the puppet. It was almost like those old robots were trying to save the kids. Save them? They couldn't, obviously, but still, how were they moving? It was almost like they had been given life somehow. Did he have something to do with that? The following day, the news
Have you played Uma Musume? No, I didn't.
Was that bite meant
Do you
for
want me to play it?
William's curiosity was stronger now than his bloodlust. He had to learn more, but how? There was no way he'd ever be able to get inside another Freddy's Pizzeria.
I can add it to my Steam library and put it as an option to vote for the next game.
Brand new.
If you're interested in playing that game, of course.
Due to the massive success and even more so the unfortunate closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it was clear that the stage was set, no pun intended, for
it's free, add it. Okay, I will add it.
Circus Babies Pizza.
Remind me that in 1 hour. No, 2 hours, please. Thank you. It has Animal Horse Girls rating. Oh my god, horses!
Alive. And knowing that he couldn't show his face on the
okay,
restaurant
I will
floor,
add
he
it.
needed a way of remotely capturing his victims and preserving them for
you're
his
so
work.
cute.
With that goal in mind, he designed a new breed of animatronics.
You know, Mango from one side looks like a squirrel.
With sound lures that could mimic
at the Horse Girl game. Not now, in 2 hours, please. Thank you. In the Discord, at the Horse Girl game.
Far beyond the
what?
simple
No,
bars
it's horse.
and wires of Henry's designs. And the characters he chose for this were uniquely his. His new roster wasn't going to be tainted by Henry's disgusting barnyard bird. Instead, it was back to his characters, his creations, Freddy, Bonnie, Foxy, as well as two specials.
The first game.
Laura was an homage
Bro,
to the
okay, well, do what you want. But they are real horses. Yes, I think someone sent me videos about Umasume, and basically the horse, the girl horses are based on real horses, but I think they're Japanese horses. They're like Japanese horses, race horses. I don't think they added other countries' horses, like from other races. No, bro, a creator, you write in 2 hours for me. Send me a message in 2 hours, reminding me of installing that game. Thank you, you're adorable. You're so cute. My god, let's just wait till the Twitch ad finishes so everyone can be back. In 2 hours for me, send me a message when it's on that game. Not installing, it's adding it to my library. Hey creator, Kiri Patuti, no! Oh my god, cute tiny face, I love you. I can't get mad at you because I love you, you're so adorable. Look at you laughing, so cute. You know? Adding it to my library. Yay!
Didn't you make her just for me?
You can play it offline if you wanna. I will play it only on stream. Thank you for warning me. I'm doing what you said. If you want to play it, you can play it. I will only play it on stream, of course.
By the time Afton found her, it
Oh.
was too late. She was gone.
Oh, she
He
dead.
immediately canceled the launch of
I'm
Circus
saying what
Baby
you're telling me
under
to
the guise
say.
of a gas leak. But wait, as he sat there
Okay,
at the foot of
then.
the stage, he noticed that something was different. The eye color of the robot had changed. Baby had been built with blue eyes, but now they were emerald green, the same color as
Yeah.
Elizabeth's. Was she in there? Could this all be connected to the free-moving animatronics that he had seen at Freddy's? He had
Bro,
to know
the
more.
sus
His
face is
warning turned
crazy
to excitement.
cute.
He had to return
The
to where it
sus
all
face.
started. 1993. Pathetic. This place was pathetic. Henry had clearly tried to reopen.
Oh, you wanted me to remind you to add the Horse Girl game.
So long ago, but
Yes.
damage to the brand had been permanent. These things stank of death. They hadn't been washed in decades. But even if they had, nothing could wash away the stink of murder that haunted these halls. One night, then another.
Stink? Yeah,
then
probably
another.
it
William
stinks,
repeatedly snuck into the
unfortunately.
old broken restaurant to lure the living animatronics to him, one by one dismantling them, robbing them
Aw.
of their endoskeletons. The metal had to be the secret. It had to contain the remnants of life itself.
Oh my
But
god,
he had to know
cheese!
for sure.
Thank you, I
Leaping out
love
of a room
cheese,
that
and
was
that's a
invisible
cute
to the
piece of
animatronics
cheese.
programming, he dragged the
Thank you for the
oversized
cutie
robotic skeletons
notes.
back to his underground workshop, back to where Circus Baby watched on with glowing, curious eyes. Eyes that somehow felt alive. Not knowing what else to do, William melted the robotic parts down. 5 animatronic endoskeletons reduced down to one silvery puddle of goo. Could he transfer this
Goo.
living
Oh my
metal to his
god,
own
goo?
creations? He had to try. He picked up a syringe and filled it with the molten metal and injected the goo into Funtime Freddy's twisted, wiry
Goo.
endoskeleton.
Sorry,
And suddenly
that
the
word is
coils
so
came to
weird.
life. Like snakes writhing in a pile, what had once been cold, lifeless metal moved and jolted on
The
its
guy
own.
getting
He'd
so
done it. He'd
surprised.
unlocked the secret to life
Oh, thank you
itself.
for the
Except
cheese
something was
slap.
clearly wrong. The
I love
movements were
cheese.
erratic. They were violent, angry. Baby didn't act this way. She had been calm, collected. This was clearly something else, something mindless and frantic. Perhaps by mixing the souls and then portioning them out, he had created incomplete beasts. He would need to keep testing to truly understand it. He needed more
Bro
of this
needs to keep
remnant. As he searched
testing.
the old
Bro,
pizzeria one more
why?
time for any remaining scraps of
You
metal.
could
to
just
go
make something else, like a video game or something. No, he got obsessed by killing people. Oh my god.
Afton's mind reeled. The scientific implications of this were incredible. Ghosts, real ghosts that he could see, all standing against him. But what could they do? What couldn't they do? He panicked as Cassidy approached. How do you stop something that's already dead? Maybe with the thing that resulted in their death in the first place. He would get into his suit like old times. He would regain his power over them just like the day that they died. He was the genius. He was the one in the suit. He was the one in charge.
Lol,
Spring
take
lock
that.
snapped into place. Maybe it was his frantic movements. Maybe it was the leaky abandoned restaurant. Maybe it was just fate coming to collect its due. He didn't know. The only thing he did know was that his brain was suddenly filled with searing white-hot pain as hundreds of metallic pins and gears stabbed into his body from all sides. All he could do was
Jeez.
collapse, blood slowly oozing out of the suit and pooling onto the floor around him. It couldn't end like this. It wouldn't
My
end
God.
like this. His work was unfinished. Unable to move, his only option
Yeah,
was
that's
to
why he became a
survive, to
virus.
live, to keep living. It took days lying in his own blood, but eventually someone found him. A security guard making a normal report. When he saw the animatronics torn apart in the middle of the party room floor, it caused him to file an immediate report of a break-in. An owner would have to come in and claim the damage. And who else would it be other than Henry? Hope jumped in Afton's heart. Henry would see him. They were partners after all. He would be the one to
Bro,
help
no,
save
you
him, to get
killed
him
his
out of the
daughter,
suit,
bro.
to
You
relieve him
crazy.
from this tremendous pain. Henry entered the secret room. His eyes fell on Afton sitting there in the pool of red, and Henry, saying nothing, turned and walked away.
This is just to inform all employees that due to budget restrictions, the previously mentioned safe rooms are being sealed at most locations, including this one. Nothing is being taken out beforehand, so if you left anything inside...
You know, the guy killed his daughter, I guess, and other kids because he was crazy.
And so there Afton would sit, hanging on for 30 years,
Jesus.
trapped behind the walls with an iron will that refused to die. End of this part. I say this part because it's not officially the end of the Afton era just yet, but this just felt like a really solid stopping point, and the episode has gone on forever. Okay, so most of this is things that we already knew, stuff that's been established and reestablished time and time again by the games. That said, there are two things that I absolutely have to address. The first and biggest is the placement of sister location, or more specifically, Elizabeth's death. To me, evidence in game seems to suggest that it was meant to come before the crying child's death in 1983. The biggest clue to this is that the crying child saw something. Remember what you saw is the phrase that's repeated over and over again by psychic friend Fredbear, aka William Afton speaking through a walkie-talkie in the Fredbear plushie's stomach. But what did he see? Well, I think we can tell based on how the nightmare animatronics are visualized. They have mouths in their stomachs, just like Baby ripping in half at the waist to swallow a kid. There's also the empty girl's room, one presumably left behind by a dead sister. And lastly, it explains why he's scared, and more specifically why Afton wants him scared. He needs his kids to stay away from the animatronics. He doesn't want them getting too close, because the last time one of his kids got too close to a robot, his daughter died. That's then why he sets up the nightmares, to scare both Mike and the crying child away from the animatronics from that point forward. That's why the character encyclopedia outright suggests that we play as the crying child in FNAF 4.
But
That's
the other guy killed the kid, so
following the crying child everywhere, so he can keep tabs on his kids when they're out of his sight. He can't let another Elizabeth situation happen. The death of Elizabeth also gives William Afton extra motivation for killing. He's a grieving father. His daughter was taken away from him,
you're grieving,
so
you don't need to kill
die
people,
as well.
bro.
He's lashing out at the world after losing his kids. And again, we know that at least one of his children had to have died prior to Charlie's death, based on the mound of dirt that we see in Midnight Motorist. It also allows circus babies to open and close earlier in the timeline, which is how you wind up with Funtime Foxy appearing as Mangle in the FNAF 2 location. Basically, Elizabeth dying first has everything it needs to fit, except for the most important thing, the murder weapon. Why would Afton be building an animatronic with a giant claw in its stomach so early in the timeline? At this point, he just has no motive. It just doesn't make sense
experimenting.
Prior to 1983. At this point in the story, he hasn't killed anyone, and we know for a fact that the missing children's incident is 1985. So Elizabeth's death coming before any of those events just doesn't work. Hence why I placed it where I did in the narrative timeline. Afton's death here is also a bit tricky. We know that he returned to the FNAF 1 location to break down the original animatronics in order to harvest their remnant.
It's a virus or
melts down
something.
5 things to become one thing. Candy Cadet makes that very
Also
clear.
cute.
So the 5 things are the 5 endoskeletons from the various animatronics. That would be totally fine if it weren't for one huge problem. On his 5th visit to the pizzeria, Afton gets spring locked. So either the 5 becoming 1 starts in 1993, but then finishes 30 years later when he reemerges from the wall to add the last endoskeleton to his pile, or he's had himself some reason to return to the original location after harvesting all the stuff that he can. It's not ideal, but it's the one angle that makes the most sense. And with that, this next chapter comes to a close, thereby leaving us with 5 more games to cover
in there,
and
so
another 40 plus years of
adorable. Look at
Fazbear history to recap. Ooh, when you put it that way, something tells me that this might balloon into 4 parts. Ugh, we'll see. Anyway, until then, my Faz heads, congratulations!
Faz
You've made
heads,
it through a massive upload. And hey, if you are still looking for more to watch, then check out the other 5 brand new awesome theories over on our new sister location, Style Theory. This thing literally launched today, so this is your chance to be one of the first people to ever subscribe to this brand new theory channel. Get yourself the bragging rights of being there on day 1 and subscribing. I recommend checking out the video on Killer Heels. I think that one's the best starting spot, and then you just explore the channel from there. And again, if you like what you see, give it a subscribe. It has been a super fun journey so far, and we have ourselves some banger episodes coming up over the next couple weeks. Can you be allergic to color like we see on the show Wednesday? How many t-shirts does it take to stop a bullet? Basically, things that you're going to want to be there for. So, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for your subscription. Link is on screen right now. Go over there, check out the channel, give us your watch time, help tell YouTube that this is a channel that is worthwhile and worth sharing across the platform. I have no doubt if you keep an open mind, you're going to love what you see. And as always, my friends, remember, it's all just a theory. A game theory! Give me a week or 2 to recover from this launch, and then we'll finally finish this FNAF theory up.
Okay, let's start a new one.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory and page 20 of our final FNAF timeline. This is getting ridiculous. Last time we covered William Afton's rise as a serial killer. How the loss of his young son in 1983 caused him to make one fateful promise
the other son.
To serve as his driving force for decades. I will put you back together. Fueled by grief and obsession, Afton would lose himself in work and drinks. One night, the rage lashes out against Henry's young daughter Charlie, his first murder. This moment becomes the first domino to fall in a long sequence of events that ultimately destroys William's life and the lives of those around him. That one murder gives Afton a taste for blood, resulting in the deaths of 10 more children across 2 different pizzerias. Those children go on to possess animatronics, giving Afton his first exposure to Remnant and the potential solution for bringing his son back to life. The need to learn more about this miraculous power leads him to produce the Funtime animatronics, as well as their capture devices, robots designed to bring kids to him for experimental experimentation and collection of more remnant. Except there was one thing that he didn't account for: his daughter's curiosity. He made the robots
lol, I guess. That's depressing in a way.
Life. Now with 2 children to put back together, Afton was more desperate and crazed than ever, returning to defunct pizzerias to steal the possessed metal still living inside their walls. What he didn't account for, though, were the ghosts, forcing him to pay for the sins of his past. When last we left him, William was spring-locked, bleeding to death behind a secret wall. Gone, but certainly not forgotten, as we're about to see in today's video. Today, we're finishing up Chapter 2 of our story, wrapping up
it's still the Chapter 2,
jeez. Switch our focus to the other main character of the franchise, Mike, a young boy dealing with the fallout of a stupid childhood decision with tragic consequences. A young man whose life is best described as collateral damage, caught in the blast radius of William's whirlwind of destruction. Now, before we begin, let me just rip off the band-aid now. We won't be finishing the timeline today. I know. I'm sorry. I wanted to.
I know, there's a new other video,
and security breach wound up taking me an additional 9 pages of script. And I've already made you wait long enough for this part, so I just had to make the executive call to break this one up into 2. Don't worry, that part is already written, it is already recorded, it is just in the process of being edited. It is a hefty episode. So mark it
my god, poor guy that did these videos.
On March 25th. It's also coming complete with a live talk back where we go back over everything from the past couple episodes, as well as having ourselves some very special guests. So overall, that was a lot of fun. Fair warning though, the conclusions we've reached that solve security breach, they are controversial. I feel good about them. Like, I think that we've locked in on a lot of the answers here, but they're gonna raise a lot of discussion. Let's just say that you're either gonna love that episode or hate it. I don't really think
keep tiny face. That's adorable.
Anyway, without any further ado, let's cover a chunk of the timeline that's a lot less controversial. Let's meet Mike.
Jesus.
William still wasn't back. Weird. Michael knew his father sometimes traveled for work, disappearing for days on end, but usually there was some sort of notice, a phone call, a post-it, something. It's not like Michael and his father were close, far from it. But as a household of 2 suffering men coping with years of tragedy and loss, there was at least some element of communication between the 2 of them. They were united by a name and a shared pain. This time, though, things felt different. William had left nothing. His absence was longer. There were no check-ins, no updates, just silence.
He's stuck in a suite.
If there was one thing Michael knew about his father, it was that he had contingencies, safety checks, backup plans. His father was a careful and guarded man. He held his cards close to his chest, and as such, William had prepared him in the event that something like this ever happened. Normally, his father kept his home office locked, but in the event of an unexpected, prolonged absence, Michael had been instructed to enter his father's office and look behind an empty set of shelves mounted in the corner of the room. Throwing his eyes, Michael entered the office. Never fully understood how William was able to spend so many hours of his days locked up in here. There was just nothing to do. Most of this place was empty. He dragged himself over to the shelf in the corner, expecting to find an emergency contact list, a family safety deposit box. But what he actually found there was completely unexpected.
Father, a secret interest.
I did it. I found it. It was right where you said it would be.
The shelf swung open and revealed a giant industrial elevator, one that led straight down into an underground bunker. But that was impossible. Hidden inside his childhood home was a secret entrance to an enormous underground science lair? It didn't make any sense. Seriously,
I guess.
It didn't make any sense. And yet, here it was, mapped directly underneath the floor plan of the house that he'd grown up in, lost his brother in, been tortured in. Michael thought that he'd known his father, a prideful, sad, angry man with petty everyday problems, but clearly he'd been living with a stranger this entire time.
I guess, unfortunately,
suddenly the days of William being locked inside of his office made sense. He'd been here the entire time. Where was here, though? Was this Circus Baby's entertainment and rentals? The Circus Baby restaurant always did seem to be a deeply personal project for father. A failure of his that cut unusually deep, especially after that first location had to be closed prematurely due to the gas leaks. After that day, father really did seem to change, to lose himself even more in his work. Clearly, the entrance he had found was some sort of secret back way into the facility, one that required crawling through vents to navigate. His father had been working here, but in secret. Why? And that's when he found her. At the end of the facility, Circus Baby, his father's pride and joy. Except something was different about her. She wasn't like the others. The way she talked, the stories she told. This wasn't just a robot. She was alive somehow. And not only was she alive, she also felt
it's her sister. It's his sister.
Inside of me, I'm broken. I can't be fixed. Will you help me?
Was this His sister? William's
Yeah.
baby girl? But how? Why? What was this place? He dug around some old
Crazy
files
place,
and
I
found
guess.
blueprints outlining the features of these animatronics. Storage containers, voice mimicking, parental tracking. And was that a child in Freddy's stomach?
Jeez.
Was his father collecting and experimenting on kids? Were all the rumors that he'd heard
Yes,
throughout
it
his
was.
past actually true? That the animatronics came to life at night? That there were murders done in all the pizzerias? That his father had somehow been the prime suspect in all of it? Suddenly, Michael's
Kind of
mind flashed
bad,
back to
you
his
know?
persistent nightmares throughout his childhood. Had he been experimented on too? Tears stung in his eyes as anger, fear, and confusion filled his body. His father's secrets were
This is so
pouring out.
dramatic.
William
This looks
wasn't
like
just
a movie.
lame, overworked father. He was a monster, toying with life itself. Suddenly, everything clicked. He frantically looked around the room, blinking human heads on poles staring back at him. Green eyes, his sister. Blue eyes, his brother. Closed eyes, his mom. All just staring expectantly. These were meant to be human. William was working down here trying to make believable humans, literally rebuilding the family that they had both lost. The small little
Well, the
robots
mom
with their
isn't
British
dead,
accents roaming
bro.
the hallways of this underground
I think the
facility.
mom
Suddenly
just
found a
got
whole new
away.
context.
It just got.
Is the same person?
Were those meant to be his sister? A replacement for her? A clone? Was William building clones
Maybe.
of his sister? They
Oh
seemed
my
to
god,
know
no,
him,
wait.
after all, to react to his presence.
They were all there. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you.
He always did have a bit of a resemblance to his father. Michael's mind reeled as the reality of his world crumbled.
Do the robots
to
say
dust.
to
No, he had to get them out of there. If this really was his sister, heck, if any
the purple
of these
guy,
things were
like,
human,
do the
souls,
creation say
whatever
they
remnant of the
creator?
humans that they once were, they needed
I
to
don't
be
know,
rescued.
bro.
They always put us back inside. There's nowhere for us to hide here.
Led by the voice of Circus Baby, he marched through the now empty halls of the Funtime Auditorium. He would lead them. He would protect them. And finally, he would be able to forgive himself for the killing of his brother so many years.
Bro. The.
We are in the scooping room now. The scooper only hurts for a moment.
Scooper, that violent extraction arm? Michael had seen that one in the pile of blueprints. Something about heat rendering the magical silver metal inside useless. In reality, prior to getting himself spring-locked and put behind the wall, William's methods had become increasingly sophisticated, with a mechanized arm that could infuse new bodies with a soul. William could finally give and take away life. The only thing he needed were the bodies.
Yeah,
But
he was
William wasn't the
obsessed
only one
with
looking for bodies,
this
as Michael was
complex.
about
Oh
to
my
learn.
god.
But if we looked like you, then we could hide. If we looked like you, then we would have somewhere to go.
Michael was going to be the hero to help these animatronics, all right. He was going to help the haunted tubes and wires of these animatronics escape, just not the way that he anticipated. His sister had lied to him. Another game of pretend. The scooper
Oh my
plowed
god.
forward, digging its extraction arm into his
I
back.
guess the
As he heard
sister
his
is
bones
mean.
ripping through his flesh, Michael blacked out.
But something is wrong with me. I should be dead, but I'm not.
For the next several months, Michael's life was not his own. He was forced to comply with a tangle of wires and spirits that lived inside of him. His body felt like an overfilled balloon begging to burst as day by day, week by week, his flesh began to sag and discolor. He was a walking, talking, rotting corpse. Alive,
My god,
but wishing he
that's so
wasn't. He
bad.
was a puppet, a walking shell. And while he did his best to conceal his fate, there was only so much a man filled with robot spaghetti could do. The entity in his innards would eventually leave, but by that point, the damage had been done. His decaying flesh stank, turning him into a literal
Purple guy.
But still, even with no bones, even with rotting purple flesh and begging to die, Michael continued to live. That silver
Why?
metal remnant injected by the scooper meant that he couldn't die. His anger also refused to die. What he had seen down there in his sister's location had rocked him to his core. His father had killed and captured dozens. His experiments had killed his sister and then tortured him throughout all his
And his sister
childhood. He was
became
actively
mean?
trying to build
Why?
human
I don't
replicates.
know.
He didn't know where his father was, but Michael knew that he was out there somewhere.
I've been living in shadows. There is only one thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come find you.
Michael had to correct for the sins of his father. He had to make things right. Michael would burn Fazbear Entertainment to the ground. I mean, what else could you do when your skin was permanently purple? Michael's strategy was simple. He would apply for night security guard positions at the old defunct pizzeria locations. That way, no one ever had to see him or smell him during his shift. And all these old shuttered locations did need guards. Teenage vandals and squatters were always looking to get inside these abandoned buildings, and no one ever really wanted to work an overnight graveyard shift unless they were practically out of options. Enter Mike. One by one, he would take on the job of security guard, changing his name each time to ensure that no one was able to follow his paper trail. Once inside, he could tamper with the animatronics and figure out how they worked, writing about his experiences in his security logbook. While there, he would listen to the old tapes where upper management awkwardly welcomed new recruits to their summer jobs, even though he was working there nowhere near the summer months. He heard the gory details of his father's franchise from the outsiders looking in, confused and afraid about what was happening in the walls around them. Sometimes he would see his brother in the form of the Golden Freddy suit. It's me appearing
It's an illusion, I guess.
Except now, there was something else there. He was no longer alone. Another angrier presence was also in the suit, as if two spirits were forced to share the same body. And Golden Freddy would attack him now. It was aggressive.
Why? How? He can't walk.
With the Afton name. Anyone who wore a security guard outfit. Over time, Mike worked his way through the old restaurants. The original pizzeria, the bigger, better Freddy Fazbear's. He spent weeks there looking for clues as to his father's whereabouts. And each time at the end of his week's shift, he would then set the location on fire. Remnant can't survive high temperatures after all. So burning away whatever spirit-laden animatronics that still existed inside seemed like a
well, I guess all locations are bye-bye now.
Though was causing the nightmares to begin again. Hallucinations that brought him back to his childhood. The guilt around killing his brother. His dreams were oddly mixed with the shrill phone calls of the security guards. But it would all be worth it in the end. The goal was to eventually stumble across the one location, the one job that would finally reunite him with his father. Little did Mike know that that day would come sooner than he expected.
Oh, it's an ad.
I just built a budgeting app in Base 44. Guys.
Sorry.
Expected. 2023, an advertisement came across Mike's TV. Fazbear Frights, a new horror attraction inspired by the awful crimes that occurred around Freddy Fazbear's pizza so many years ago. It made Mike sick. People looking to make a quick buck off the tragedy of others.
Yeah, it happens, I guess. It's sad, but...
Regardless, he had to be a part of it. It's
something that actually happens.
They might stumble across something that could be useful. And if his father was truly still alive as he suspected, there would be no way that he wouldn't show up here. Maybe finally this could be the final chapter in his family's marathon of tragedy. Mike applied for the job and was immediately handed the keys. Years of doing this and
so fast.
Rarely received thorough security checks. They also liked how creepy Mike looked. They thought it was a costume on theme for the job. What little they knew.
Hey, glad you came back for another night. I promise it'll be a lot more interesting this time.
For weeks, there was nothing.
Well, I
just
guess.
as Mike considered giving up, he received the call that he'd been waiting for years.
You're not gonna believe this. We found one. A real one.
Could this finally be him?
What?
There he was. William inside his iconic golden Bonnie Springlock suit. Only now it was green and decaying with age. And there they were, a small family of broken men finally reunited. It's been a long time, Dad. Mike had always struggled with the phantoms of his past haunting him, but now all the animatronics he'd encountered over the past months, hopping from pizzeria to pizzeria, suddenly sprang to life. Their burned faces haunting him as he tried to keep track of his father on the cameras. It would seem that William's mere presence had put the spirits on high alert. Ultimately, they were harmless, more annoying than anything else, but there was one that felt different from the others, one that was more than just a mere phantom, the security puppet. If he looked at the cameras at just the right moment, he could see it floating there through the halls. He could even see its reflection in the water pooled on the ground. It would seem like he wasn't the only one there on mission.
I don't think it's a ghost. Yeah, I know it's not a ghost, but
this one was likely
looks like
the spirits of this place, finally setting them to rest. Hopefully this means a happier day for all of us, Mike thought.
I guess.
And in that moment, he felt the air around him release, like pressure being let out of a bottle. The building sighed, as if 5 spirits had finally been allowed to move on. He had the sense that his brother was a part of them. He rigged the wiring inside the building to misfire, and the dry, desiccated walls erupted in flames. It is finished. Except it was not. Somehow, through sheer force of will, Afton remained. He had survived, and Mike would need to find a new way of finishing off his father.
Why
Luckily,
he's
the
still
solution would present
alive?
itself later that year. Not from Mike, but from another victim that had been left in his father's wake.
We're talking about becoming a Fazbear Entertainment
I guess,
franchisee,
Henry.
restaurant ownership and management. Something almost anyone can do with a limited degree of success. You are now the face of the newly rebranded Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
Fazbear Entertainment as a brand had been closed for years. William had been been stuck in a suit and a wall. The only person who legally could bring the franchise back was Henry, but he'd largely pulled out of the franchise around the time of his father's disappearance. Something was up. Surely this had to be some kind of a trick, right? Mike, doing what he did best, applied for a franchise and immediately got the job. There was just one thing out of the ordinary. Paragraph 4.
If you are
Paragraph 4.
That means that not only have you been checking outside at the end of every shift, as you were instructed to do, but also that you have found something that meets the criteria of your special obligations under paragraph 4.
No employment contract
What is
he'd ever signed
paragraph
required him
4?
to keep special lookout for independently moving animatronics outside the restaurant. Now he knew something was up here. Henry was luring them all back. Rather than trying to go to them, like Mike had done for years, Henry was doing the opposite. He was putting them all under the same roof. He was finishing them off for good. Mike knew this wasn't meant to be a restaurant. It was meant to be a prison, a containment vessel, a locked box meant to trap them all in so they could finally end the madness. It took a few nights, but eventually everyone was there. His father, the puppet, the robot Spaghetti that had once violated his body, and his sister, now hopelessly devoted to serve the man that had once gotten her killed. It was time. He had been instructed to seal the doors and leave, but while he locked everything down, he didn't move on. If this was truly meant to be the end, if the remnant needed to be washed away, he needed to be a part of that.
This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you,
this looks like an exorcism, bro. Jeez.
More waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, old friend.
And with that, it was over. The Afton legacy died with all of them trapped inside of a literal box. As the flames danced around the office, Mike, for the first time in decades, was happy. But William wasn't gone yet. Although the darkest pit of hell was open and waiting for him, something or someone wouldn't allow him to move on. Instead, he found himself locked in moments from his past. The pizzeria, his son's room, his underground bunker. It was as if his brain's neurons were all firing at once, overloaded, mixing and matching all his biggest fears, regrets, failures. What was this place? How did he get here?
Purgatory.
Into the silence. Then they started coming. Without warning, animatronics, both new and old, began to jump out at him, bite him, rip him limb from limb. The pain was immeasurable. Make it stop. Make it stop. William, for the first time, longed for death. And
bro, you made others suffer. Jeez. Now you can suffer? My god.
As if the world had been reset. There was a brief moment of quiet, and then the onslaught began again. Dozens of faces from his past all focused on him. A waking nightmare that he couldn't escape from. More pain, more ripping.
Look at
his own personal hell, but why? Why couldn't he just die? And then he saw them, a group of characters he never thought he'd see again. Those janky, stolen
this face is so like, bro.
Mediocre melodies. It had all started to go wrong once they showed up, once Henry had made them. But mixed in with their obnoxious southern drawls, William heard something else. It was barely a whisper, but he could just make out the words.
He tried to release you. He tried to release us. But I'm not gonna let that happen. I will hold you here. I will keep you here. No matter how many times they burn us.
Jeez.
That voice.
Well, wait. They're still alive?
The one he shouldn't have killed. William thought back. He'd done a lot of awful things, but there was always the one that stood out. Not Charlie, his drunken act of revenge. Not Susie, his first true murder, no. Instead, it was the one that he had lost control with. The one that he had broken beyond repair for no good reason other than because he could. The one that he'd stuffed inside the golden bear that his partner used to wear. Cassidy. They were back, and now they were trying to punish him, to make him suffer like he'd made them suffer. It was almost like William and Cassidy's souls had been locked together, fused by a collective rage and spite, each refusing to move on. But while Cassidy was so focused on taking revenge, they actually did the one thing that would be the downfall for so many others. They kept William alive. Even though fire should have destroyed the remnant that was
wait, he's actually alive.
Kept William breathing.
It was not purgatory, it was not hell. Okay, and I'm confused.
But himself inside the circuitry that housed the spring-locked suit. And there,
let's just try and think.
Circuit board waiting for someone to find him
and
a
virus.
A person that no one would suspect. Okay, so a bit of a shorter chunk, but an important one as we shift perspectives to Mike and tell his side of the story. And with FNAF VR, AR, and Security Breach having so much to explain, I didn't want to rush through things by trying to cram it all in.
Let's wait till the ads are over. Sorry. Okay, so basically, William Afton is still alive because Cassidy wanted him to still be alive. Right? But how? Wasn't he a virus now? I still don't understand this. Like, this is so confusing.
Don't worry, I know you've all been patient. The final video is happening on March 25th. That is locked.
Okay.
It's getting ready to go. Trust me, I want this thing to be over and done with as much as you. I am not just stretching it out for the views. But before we wrap up for the day, I did want to talk about the big Orville elephant in the room, Mike's quest for revenge. You might have noticed that I was vague about the dates, and there's a good reason for that. I don't know them. There is no good way for me to make them fit in. Here's what I do know. We know with a high amount of certainty that Michael Afton is the character that we play as up until Ultimate Custom Night. Mike Schmidt and Fritz Smith, the security guards for FNAF 1 and FNAF 2 respectively, get fired for, quote,
you're getting Spanish ads?
So
oh my god, slay!
Now, look at the phantom animatronics that are haunting us in FNAF 3. They use models
maybe it's because of me? I don't know if it's related. It's kind of crazy and funny.
And that's not all. Their designs are burnt. It's a weird detail in the game, and it's something that the character encyclopedia repeatedly calls attention to. The burned texture for these phantom animatronics. Why is that so unusual, though? Fazbear Frights is the first time in the franchise that we hear about anything burning down. From that point on in the story, it's like the characters turn pyro and are suddenly setting fires left and right. But for the first
I don't speak Spanish though, but my aunt is Peruvian though. Slay. That's really cool.
So when did they burn? And why would our security guards see them as being burned? Someone has to have been going location to location, setting these places on fire, purging the sins of the past. We know we're definitely playing as Mike and Sister Location in FNAF 6 based on the in-game dialogue. And in FNAF 4, there's an Easter egg where we can hear the phone call from night 1 of FNAF 1, meaning that whoever's in that bedroom has heard the recording as a security guard. We also know that Mike has seen the nightmare animatronics based on his drawings in the security logbook. So overall, there is solid evidence that connects all of FNAFs 1 through 6. You'll also notice how the character encyclopedia doesn't have a page
look at Tiny Foxy in there, so cute. That's adorable.
But not Michael? Some tells me they don't want us to confirm how many games he's been in, because that would confirm too much of the theory. In short, this gives us an incredibly compelling and complete narrative. Mike as our protagonist and William, his father, as our antagonist. Mike accidentally kills his brother in Fredbear's mouth, which begins our story and sets William down his pathway of destruction. Mike is haunted by the guilt of his past and is looking to make things right across the rest of the games. In Sister Location, he learns what his father's been up to and realizes what he has to do to correct it. After failing to finish the job in FNAF 3, he ultimately helps Henry end it all in FNAF 6. It is great. It is a clean narrative. There is just one problem: timing. Mike's quest can't really start until he's been down to Sister Location, seen baby, and gotten himself scooped. That's when he finds out about Afton's secret life. It's also when he's gonna start to smell, because, you know, he's a walking, talking, rotting corpse. And we know that he's not going down into the bunker until the Funtime animatronics have been made, Freddy's has been closed, and Afton is out of the picture. That all should be happening post-1993, after William is sealed behind a wall. But that then presents us with a few problems. Afton has already dismantled the original animatronics as we see in the FNAF 3 minigames. How are those things getting burned if they're already deconstructed?
Yeah, true.
Importantly, we see FNAF 2 paychecks with the date 1987. That is way earlier than I think it can be. To be fair, Fritz Smith's pink slip on night 7 doesn't have a date, but it's a bit weird to say that the first few nights are in 1987 and then employee number 3 is hired on years after the restaurant closes. Anyway, just wanted to call that out.
Just wanted you to add the Orso game.
I'd love to see your comments down below.
It just is 1 hour. It's 2 hours, I said. Please, thank you.
March 25th for the grand finale as we cover the final 3 games in the franchise and the controversial answers we think solves what those games were trying to tell us. Until then, my Faz heads, remember, even though Afton kinda succeeded in being brought back to life, gotta admit, he's still looking a little bit on the dry, dehydrated side. I suppose 3 fires and being dead for a decade.
Oh my god, cute tiny moods laughing, thank you.
Sponsor AirUp, I think we can help him out with the hydration thing, not the whole burning alive thing.
You guys know
that I hate drinking plain water. It's just boring. And that then led me to my
water. What's the problem?
Addiction. However, AirUp has found a way to harness the power of science to get me to drink more water, which not only do I love in principle, but I can truly say has changed my drinking habits forever. They use these special scent pods that fit directly onto the top of the bottle, and almost as if by magic, it makes the water taste like basically anything you want. How? If you guys have ever watched Food Theory, you've probably heard me say that
can I make it taste like ice cream?
That's exactly what Air Up's taken advantage of here. These pods are full of flavorful smells like watermelon, peach, wild berry. That one's my personal favorite. And by having the pods in front of your nose as you're drinking, it makes your brain think that that's what you're tasting. But in fact, you're just drinking good old H2O. No additives, no preservatives, no sugars, no syrups, no aspartame, no nothing.
Water.
I love my Air Up. But naturally, when
I
I
need
tell
Dr.
other
Pepper
people
flavored
about it,
water.
Skeptical, right? It's a weird
I never tried Dr. Pepper, but now I guess they can get it with that thing, I guess.
Tom, three of our creative directors, they walk around with their Air Up bottles constantly. Lee loves his so much that he even bought one for his brother's wedding present. Tom said that the orange vanilla swirl flavor reminded him of ice creams that he used to eat as a kid, which sounds way more exciting than just
go to my bedroom and get the keys.
If you aren't like me and you just want some good old-fashioned water every once in a while, you just drop the flavor pod down.
I was talking to my mom, sorry.
And suddenly you're back to
oh my god, cute animal, thank you!
The team and I love Air Up.
Get Manzanita official on Dr. Pepper. Bro, I don't think Dr. Pepper is sold here. Oh, I was talking with my mom, sorry.
And click the link to purchase your bottle right now. Plus, if you purchase any starter set and use the code FREEFAVE5, you'll receive one free favorite 5 variety pack. That's
slay, free.
1-pod packs of orange vanilla, raspberry lemon, peach, watermelon, and again, my personal favorite, wild
berry. I think I saw Pepper once on a store. Bro, how?
And you can find the one
isn't it illegal here?
Tasting enjoyment. Sadly, there's no burning metal or remnant flavors for Afton to enjoy, but I'm sure the others will do the trick. Strikes me as a raspberry
so cute
kind of guy. So once again, head on down to the description, get yourself a starter pack, and remember to use the code FREEFAVE5. That is FREEFAV number 5, no spaces, to get your free favorite 5 variety pack. Experience how crazy awesome a water bottle can really be. And as always, my friends, remember, it's all just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for...
Okay, I will go to the bathroom. I'm gonna explain something.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game
what
Theory,
happened?
And
Jesus,
the final
calm down.
part of my FNAF timeline, where today we're bringing our story to a close by talking about the most complicated and controversial part of the timeline, the part that I've been dreading most of all, the end. The moment where we're finally forced to come to some definitive and difficult answers trying to explain what the heck we were watching in Security Breach. The last 2 episodes have been about death. The death of Afton's family, the deaths of multiple children, the death of the franchise itself as Mike and Henry figuratively and literally burn it all down. Today's episode, though, and the current end of this franchise, is instead all about rebirth, the return of old characters in new forms, and the controversial rebirth of a franchise entering the next era of its story. But before we hop into the timeline, due to scheduling conflicts, I won't be able to have any live talk back after this episode. I know, I promised one, I was really excited about it, but I just couldn't make it work with my schedule and all the other guests' schedules. That said, I still do plan on doing one over the coming weeks with special guests. Just make sure that you're subscribed and either have all notifications turned on, or you're just watching our community tab for the announcement as to when that's gonna happen. And now, without any further ado, we finally reach the end and a new beginning to our story.
Okay, the post-Purple Guy era.
Fazbear Entertainment was dead.
There is no need for you to return to work next week, as Fazbear Entertainment is no
bro,
longer a
how many people
entity.
lost their jobs, bro?
All assets redistributed. The company was outright dissolved. Even the memories of the horrors that had happened there started to fade away in the public consciousness. The people were gone too. William was dead. Henry was gone. A whole generation of young Emilys and Aftons had lost their lives to the horrors of the pizzeria.
Everyone
all of
dead,
them collateral damage to the man in the bunny suit. Everyone the company had ever touched was dead and gone.
Jeez, true.
Well,
almost like a curse.
Hey, child support, you deadbeats! I'm keeping the diamond ring. I also set the
mom
house on fire.
dead. Mommy's not dead.
She'd been there in the early days, back when things with William were good. They'd had the perfect home, a thriving business, the ideal family. But shortly after their youngest son died, things started to change. William had become distant, lost in his work, obsessive. She had watched him change from this irritatingly brilliant man that she had fallen in love with to a drunken monster struggling to hold himself together. And despite her trying to reach out to him in those desperate days, he was just too far gone.
Okay, so actually the mom has some impacting story.
For her sake, she had to leave the relationship, and from there, she largely faded into obscurity. A mystery from William's past, a footnote in his history, and that was fine for her. She wanted to leave that part of her life behind. She tried to move forward, never wanting to hear the name Freddy Fazbear again. A time defined by mistakes and broken promises.
Oh, look, a cute tiny
but then,
flower.
the paperwork started to arrive. As Fazbear Entertainment began to close as a corporate entity, suddenly her mail was flooded with notifications, requests, obligations. She had been there since the beginning, helping William in the early days of his business, and now, as a shareholder and sole living member of the Afton family, all copyrights and trademarks of both Afton Robotics and Fazbear Entertainment passed on to her.
Well,
memories of this past
do
life
something
she
with
had
that, I
long
guess.
left behind. Looking at the blueprints, the contracts, the memos, she felt old wounds begin to reopen. The regrets of a happy family that had been torn away from her. William had always been brilliant. That's what had attracted her to him in the first place. But he'd also been too blinded by obsession and pride. He was too jealous, too petty, too unable to actually see a bigger picture. But now, holding the paperwork that contained decades of heartbreak and trauma, she realized it was her turn. She was holding the power. This was her chance. And one thought resonated in her head. I will put them back together. I will put them all back together. She would be the one to rebuild this family, to rebuild the pieces of that shattered life, to reclaim the kids that Fazbear had stolen from her.
They all dead.
Looking at William's work now laid out before her, she knew that he had been onto something, collecting remnant, robotic humanoids, digital conscience transference. The pieces were all in place. They were just scattered, fragmented. It was almost like there were too many ideas going in too many different directions. It was such an important idea that she reiterated that point to herself. There were too many ideas going in too many different directions. That said, there had to be a way to save it all. She just needed to put it all back together. But how? To rebuild her family, she would first need to rebuild the franchise that had stolen them away from her. With ownership over the characters, their licenses, the technology patents, and the Fazbear name, she converted the corporation back to an LLC, a structure for smaller businesses that are
because
usually
Agony still didn't show up in the timeline.
From there, she would need Remnant, and lots of it. Remnant was the key. Clearly, in the later years of his life,
don't tell
William
me
had been
she's
using
gonna
Circus
start
Baby's Entertainment and
kids.
Rentals as a remnant farm, sending robots to kids' birthday parties in the hopes of nabbing bits of the stuff here and there. But clearly, it wasn't enough. He had, what, like 4, maybe 5 animatronics going out every week? No. It was a decent idea, but to get the remnant they required, it needed scale. Dozens, hundreds of animatronics all out there, all gathering remnant from unsuspecting customers. But to do that would require help, something William would never ask for. William had kept everything in-house. His obsession with control limited him. Clara, though, she wasn't nearly that precious. A plan like this required partners, people outside of Fazbear to do the heavy lifting. So she contacted a mid-sized delivery company, DLZ Shipping Solutions, to help build replicas of all the original animatronics. And with meal delivery apps being all the rage, why not an animatronic delivery service? Order one to celebrate your birthday, your Halloween party. How about a 4th of July picnic? We'll invite Liberty Chica and 4th of July Freddy on over. She would make sure that they made skins for every occasion. Chocolate Bonnies for Easter, Shamrock Freddy's for St. Patrick's Day, Dia de los Muertos Chicas. And thus, the Fazbear Funtime service was born.
That's right. With the Fazbear Funtime service, you'll never be alone again. You'll always have someone watching your back.
Was it ridiculous? Absolutely. Was it a sellout? No doubt.
So
it was
slight,
exactly the sort of thing that William would have hated, but it needed to be done to get enough remnant. Normally, the novelty of ordering an animatronic wore off after like what, 1, maybe 2 times? But with new skins for new holidays, suddenly you had yourself an animatronic perfect for every occasion. It would keep people hooked. It would keep them ordering the latest and greatest that Fazbear Entertainment LLC had to offer.
Those skins are so
all the
cool.
while they'd be
Look
collecting
at
and
that.
returning the
That's
remnant
amazing.
back to her. In a word, it was brilliant. There was just one problem with it. No one trusted the Fazbear name. The company's brand was still mud in the public eye. No one would want to hire animatronics from the restaurant franchise known for murdering children. Nothing kills a party quite like the threat of death, you know.
Jeez,
so she
so
needed
sad.
to find a way to discredit the stories that had come before. She needed to win back the public's affections,
Make a
reactivate reactivate some nostalgia for the spooky stories of their childhoods. She needed a game. Multiple games, in fact.
They lied to us. They lied to all of us. They told us that the whole point of this VR game was to undo the bad PR done by a rogue indie game developer. But that's not true at all. Those indie games were designed to conceal and make light of what happened. This isn't just an attempt to rebrand. It's an elaborate cover-up.
Struggling game developers were a dime a dozen online, most working on their magnum opus between shifts at the Dollar General. So she found one. Steve just picked him out of obscurity. The right mix of desperate and doofus, willing to say and do anything for a couple extra bucks. And he fell right in line, as expected, delivering stupid little things with dumb generic names like Mangle's Quest, Balloon Boy's Air Adventure, Five Nights at Freddy's. Bad gameplay with even worse graphics, but hey, they got the job done. People were suddenly talking about the clues inside of these things, searching for the hidden lore. They were actively making jokes about dead kids at pizzerias. Her husband's twisted history of serial murder had suddenly been reduced to a mere Nancy Drew mystery to be solved. The plan had worked. Freddy Fazbear's was suddenly more popular than ever. Things were going shockingly well. Her takeover and reboot of the franchise was
I guess she's a genius.
Suddenly infused with cash, she built the largest, most ambitious project yet, the Mega Pizzaplex. William had always been so visionary, but always thought so small scale. He was careful to a fault. Not her, though. She knew that this latest project needed to be big. It needed to be flashy. It needed to be a palace for children, a place that got people talking and checking out the latest in Fazbear products. So with a steady supply of remnant flowing in, it was finally time. The stage was set. It was time to get to her real goal, literally rebuilding a family.
Okay, she got success now. Let's go to the crazy part, I guess.
The first was obvious. The crying child, her little boy, the one that was the first.
How is she still alive, bro?
She'd seen down in his bunker that William had gotten very close to replicating artificial humans using animatronic technology. And so that's exactly what she would do. Rebuild her boy from the ground up using robotic parts. His shaggy brown hair, his favorite striped shirt, even down to small details that no one would notice, like the band-aid on his left knee. William's research had even found ways of making animatronics that could bleed and process food, making them virtually indistinguishable from a typical human. He would never have any idea of what he actually was unless he was explicitly told. The only things that could possibly ruin the illusion were any overrides to his internal systems. If something were to, say, interfere with the cameras that he had in his eyes, or cause some sort of a core reboot to his hard drive, or x-ray his metallic bones, then yeah, he would be exposed. But otherwise, to the outside world, he was just your typical, normal human boy. She worked down in the bowels of the Pizzaplex, giving him life, but it was one thing to build him, it was another to help him remember his identity. He died so young, so early in their history.
Yeah,
that there was
how
no
much memory does he have?
No documentation that she
young.
could just download into his digital brain. So bit by bit, she trained him, forcing him to remember who he was. In a corner of the room, she even made a makeshift dinner table, a reminder of their happier days. The family recreated: 2 brothers, a sister, a father, and the mother at the head of the table. The one in charge,
so
the one in command, the one bringing all of this to fruition.
She's getting crazy too, bro. There's no way.
Slower than she would have liked. At first, he could only communicate through simple ones and zeros, then rudimentary
binary code, I guess.
Letters. But bit by bit, images of his past life started to come through. Balloons, colors, houses, bears and faces, birthday parties, all for me. Gregory
so cute.
Was alive. As the robot boy embraced her, she felt the warmth that she hadn't in decades. This was the joy that she'd been working towards. This was what it was all for. Her son, back in her arms again. The plan was working. She had to keep going. Next
the guy is a robot theory.
Kind of put together. She would
what do you think it is, then? I don't know, bro. This is kind of messy, but
place where Henry had trapped him.
You know?
In fact, that's specifically why she insisted on building the Pizzaplex there over the sinkhole. It was the best place to hide what her true intentions were with the entire operation.
Oh my god.
Digging through the wreckage, she found him. He was right where she thought he'd be. Seeing the putrid shell of the Springtrap
that's horrible.
was not something she was prepared for. The rotting corpse of William Afton was disgusting.
My god, that's so
flesh fused into the fur lining. Hollow black sockets where eyes once were. A smell that reeked of burned carbon and bloody iron. He was no longer flesh. He was just the tangled sinews of a creature that was once called human.
Jesus.
How far this brilliant man had fallen. It was clear that her work was cut out for her on this one. Afton was practically lifeless. The man may not have been able to die, but he was about as close as you could come. And his body would need a lot of reconstruction. Replacement arms and
what do you think Gregory is? Do you think Gregory is a human?
Pulled from their new
or an alien? Maybe an alien.
You'd have to see if they had any spare body parts lying around that they could steal. In the meantime, though, she threw the husk that was once her husband into a life support pod infused with aerosolized remnant to help keep him stable. But more important than recovering his body was recovering his mind. In his current state, he was comatose, an empty shell. Severe brain damage starts at temperatures over 108 degrees Fahrenheit. 42 degrees Celsius, and years of repeated fires had burned his brain.
Jeez.
Gone was the brilliant, frustrating mind that had drawn her to him in the first place. But she had a plan. Unlike her darling boy Gregory, Afton had found ways to record his consciousness.
Oh my
Fundamentally,
God,
the brain is only a series of electrical connections after all, so why couldn't you replicate that in the form of a standard circuit board? In essence, you could create a digital consciousness. And one thing she knew about William, he was nothing if not cautious. A planner. Someone who had backup plans to his backup plans. And sure enough, there it was. Buried in piles of old animatronic CPUs, a record of Afton himself.
Well, not so sly because the guy is crazy.
Someone was definitely here during the night. It had to have been the client. I mean, they sent us that stuff in the first place with no explanation, told us to scan it, said it would expedite the process so we wouldn't need to program any pathfinding ourselves.
Unlike the other games that she'd paid to have made in the past, this one had a different purpose. This wasn't about PR, it was about getting William back up and running, spreading his virus to the masses.
Why? Is she got crazy too?
Is not responsible for accidental digital consciousness transference, real-world manifestations of digital characters.
She hired a new developer.
Yeah, she got crazy too.
To scan the boards and bring her husband into the system. And because of the immersive nature of VR, William's consciousness would be able to merge with the player, giving him a new body, a new agency. There was just one complication. Afton's hold wasn't as powerful as she had hoped. He wasn't able to gain complete control. The first trial run, Jeremy, was so desperate to escape from his grasp that he sliced his own face off with a paper shredder. Messy. Afton's followers were reluctant, to say the least. But it was the second attempt that looked like it had the potential to kill two birds with one stone. Enter Vanessa.
How can you
Mrs.
kill
Afton
two birds
wanted
with
a
one
surrogate
stone? That's
daughter.
a lot.
Her darling Elizabeth would have been a young woman at this point if she had lived. And Clara wanted someone who wasn't Elizabeth, but could be just like her. Could she have just rebuilt her like Gregory? Sure, but she decided against it because she wanted an actual human mother-daughter connection. Well, that, and it would be redundant and narratively unsatisfying to have two robot kids in the same family. What could she say? William had put a lot of tools on the table for her to use, and she was planning on using them all.
So
Plus,
cute.
Elizabeth had always been so loyal to Daddy. It was time to give her a second chance, a true choice. And Vanessa seemed to be the perfect candidate to fill the role.
Your dad's name was Bill. Your dad didn't play fair, did he? He used to make your mum look bad in court. He manipulated you. I know your mum after she lost the custody case. I was supposed to.
She
I was going to
as a
say the
QA
therapist
tester at
was
Silver
mom, but
Parasol
it's not.
Games,
Sorry.
the VR game development company that was part of her plan to bring back William.
Oh,
More
so cute, so
importantly,
tiny.
Vanessa checked all the correct boxes. Right age, blonde, green eyes with a fondness for flowers and the outdoors. In many ways, it was her daughter all over again.
So cute.
Except it wasn't just looks and personality. What really mattered was Vanessa's mind. Underconfident, coming from a broken home, motherless, able to be manipulated. Yes. She would do nicely. She would be the one to save dear old Daddy, just as the real Elizabeth would have wanted.
I will make you proud, Daddy.
While testing the VR game, William's digital consciousness merged with Vanessa. Oh sure, she fought, fragmenting Afton's code into a series of tapes hidden across the game, trying to do web searches to regain control over her life, but it wasn't enough. She was weaker than Jeremy. She was a thrall that, despite occasional moments of lucidity, had to obey. And with Vanessa, it was a 2-for-1 deal. She was getting a daughter back, while also bringing her husband one step closer to reactivation. She just had to make sure that Vanessa was headed the right way. The reborn Gregory was an expert hacker, part of the benefits of being Afton and a robot. So Clara had him keeping tabs on Vanessa, hacking into her emails and trailing her therapy sessions to ensure the future Elizabeth was falling in line. If any of the therapists started to ask too many questions, they were promptly dismissed from their positions. And while Gregory kept tabs on Vanessa's personal life, Mrs. Afton made sure to clear a path for her professionally. With Silver Parasol's collapse at the hands of the anomaly, she then had the possessed Vanessa bring the container contaminated circuit boards to DLZ shipping and the Fazbear Funtime service. More glitches, more Remnant, more Afton.
But she was obsessed with her
masterpiece of poetry. She brought Vanessa over to be chief security
She was obsessed with her husband, bro.
True family tradition to don the hat and badge, and all it took was a recommendation from the top as well as some emails marked for deletion. Sure, Vanessa didn't have relevant experience for the job, but when it comes directly from the CEO, does it really matter? Husband, son, daughter, a corpse, a robot,
misses the other one.
All that was left was Michael. Poor, troubled Michael. The boy that killed her youngest.
Probably she
doesn't want him back. The one that would spend years
trying
to make his guilty conscience right again. A self-professed protector. Well, she knew she needed him to complete the family. Something told her that the problem had already solved itself.
Yeah, she didn't.
Something had shifted when using Glamrock Freddy to excavate the buried pizza place.
I have been here before. I found myself.
Look at these eyes, like, what? Like, this face is so funny. Look at this.
Here, but I can protect you. I am not me.
Maybe it was the remnant that had coursed through Michael's veins. Maybe it was the spirit of Michael living on as a protector. But he was there, somewhere inside of Glamrock Freddy.
I guess less than that, don't worry.
And just like that, she'd won. She'd done it. Sure, there were still some things to work out, some final brainwashing of Vanessa, some rehabilitation of William, but they were there. Finally, all together again.
It's kind of a crazy family, but I guess if she's happy with that.
That's how it could have ended. That's how it should have ended, had it not been for a few unanticipated developments. For one, something was just wrong with the Pizzaplex. Almost as if the entire building was haunted, possessed. Puppet plushies hiding on ceilings, behind crates, places that they had no earthly way of belonging.
No, it's kind of scary and cute at the same time. I don't know how to explain that.
Puppeteered by some sort of a nightmare. Even their sounds had the echo of nightmares long past.
Aye.
It was as though a guardian spirit of the past refused to move on. As long as her husband was around, it too would linger. Only now, it wasn't just in one body, but it was in the essence of the building itself. She had seen stories of houses built on burial grounds getting possessed by angry spirits, but she'd never assumed that it could be real. Then again, in a world of living spirit metal and mind-controlling glitches, who was she to be so judgmental? The whole thing was ridiculous. Why would this be the line that she refused to cross? After all, the Pizzaplex was built over the burial ground of angry spirits, but it was the power cords that finally convinced her that something was wrong. Suddenly, these cords were striped black and white, like the security puppet from generations ago. The very foundations of this place, the materials and wires that constituted it were rebelling against her, against the Aftons, against the quest to bring them all together.
Getting mad
and it was being helped by something else, something slithering through the building. Maybe they were connected, she couldn't be sure, but a blob of living wires could be heard oozing through the walls, stealing pieces and parts of the old animatronics showcased in Rockstar Row. She could only assume that it was a byproduct of all the remnant they'd been collecting. From Afton's testing, she knew that both light and dark remnant existed, one of positive emotions and the other created from anguish, anger, agony. Perhaps this thing was an amalgamation of all the darkest parts of the pizzeria's history, a collection of the hatred still housed inside these defunct endoskeletons and
ads. Let's wait till the ads are over. Let's wait till the ads are over. Okay, it's just a bit. Okay, I guess the ads are over.
Exosuits. As long as it was left alone, it seemed to be harmless. But if any Afton outside of Michael got too close, it would lash out wildly. Even young Gregory, looking to punish the family that had been complicit in its horrible creation. Little did she know, though, that Gregory should have been her biggest concern. That bringing the family together would have some unforeseen consequences.
I made a snack while I wait for the community play.
He had literally built him that way. But lately, he'd been disappearing more and more often, disobeying her orders. requests. She knew that he loved playing on the arcade machines once the Pizzaplex closed, being so good as to top the leaderboard on practically all of them. But lately, he was nowhere to be found. She suspected his absence had to do with Glamrock Freddy's failed performance the other night, when he malfunctioned live on stage, almost as though the core programming of Freddy responded to seeing this rebuilt small boy. Almost like it awakened something inside of him. She'd have to make sure that Vanessa was on the lookout for him, but she'd soon come to learn that Vanessa wasn't enough. Whether it was the influence of the nightmare puppet or a reawakened hatred of animatronics seated deep in Gregory's code, something had caused him to rebel, to rip apart each animatronic in the Pizzaplex. Bit by bit, this boy was tearing down the empire that she'd so painstakingly built, freeing Vanessa from her mind control, destroying the remains of Afton in the basement, sending Glamrock Freddy loose as her carefully created world crumbled around her one more time. She began to plot her revenge. She would have to bring them all to ruin. And there you have it, my friends. Nearly a decade in the making, my FNAF timeline for where the franchise is here in 2023.
So she basically built the family, now she wants to kill the family again. Oh my god.
Without going over some of the more controversial takes that I just handed out, I think we can all agree that this part of the timeline was always going to be the hardest. So let me just break down some of the major points. First of all, the biggest swing of this episode, and obviously the one that everything else rests upon, Mrs. Afton being the CEO of Fazbear Entertainment LLC. Here's why I went with this route. Now, first and foremost, the head of Fazbear Entertainment is the single biggest mystery that we're meant to solve at this point in the lore. The Ultimate Guide brings it up repeatedly. Who's running the show? Who's okaying these decisions? And in the security breach memos, we get multiple mentions of someone manipulating things from the top down. Whoever this is, they are the person driving forward every other facet of late-stage FNAF lore here. They're the puppet master who's hiring the indie dev. They're the ones relaunching the brand, building the Pizzaplex over the burial ground. So everything at the end of the timeline relies on this one singular answer. Now, as I see it, there are two possibilities here. One, an adult robot Elizabeth, like we see older versions of robot kids in the closet, or Mrs. Afton. Could it be someone completely new to the franchise?
They say there's a part in the ending of the game that there are two Vanessas.
It would be pretty random and arbitrary. So
one that is wearing the Vanny suit and the one that is watching in the roof.
But then, what's
how do they
Vanessa's
explain
role in all
that?
of this? Vanessa is clearly meant to be a parallel for Elizabeth. Same hair, same eyes, similar backstories, but if the main goal is getting the Afton family back together, which seems to clearly be the case in Security Breach, then there's no need for Vanessa
never really hinted that he's a robot. Okay, but what about double Vanessa?
It would also mean that we suddenly have two robot kids running around, which feels narratively repetitive and quite frankly kind of dumb. Now look at Mrs. Afton. We know next to nothing about her outside of any clues that we can get from Immortal and the Restless and Bellora's song. But what her being head of Fazbear does is make every other piece of the lore fit. Suddenly, you can have one of every other type of character. One robot kid in Gregory, one brainwashed human in Elizabeth.
That ending is kind of metaphor where Vanessa gets free from that side of her. Okay, thank you. That makes sense, actually.
It makes everything else cleaner. Legally, it's also the option that makes the most sense. As I call out in my narrative, she'd likely have some stake in the original company and all of its assets. So as Fazbear folds as a company, I'd suspect a lot of it would return back to her. But there was one clue that really sold me on this particular direction, and that was this right here, in the Post-it room. The big lore central of Security Breach, a dinner table scene with the whole family, including the mother. And not only is she there, she is at the head of that table, the position of highest honor and responsibility. She is the one in charge, with William being relegated off to the side. That one scene shows that we have to include Mom in there somewhere, and the only place it makes sense for her to be is at the top. Now, there is one big dilemma with my interpretation of all this. The Ultimate Guide really seems to point out that the head of Fazbear doesn't want the glitch trap virus to spread. They call out one particular email in FNAF AR where the legal team calls a cease and desist to all action about scanning the circuit boards. And even in FNAF VR, we're told that the circuit boards get stolen back by the client, presumably once they realize what danger is on there, trying to stop glitch trap before he spreads and gets out of hand. Here's the problem with that though. If the head of Fazbear doesn't want Afton to rise again, why'd they restart the company in the first place? Why'd they build over the FNAF 6 pizzeria? Why'd they go through an elaborate cover-up to make the possessed Vanessa an important part of the company? Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It would be the most inconsistent series of actions ever, but I didn't want to call attention to it since it seems to be the route that the official guide is trying to steer us towards. Moving on to minor point number 1, the Five Nights at Freddy's games were made by the Rogue indie developer. Here's the thing, FNAF VR opens with this line.
That's why we have recreated many of these completely fictitious scenarios, lies that you've been been fed over the last
yeah,
several
there was a theory that the Golden Freddy didn't exist.
It's recreating the lies told to you by the indie developer. And since Help Wanted has direct recreations of FNAFs 1 through 3, it means the games must be part of the fabrications that this developer made up. Also, all of this is heavily implied in the story of the same name, Help Wanted and Tales of the Pizzaplex, hence FNAF 1 through 3, canon games within the lore of the series. Big swing number 2, the elephant, or ghost in the room, Charlie infecting the Pizzaplex. John from the channel FNAF has made some great findings about Charlie's influence over the Pizzaplex. The cables that looked like the striped arms of the puppet, the Nightmarion plushies that you find hidden across the Pizzaplex in weird places, the staff bots with creepy smiles and in your dreams written on the front. All of these things scream puppets. Plus, the puppet mask not having tears in the blob seems to imply that Charlie's spirit exists elsewhere. She is still in play, and she has an important role, especially in Gregory's post-it room. The doors to the post-it room in the game's code are called Charlie doors. And inside we see a bunch of lit up nightmare staff bot heads. Suspicious, to say the least. The channel ID Fantasy did a great theory looking at the post-it notes, concluding that the crying child / Gregory isn't alone in this room, but rather might be communicating with someone. A spirit, Charlie.
Part the reason FNAF logo is because it wasn't as deep. But sequels were made as a fun theorized, Scott tried to make things be not like theories, or integrate theories into the canon.
Spirits communicating with
or maybe he could just make his thing without
so we know that this is an established
right?
means of spirit communication within this franchise.
They
and I suspect that to some extent it might be
just
Charlie's influence making Gregory
I don't
go
care,
haywire,
I'm gonna
which
do my
brings
stuff,
me then
right?
to my final and probably biggest controversy in recent FNAF history, Gregory as Patient 46, the evil robot mastermind. Now, I know when I first came out with this theory a year ago, people were mad. But here's the thing, you don't have to take my evidence points for it anymore. The recent Tales from the Pizzaplex story, GGY, basically goes and just outright proves it. In GGY, we find out about a boy named Gregory who's getting all the high scores in the Pizzaplex arcade machines. When therapists start to go missing, it's confirmed that GGY is the one that's working to bump him off. And when animatronics start getting corrupted by a mysterious glitch, GGY's letters are found inside the code. He even chooses the code name Dr. Rabbit, for crying out loud. But obviously, by the time the security's breached, Gregory is working against Ferntrap, Vanessa, and the
okay, so it's a mess.
Why? How? Well, it's not really clear. I tend to believe that something must have happened to cause him to either lose his memory or be reset in some way. Maybe it was Charlie talking to him in his post-it room. Maybe he hit his head. Maybe it was the connection that he made with Mike on stage in Glamrock Freddy. Not exactly sure, and I don't think we have enough clues to solve any of it yet. But it makes sense from a story perspective why he'd start off evil on Afton's side and then switch to trying to destroy him and not knowing who he is in Security Breach. And with that, my friends,
a giant mess here.
Congratulations, we are on page 40. 22,000 words of FNAF, baby. Practically just wrote myself a Tales of the Pizzaplex short story. Have I answered everything? No. Does everything fit cleanly? No. But does it feel like the best and most cohesive narrative for all these characters that addresses most of the evidence we're given? Yeah. For me, honestly, it really does. And let's be honest with ourselves, the DLC will probably come out later this year and prove me completely wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. Then comes the movie,
oh my God, imagine having all this work and then
it's regardless, I am so proud of this. This was a massive undertaking, and I'm so proud of our editors who have just destroyed the editing across all 4 of these installments. You guys are the best. Thank you for pushing through on 20+ minute uploads. You are unreal, and
plus FNAF 3 was meant to be an ending with full support that FNAF 4 was made, which was also meant to be final sim for Misery Simulator.
Regarding a talkback
then
live
even more games later. Okay, guess it never ends.
I want to hear your feedback. So that one's coming up soon.
Is
with that, my friends,
ending?
you can finally rest. I can leave the demon to its demons with one final reminder that it was all just a game theory. Thanks for watching.
You know, yeah, I think FNAF is going to be infinite. By the way, it's already, jeez. You know? It's like a lot, you know? As long as it makes money, there will be more games. Bro, that's not how it should work. You should make because you like it, not because of money. Then it's gonna be a mess. You know?
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, where today it's the best of times and it's the worst of times. I mean, on one hand, FNAF fans be eating good this month. There's books, there's a teaser for the movie, there's a trailer for Security Breach's Ruin DLC. Heck, there's even a brand new FNAF VR sequel that literally got announced as I'm recording this episode. It is all super exciting stuff. I hope you're prepared to engorge yourself in lore like Chica consuming a pizza. It is literally the year of FNAF, which is fitting since it's 2023 and that's the year of FNAF 3. Also, probably FNAF 6. Honestly, the only thing they're missing from this year is some sort of haunted attraction. But on the other hand, there is chaos in the wider theorist community. Buried in this landslide of new material are a lot, and I mean a lot, of very significant lore drops that feel unusually explicit for this franchise.
Okay, more
Hints
lore,
to the
I
origins
guess.
of Henry, revelations about secret AI programs controlling the Pizzaplex, confirmation that Gregory was in fact Patient 46. But here's the thing, no one can actually agree on what it's all trying to say. Everyone recognizes that there's been a lot of very important stuff that's being revealed lately, but every online FNAF theorist that I've seen has taken the clues and wound up with a different solution to the puzzle. And normally that's not a big issue. That is the beauty of theorizing, to reach your own conclusions, to make your own predictions, to come up with your own personal headcanons as part of the internet hive mind's attempts to work together and solve a common mystery. There are going to be people that you agree with and people that you don't, and you know what? It's great either way. Except this time, we kinda gotta sort of figure it out. What we're talking about today is some major stuff. Everything that's coming out right now feels like it's trying to guide us into what the plot of Security Breach was meant to be. And now with Ruin coming out in July and building off of that initial game, we've got a ticking clock demanding that we solve things, and quick. Our window is tight. So today I'm here to catch you up on all the major reveals and the ensuing controversies.
I was thinking like
before
these
throwing
here.
my purple hat into the ring on what I suspect it all
so
means.
cute.
Good news, bad news on today's episode, friends. Good news, I think we've been on the right track the entire time. Bad news, I don't think the wider FNAF community is gonna agree with me. This one is gonna be a battle,
What
so
is
are you
this,
ready,
Lord?
theorists? It's time to eat pizza and theorize, and
so
I'm all
good,
out of pizza. Okay, first let me catch you up on the big FNAF drama. Let me set the stage. It's April. All of Team Theorist over here has just finished slaving away on our massive timeline for the series. We've done it. We are on the beach, coconut drinks in our hands, eager to take a break from the franchise until Ruin's release later in the year. But nope. Scott had himself some other plans. He smacked those beverages clean out of our hands and released 3 new books. Submechanophobia, The Bobby Dots Conclusion, and Nexi.
Thank you.
Now, normally that wouldn't be too much of a concern, right? Books tied to this franchise have been coming out for years. It's just part of the content treadmill at this point, and it's not like they tend to add a whole lot. Only one in like every 6 stories is even remotely lore relevant, and even then the connection back to the games only exists if you squint at it. But oh no, friends, not this time. Across the 3 books, story after story after story seems to have significant lore implications. And not only that, they're also much more direct in the way that information is presented, with characters and events mapping largely one for one onto characters and events from the games. If you're not in the habit of reading these things, and let's be honest, why would you when I could just do the homework for you? What I'm talking about might be a bit confusing, so I'm just going to explain by way of example.
For me. It's like, Jesus
one of the 4
Christ,
stories that set
imagine
the
buying
internet
all the
on fire, a
books.
young
That's
boy
a
named
lot of
Craig
money.
with brown hair and big brown eyes is a master hacker who's been reprogramming the animatronics at Pizzaplex for evil deeds, including bumping off 3 school counselors that seem to be getting too close to the truth. He also has himself a habit of being really good at the Pizzaplex's arcade games, leaving behind his initials GGY at the top of the game's leaderboard.
I'm sorry.
Now compare that information to what we get in the games. There's a young boy named Gregory with the brown hair and big brown eyes who seems to be Patient 46, a master hacker that's reprogramming the animatronics at the Pizzaplex for evil deeds, including bumping off 3 therapist characters that also seem to be getting too close to the truth. He also has himself the habit of leaving the letters GGY at the top of the leaderboards at various arcade cabinets throughout the Pizzaplex. Now that right there, that is not counting animatronic toes and trying to match up striped shirts. That is about as explicit of a one-to-one parallel that you get for this franchise. So when the story also reveals that Greg's nickname is Rab, aka Dr. Rabbit, you stand up and take notice. And you know what? The internet sees it. They recognize the connections and how important the books have suddenly become. No longer am I out there on my own little island shouting into the void about using the books to inform our speculation about the lore. Finally, the internet agrees with me. To me, this is a huge step in the right direction in terms of figuring out the wider lore of the franchise. You know, there's just one tiny little problem with this. No one can quite agree just how seriously to take this lore. After years of denying the book's canonicity, there's suddenly been a massive swing of the pendulum the complete other way, where now many pockets of the FNAF community vehemently believe that these most recent stories are fully canon with the games. In other words, we're no longer talking about an alternate universe where events are similar to the games, but with slight differences. is, oh no. Now the debate is all about whether what you read in the books also happened in the pizzaplex that we play through in the games. So before we dive into that can of worms, let's just talk about the stories themselves. I already filled you in on GGY, which means it's time to talk about the other three, which tell themselves a connected timeline of events. Starting with the first, the Mimic.
So you're telling me that in the beginning, basically, I don't say bless you fully.
Edwin, a genius inventor and
single father, and
no
his hyperactive son,
more
David.
That you guys are leaning Edwin is overworked. Years ago, he sold a struggling robotics company to Fazbear Entertainment, who now has him hard at work turning their, quote, weird costumes into entertaining robots.
They started making
the first
the
one that he's working on being a bright yellow chip. There's
supposedly
just one problem here,
have to be always canon, right?
All the best and worst
because
ways possible.
Why would they make them anyway if they're not canon?
And demands a lot of time and attention. Two things that Edwin does not have. So to fix his problem and get himself more work time, Edwin creates a piece of software known as Mimic 1. Using some spare robot parts, he makes a legless endoskeleton that's able to copy everything that David does. Basically, this thing's an AI that's using David as his training data. And while Mimic 1 starts by merely copying David, pretty soon it's able to respond on its own, independently. And David loves this thing, which means that Edwin is finally able to disappear into his work. Everything seems to be going well until tragedy strikes.
The books of lore, okay. The books were separate stories where they could write stories in the FNAF concepts.
And he takes all his rage out on the Mimic, this robot that continues to behave like his son, infusing the metal of the bot with pure
they could make it another
name
for that.
To Edwin being gone, and the Mimic roaming the halls of his abandoned home, a brutal killer still in possession of David's childlike tendencies. So, does any of that sound familiar? Cause it should. It's Henry Emily, a genius inventor who helped create the robots of Fazbear Entertainment, a man who also happens to be a single father whose only child dies in a tragic accident when they decide to run outside, a creator whose first project was Chica. Now, that alone would be plenty of connected dots, but the story continues to hammer home the parallels between these two men.
Okay, we'll stop for today, okay? We'll start Make Way. Okay. Let me just take a print on this so I know where we got. Okay, we're gonna start